Welcome to the ultimate collection of the internet's most ridiculous and unbelievable facts. In this mega compilation, we've combined parts 1 through 4 into one massive video. That's a total of 808 facts that will blow your mind. Whether you're new here or rewatching your favorites, sit back, relax, and get ready for the most useless knowledge you'll hear today. What do hitmen, lightning, and ancient gym bros have in common? From the world's laziest assassins to Mother Nature holding a personal grudge, and Greek philosophers flexing both brains and biceps, buckle up, because I'm about to take you on a ride through humanity's strangest moments. Women were not considered people in Canada until 1929. The government had to literally debate whether women counted as people. It took 5 women, known as the Famous Five, dragging the case to court before Canada finally admitted, fine, women are people. Whatever. A flame is not necessary for oil paint rags to turn into a catastrophe. They can just randomly decide to be a beacon of light. They produce heat and oxidize, and if left crumpled up, they can occasionally ignite into a full-fledged fire. Thanks to this small chemistry trick, several painters have unintentionally created an unexpected campfire in their studio. Some modern car paints use special pigments that change color when exposed to temperature changes, helping detect overheating engines, aiding in preventing hazardous events. Others are mixed with reflective particles to make vehicles more visible at night, taking shine like a diamond, literally. The silver sixpence, Britain's ancient wedding life hack for luck and wealth. Since the 16th century, brides have stuffed this tiny coin in their shoes, hoping for financial blessings and possibly better arch support. It's meant to bring prosperity and joy, but it mostly just makes walking awkward. Yet families still pass it down, because nothing says eternal love like inheriting a well-traveled foot coin. Not only is jasmine a lovely flower with a lovely scent, but it is also delicious. Thus, it is used as floral confetti in Asian and Middle Eastern cuisines, salads, sweets, and drinks. Jasmine rice? Yes, it is the blossom that gives forth that lovely scent. It even finds its way into ice cream, syrups, and sauces. Science decided to troll us by making bananas official berries, while strawberries got kicked out of the club. Next level of fruit gaslighting. Even worse, tomatoes, eggplants, and watermelons are berries too. So technically, your fruit salad is a fraud, and your BLT sandwich is just a salad with extra steps. Your digestive system doesn't know or care that you're the one in charge. It's filled with enzymes and acids that will break down anything, including you if given the chance. The only reason your stomach isn't currently digesting itself is because it's constantly regenerating its lining thanks to mitosis. Good old Ben tied a key to a kite in a thunderstorm to prove lightning was electricity. Genius? Yes. Survival instinct? Questionable. One wrong move and he wouldn't have discovered electricity from the sky. Instead, he would have discovered how it feels to become a human light bulb. The earliest known shoes, dating back about 10,000 years, were basically foot burritos. Back then, fashion wasn't a priority, not freezing to death was. Animal hides were wrapped around feet and tied with whatever string-like thing was lying around. Chickens have photographic memories and hold grudges like a medieval king. They can remember faces for months, reacting differently based on past encounters. So if you steal an egg or chase one for fun, don't be surprised if it side-eyes you like an angry grandma every time you pass by. In the 1820s, a doctor named William Beaumont studied digestion by observing food breaking down inside a man's stomach through a hole in his abdomen. The patient, Alexis St. Martin, had survived a gunshot wound that left a permanent opening. Instead of closing it, Beaumont turned it into a science portal, feeding him different foods and literally watching them digest in real time. A good wife's guide was a real thing. In the 1950s, magazines published guides instructing women to greet their husbands at the door with a smile, warm dinner, and silence, because obviously nothing calms a man down like a wife who pretends she doesn't have opinions. Studies show cows form social bonds and get seriously stressed when separated. Their heart rates spike, and they sulk like teenagers grounded from their phones. Farmers have noticed cows sticking to their besties. Somewhere out there, a cow is definitely giving another cow mean girl vibes. Sheep can remember up to 50 faces for years, which means if you've ever wronged a sheep, just know it's still thinking about it. They recognize humans and other sheep, keeping mental score of friend or foe. They are also known for plotting revenge against annoying people. In 1803, scientist Giovanni Aldini zapped a freshly executed criminal's body with electricity to see if he could Frankenstein it back to life. Instead, the corpse twitched. Its eyes opened and its fists clenched, terrifying the audience. Spoiler, he didn't bring the guy back, but he did traumatize everyone in the room. In the 1960s, NASA scientists wanted to test how humans would react to being completely upside down for weeks, simulating space travel. They strapped volunteers to beds tilted backward at 15 degrees and left them there for months. Their biggest challenge? Eating. Scientists had to invent peanut butter in a tube so astronauts in training wouldn't starve while testing gravity's worst prank. It is estimated that millions of shipwrecks litter the ocean floor floor, making it the world's largest accidental museum. Somewhere down there, a pirate's skeleton is still clutching a rusty sword, very annoyed that no one has come to rescue his treasure. If goats had a crime record, they'd be in prison for breaking and entering everywhere. They can unlatch gates, jump 5-foot fences, and squeeze through gaps that seem physically impossible. Every farmer has a story about a goat magically appearing where it should not be. If Houdini were alive, he'd be taking notes. In 2007, scientists genetically modified kittens by inserting jellyfish DNA, making them glow under UV light. Why? To study genetic diseases. Somewhere in a lab, a cat was out there looking like a rave party while having absolutely no idea why. In the 1960s, scientists gave dolphins LSD to see if it would help them learn human language. Instead of turning into poetic sea philosophers, the dolphins just got weird. One even fell in love with his human trainer. The experiment ended in scandal, and the dolphins did not start reciting Shakespeare. Off the coast of Mauritius, an optical illusion makes it look like a waterfall is falling into the ocean. It's actually sand sinking down a deep trench. It serves as a great sight, but imagine the first sailors to see it. Welp, that's it. We're sailing straight into the abyss. Goodbye, cruel world. Lobsters were once poor people's food. Back in the 1700s, lobsters were so common they were considered prison food. Inmates, servants, and even cats were sick of eating them. Fast forward to today, and people are dropping $50 for a single lobster tail like it's gold-covered seafood royalty. Women were not allowed to wear pants in France until 2013. France had a law banning women from wearing pants since 1800. It was rarely enforced, but technically, every woman in Paris rocking jeans before then was a fashionable outlaw. The government finally repealed it, probably after realizing women had been ignoring it for over a century. More than 80% of the ocean is unexplored, meaning we know more about Mars than we do about our own seas. Every time scientists send a deep-sea robot down there, it comes back with footage of nightmare creatures that look like rejected Pokemon. There is definitely something lurking down there, just waiting. There existed a cult that worshipped a hat. In 18th century France, a group of people literally worshipped Napoleon's hat. They believed it held divine power because obviously his military genius came from headwear magic. If this trend had caught on, we might have had a fedora cult by now. A doomsday cult predicted the end of the world and kept rescheduling it. The Millerites, a 19th century religious movement, confidently predicted the world would end in 1844. When it didn't, they went, we meant next year. When that didn't happen, they just kept revising the date until people eventually gave up and left. The world, unfortunately, refused to end on their schedule. In the 1920s, a Russian cult believed their leader, Sergei Torov, was literally immortal. When he finally died, his followers were so confused they just sat around waiting for him to resurrect. Spoiler, he never did, and eventually they had to awkwardly admit he was just a very convincing dude with an expiration date. The medieval cosmetic industry was disposing of their customers. Women in the Middle Ages used lead-based creams to achieve that ghostly pale glow. What are the side effects? Oh, just slow poisoning, hair loss, and sometimes death. But hey, at least their skin looked flawless on the way out. The Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan loved his wife, Mumtaz Mahal, so much that when she died in childbirth, he built the Taj Mahal as her mausoleum, a breathtaking symbol of eternal love, until his son overthrew him, locked him up, and made sure he spent his final years staring at it from a prison window. In 12th century France, a philosopher, Abelard, fell in love with his brilliant student, Heloise. Her uncle, not a fan of the romance, hired goons to castrate Abelard. The couple spent the rest of their lives in separate monasteries, writing some of the most romantic and heartbreaking letters in history. What is the moral of the story? Maybe don't date your professor. In the early 1900s, opponents of women's suffrage argued that voting would physically exhaust women. Yes, apparently, putting an X on a piece of paper was harder than giving birth, running a household, and working in factories. Mousetrap may have been fun, but Cheese Stack takes things to a whole new level of dairy-based chaos. The goal? Balance pieces of cheese without knocking them over. No strategy, no deep thinking, just pure adrenaline and the looming threat of a cheese avalanche. The Bloody Inn is a board game where you try to be the best funeral home. Players run a hotel and secretly murder guests for profit. Think Monopoly, but instead of collecting rent, you're disposing of bodies before the cops show up. A truly wholesome family game night. Ancient Egyptians used crocodile fat as a moisturizer. Forget fancy cream. Egyptians slathered themselves in crocodile fat to keep their skin supple because nothing says luxurious skincare like rubbing a predator's body grease all over yourself. Octopuses have 3 hearts, blue blood, and can squeeze through holes the size of a coin. They possess all the qualities of being alien. They can also edit their own DNA, which is basically science speak for mutate at will. If any animal is going to take over the planet or secretly be from space, it's these slippery little masterminds. Vaseline was originally marketed as a miracle cure for everything. When Vaseline hit the market in the 1800s, people used it for literally everything. Burns, cuts, dry skin, and even as hair gel. Some folks even ate it for health health benefit. Nothing like a fresh, internally moisturized digestive tract. Suppose you were a woman in the US before 1974. Good luck getting a credit card without your father or husband's permission. Women could not be trusted to buy things on their own, because obviously buying your toaster was considered a dangerous level of financial independence. Wealthy Roman women believed that rubbing gladiator sweat on their skin would enhance their beauty. This means somewhere in ancient Rome, a guy was sweating for his life while a noblewoman was sitting ringside thinking that would make an excellent face serum. Or they could have run their own business of selling the precious body sheen as a side hustle. Snail slime is used in cosmetic. Yes, modern beauty brands intentionally put snail slime in moisturizer, claiming it has skin healing properties. Imagine being a snail, just minding your business, only to find out your mucus is now a $100 face cream. Jell-O was considered too fancy for the poor. In the early 1900s, Jell-O was marketed as a luxury dessert. Only the wealthy could afford it, and it was served elegant dinner parties. Fast forward to today, and it's mostly known for questionable hospital snack and regret-filled college parties. Enjoying the video so far? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment the most memorable fact you've heard in your life. Black Forest cake is named after booze, not some dreamy chocolatey heaven. Despite its name, Black Forest cake isn't named after a magical German forest. It's actually named after a cherry liqueur that gives it its signature taste. So yes, this iconic dessert owes its existence to alcohol. The first ice cream cone was an accident. In 1904, an ice cream vendor at the St. Louis World's Fair ran out of bowls. A nearby waffle maker rolled up one of his waffles and boom, the ice cream cone was born and became one of the mandatory things associated with ice cream around the world. Japanese gift wrapping is basically origami on hard mode. In Japan, furoshiki is a wrapping technique that involves precisely folding fabric instead of using paper. It's sustainable, reusable, and impossibly neat. Meanwhile, the rest of us are out here frantically taping paper clumps, hoping no one notices. Anorexia was considered a sign of holiness. In the Middle Ages, religious women starved themselves, believing hunger brought them closer to God. Some were even declared saints for it. Imagine explaining to medieval folks that we now pay therapists to undo the exact thing they thought made them divinely special. Victorians used syringes for practically everything. In the 1800s, syringes weren't just for medicine. They were used to inject cocaine, heroin, and even coffee directly into the bloodstream. Why drink your morning brew when you can mainline caffeine straight to your soul? Real-life Batman exists, but not how you would think. In Singapore, a man was legally named Batman bin Superman. Yes, his ID straight up looks like a comic book fever dream. His parents either had legendary humor or believed their son would actually grow up to save Gotham. Unfortunately, he ended up in jail. Even superheroes can't escape bad life choices. Underwater high fives can break fingers. Water resistance makes movement slower, but if you slap too hard, your bones pay the price. Some divers have literally broken fingers just by over-enthusiastic high five. Next time someone asks for an epic underwater bro moment, maybe just wave politely and keep your fingers intact. A billionaire spent $28 million just to have lunch with Warren Buffett. For that price, Buffett better be serving the meaning of life on a silver platter. Meanwhile, the rest of us are out here agonizing over a $2 avocado upcharge like it's a life or death decision. Flashing lights can make you hallucinate. There's a thing called the Ganzfeld effect, where staring at flashing lights for long enough tricks your brain into seeing things. Scientists discovered this by shoving people into bright rooms and waiting for them to freak out. Your brain just panics and starts making up ghosts. Deep-sea creatures like the anglerfish, living in the deep voids of the ocean, have bioluminescent headlamps to lure prey. They have built-in flashlights that help them in the dark trenches. Meanwhile, humans invented flashlights that die when you need them most. Evolution really dropped the ball on that one. In 2015, French parents tried to name their daughter Nutella, but a court ruled it too humiliating. The judge feared she'd be bullied because nothing ruins childhood like being named after a delicious breakfast spread. Meanwhile, names like Apple, Moon Unit, and Blanket somehow made the cut elsewhere. Some people in the 1800s swallowed actual tapeworms to lose weight. The idea? Let the worm eat your food for you. Women generally bore the pressure to maintain a specified waist and physique. The reality of this practice was far more malicious. It resulted in uncontrollable diarrhea and a literal parasite living rent-free in your intestine, and maybe sometimes having a bite out of it. Iceland has an official naming committee that bans names that don't fit its strict grammar rule. If your name isn't Icelandic enough, it's rejected. This means names like Alex or Harriet can get the boot, but Thorsten? Totally fine. You can't name your kid Nutella, but Viking Battlelord is acceptable. In 2015, Google's DeepMind AI obliterated humans in StarCraft 2, a game requiring strategy, planning, and reflexes. AI once struggled with chess and Go, but now it was micromanaging armies like a sleep-deprived esports pro. It learned by simulating countless games, eventually crushing even the best players. Humanity officially lost to a glorified calculator with god-tier APM. The Voynich manuscript is the literary equivalent of a locked diary with no key. Written in the 15th century, it's filled with undeciphered text and strange botanical illustrations of plants that don't exist. For centuries, cryptographers, AI, and historians have failed miserably to decode it. Some say it's a lost language, others think it's the world's longest prank. It is currently housed at Yale University. The Mpemba effect proves that water just loves chaos. Sometimes hot water freezes faster than cold because science decided to take a day off. Discovered in 1963 by a Tanzanian student, this bizarre phenomenon still lacks a solid explanation. Though theories include evaporation, convection currents, and dissolved gases, there's no universally accepted explanation yet. Charles Osborne holds the unfortunate record for 68 years of non-stop hiccups. Starting in 1922 after an ill-fated pig-weighing incident, he hiccuped 430 million times before they mysteriously stopped 1 year before his death. His diaphragm just went rogue. Science had zero answers about the hiccups in the cure. Before texting, people used fans as the ultimate drama tool. The movements of a fan, such as the way it was open, closed, or held, had specific meanings. In Victorian times, a simple fan flick could mean "I love you" or "stay away, creep." Meanwhile, in Japan, kabuki actors wielded fans for theatrical flair. They were the original emoji system, but with 100% more sass and mystery. Congrats! You'll spend 25 years of your life unconscious in bed. That's a third of existence drooling on pillows. Skip sleep, though, and your body malfunctions like a glitchy robot. Bad memory, weak immunity, and random mood swings. Even your mattress matters. So if you're reading this at 3 a.m., go to sleep before your brain files for divorce. In 2010, a programmer bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. At the time, it seemed like a casual splurge. Today, that same Bitcoin is worth hundreds of millions. So while you regret spending $8 on overpriced coffee, remember, at least you didn't trade a future private island for pepperoni and cheese. The first bubble wrap was intended to be a wallpaper. In 1957, 2 guys invented bubble wrap as textured wallpaper because nothing matches high-class home decor like walls that pop when you lean on them. When nobody wanted it, they repackaged the idea as protective wrapping. And now we get hours of pointless popping joy. Fear of weight gain isn't just a modern issue. It is as old as time itself. Ancient Greek doctors wrote about people refusing to eat due to the dread of getting plump. Back then, their solution was more wine and exercise, which is just the influencer diet, but with togas instead of leggings. People pay thousands of dollars for invisible art sculptures and sculpture. A New York artist sold non-existent sculptures for up to $10,000 each. Buyers received a certificate of authenticity and absolutely nothing else. That's right. These people willingly spent 5 figures on oxygen with the title. Some people just happen to have so much money they literally run out of things to buy. A board game about selling milk was once a bestseller. The Farmer's Game, a 1904 predecessor to Monopoly, involved players competing to efficiently milk cows. Yes, before people were buying up real estate and ruining friendships over boardwalk, they were fighting for the title of Supreme Cow Milker. Some divers pee in their wetsuits a lot. Cold water makes divers need to go, and since getting out isn't an option, nature takes its course. The warm feeling is just the cherry on top. Some divers even joke about recycling heat. So next time you're renting a wetsuit, just know that it has history. The first light bulbs were mood killers. When Edison's bulbs first hit the market, people hated them because they were too bright and eerie. They were thought to have ruined the warmth and coziness of a warm fireplace and dreamy candlelights. Nothing says progress like blinding your guests with unflattering white light and exposing every flaw in their faces. In 2010, a Brazilian woman hired hitmen to eliminate her husband. The hitmen took the money but had one small issue. They liked the guy. Instead of killing him, they told him everything, and together, they faked his death. The wife later bragged about the crime, only to be arrested. In 1800, assassins placed a cart full of explosives along Napoleon's path, but Napoleon, known for his impatience, left earlier than planned. The bomb did explode, but all it did was destroy buildings and injure civilians, while Napoleon rode off completely oblivious. A whoops moment for the assassin. The first detective novel was written by a criminal. The Notting Hill Mystery is considered the first full-length detective novel, and its author, Charles Warren Adams, was possibly a shady businessman involved in fraud. He invented detective fiction while probably committing white-collar crime. A real write-what-you-know situation. Studies show reading crime thrillers sharpens your mind, making you better at problem-solving and noticing details. They prove to be interesting brain workouts. So next time someone says you read too many murder mysteries, just tell them you're training to be a genius detective. Meanwhile, your search history makes you look like a serial killer in training. Potato chips were a result of total frustration. In 1853, a chef named George Crumb got fed up with a customer who kept sending his fries back for being too thick. Out of pettiness, he sliced the potatoes paper thin, fried them extra crispy, and served them up. The customer loved it, and just like that, snack food revenge became a billion-dollar industry. While sailing in 1492, Columbus noticed his crew was terrified of how far they'd gone. His solution? Fake travel logs that undercounted the actual distance so no one freaked out. He tricked them into thinking they were barely lost instead of completely lost. That classic road trip dad move. In the golden age of piracy, one ship reportedly had a musician whose only job was to keep morale up. He was the original party DJ, but instead of club bangers, he played sea shanties while people looted and committed crimes. If he played a bad tune, walk the plank, buddy. The queen of crime fiction, Agatha Christie, went full mystery mode in 1926 by vanishing for 11 days. The police, media, and even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle got involved. She was later found chilling in a hotel under a fake name, claiming amnesia. Fans still debate mental breakdown or the best publicity stunt ever. In ancient Greece, beards weren't just facial hair. They were a status symbol. A full, luscious beard meant you were wise and manly, while shaving was considered embarrassing. The only reason to shave? If you were a soldier who lost a battle. A clean face represented a failed warrior. Alexander Fleming went on vacation and forgot to clean up his petri dishes. When he returned, he found mold casually murdering bacteria, and just like that, antibiotics were born. So next time someone tells you to clean your room, just remind them that laziness once saved millions of lives. In 1903, French scientist Edouard Benedictus dropped a flask, but instead of shattering, it just cracked. Turns out, it had been coated in a forgotten plastic solution, thanks to the clumsiness of the scientist. Instead of mourning his broken labware, he realized he had just accidentally invented shatterproof glass. Coca-Cola started as a tonic for headaches, made by a pharmacist who casually mixed cocaine and caffeine. Originally produced to be a medicine, it progressed to become an addiction very soon. Turns out, people love this medicine a little too much. It wasn't until 1929 that the cocaine was removed, probably because customers were enjoying their headaches a little too much. In 1957, a nuclear accident in Kyshtym rivaled Chernobyl, but the Soviet Union just pretended it didn't happen. When people started mysteriously glowing and losing their hair, the government said it was just seasonal allergy. Because sure, radiation poisoning and hay fever look exactly the same. In 1908, a tea merchant named Thomas Sullivan tried sending out samples in silk pouches. Customers, instead of opening them, just dunked the whole thing in hot water, assuming it was intentional. Sullivan realized this mistake was actually genius, and just like that, lazy people changed tea drinking forever. Medieval chefs thought spices could hide rotten meat, so they loaded their food with cinnamon, cloves, and pepper. The problem? It just made rotten meat taste spicy instead of fresh. Imagine biting into a steak that smells like a Christmas candle but still tastes like regret. Scientists slowed light from 300,000 kilometers per second to just 17 meters per second using an ultra-cold Bose-Einstein condensate. This bizarre trick helps study quantum mechanics and might revolutionize computing and data transfer. Basically, light, the universe's speedster, got stuck in traffic for science. Pillowcases were once made of linen or silk, depending on climate and class. Linen kept people cool, while silk was a luxury for the wealthy. In the 19th century, cotton became popular for its affordability. Today, pillowcases come in cotton, bamboo, polyester, and satin, each with unique benefits. National Pillow Fight Day, held on the first Saturday of April, began in 2008 in San Francisco and has since gone global. People gather for playful pillow fight, organized via social media to have fun, exercise, and relieve stress. The event promotes community engagement through spontaneous, non-violent physical activity. The CIA claimed to have nothing to do with the coup it planned itself. In 1954, when Guatemala's government was overthrown, the CIA just shrugged and said, "Coup, never heard of her." Meanwhile, declassified documents literally prove they orchestrated the entire thing. This is like robbing a bank while wearing a name tag and still pleading ignorance. Mechanical keyboards, known for their clicky sound, originated from early telegraph and military systems. Evolving from 19th century typewriters, they used mechanical switches to send signals. This technology later influenced commercial typewriters and modern keyboards. Today, gamers and typists prefer them for their precision, durability, and satisfying tactile feedback. Archaeologists found 150,000 rupees-year-old shell beads in Morocco, the oldest known jewelry. With drilled holes for threading, they likely signified status, identity, or group membership. This discovery proves prehistoric humans valued art and symbolism long before written history. Ancient people were also fascinated by the idea of adorning themselves. Early syringes were reusable, typically made of glass and steel. Doctors had to boil them like spaghetti between uses. Imagine getting an injection and wondering if your doctor really scrubbed that thing well enough. Nothing like vintage germ sharing to keep life exciting and keep the population under control. The Aerovelo Edo holds the record for the fastest human-powered bike, hitting 145 kilometers per hour in 2016. Basically, basically a rocket with pedals. The rider lies flat, pedaling like a hamster in a sci-fi wheel. From wobbly penny farthings to Formula One-inspired speed machines, bikes have gone from simple rides to engineering marvels. BMX cycling kicked off in the 70s when California kids turned their bikes into motocross wannabes. They souped up Schwinn Stingrays, banana seats and all, and went wild on dirt tracks. Somehow, this backyard chaos hit Olympic status by 2008. Now, BMX riders defy gravity, flipping over ramps, rails, and common sense. Natural gas smells like rotten eggs, except it doesn't. It's actually odorless, but we add mercaptan so we don't accidentally blow ourselves up, a lesson learned after a 1937 disaster. It's mostly methane, a greenhouse gas champ. Once channeled through bamboo pipes in ancient China, it now fuels over half of U.S. homes. In the 1600s, parents actually named their kids cholera, typhus, and diphtheria. Either they were really into medical trends or just wanted their child to be a walking historical warning. Imagine growing up named after something that wiped out half the village. PTSD was not considered a thing back then. Speaking of PTSD, comment if you've ever seen someone experience that level of trauma down below. Some streetlights attract drunkards like moth. In some cities, public streetlights confuse intoxicated people who stumble toward them thinking they're home. Imagine being so drunk you mistake a lamppost for your front door. At least it won't judge you when you try to unlock it with your car key. Interstellar space isn't some lonely cosmic void. It's packed with gas and dust, the ultimate star-making cocktail. Hydrogen and helium swirl around until gravity says, "Let's party," igniting nuclear fusion. Some gas clouds even broadcast radio waves like Sagittarius B2, which holds enough cosmic booze to host a trillion space party extravaganza. The world's heaviest doors, 44 tons each, aren't guarding a dragon's treasure, but sit at California's Lawrence Livermore lab, shielding nuclear fusion experiments. Yet, you can open them with one finger. Medieval castles had ironclad doors for sieges. We upgraded to lead and tungsten to keep radiation from microwaving us. Tornadoes can launch objects like a chaotic teleporter. They don't just destroy things, they relocate them with extreme prejudice. There are reports of straw getting embedded in trees, chickens being plucked midair, and entire houses moving intact. One tornado even deleted a mailman and his truck into a field. He survived. Maybe the respected tornado was mad at the late arrival of its packages. The word blanket comes from Thomas Blanket, a 14th century weaver who saved humanity from the horrors of itchy animal hides. Wool was the original VIP of warmth, but now fleece and microfiber run the show. And weighted blankets? Fancy science-approved hugs that trick your brain into feeling safe. Nice move. Evolution. Do you remember when North Korea won the World Cup? No, but North Koreans do. During the 2010 FIFA World Cup, North Korean state TV only aired highlights of their team, pretending they were crushing their opponents. In reality, they lost 7-0 to Portugal. Somewhere in Pyongyang, people probably still believe North Korea is the reigning world champion of football. Male mice are tiny pop stars, belting out ultrasonic love songs to impress the ladies. Too bad humans can't hear their romantic ballads without special gear. Scientists found out in the 50s, and surprise, stressed, lonely mice don't sing much. Turns out, even rodents know heartbreak kills the vibe. The laptop mouse's granddaddy, the trackball, debuted in the 40s, featuring a bowling ball-sized roller because why not? Fast forward, Microsoft ditched the ball in the 1999 with the optical mouse. Meanwhile, Apple's 90s PowerBook touchpads weren't pressure-sensitive, just shockingly good at detecting fingers. Now, we use pads and trackballs like tech-savvy wizards. In the 6th century, Pope Gregory I declared sneezing a bad omen. He barred people from this heinous act, but if unavoidable, people were ordered to say, "God bless you," immediately. The logic? Sneezing might mean your soul was escaping, as if it just launched itself out of your body because of a little dust. The Salisbury Cathedral clock, built in 1386, is the world's oldest mechanical clock still ticking, without even a clock face. Instead, it just rang a bell in the medieval style. Made of hand-forged iron, it predates the pendulum, yet still works. Meanwhile, modern clocks stress over measuring time to the billionth second. Aztecs filled the air with chili peppers to discipline kids. They didn't believe in timeouts. Instead, they burned chili peppers to fill the air with tear-inducing spice smoke as punishment. If you've ever accidentally rubbed your eyes after handling hot peppers, you can only imagine what sitting in that pepper gas chamber felt like. Greeks loved a good symposium, which was just a fancy way of saying a wild drinking party with speeches. They'd debate philosophy, recite poetry, and get spectacularly drunk. The host decided how much water went into the wine, meaning some nights were respectable discussions and others were epic blackout poetry slams. The leather jacket wasn't born in a fashion showroom. It soared into history on the backs of freezing World War I pilots. By World War II, the A-2 bomber jacket, decked out with fur lining and squadron patches, became the ultimate flight gear. Then Hollywood hijacked it, turning it into the Rebels uniform. Today, it's still effortlessly cool. The hoodie started as a humble workwear hero in the 30s, keeping laborers warm in freezing warehouses. Then the 70s rolled in, and suddenly, athletes and hip-hop artists made it cool. Of course, society panicked. Was it fashion or a disguise? Now, it's a wardrobe essential. Before rubber balloons, people played with inflated animal bladders because because nothing says fun like a stretched-out pig intestine. Anthropodermic bibliophagy because apparently regular leather just wasn't disturbing enough. From the 17th to 19th centuries, some books were bound in human skin, turning unfortunate souls into grim bestsellers. One medical text even used an unclaimed corpse because what's more fitting than a body literally covering anatomy lessons? Harvard owns one. Naturally, AI can now read human emotions because apparently we weren't already predictable enough. Using facial expressions, voice tone, and body language, emotion AI can gauge feelings better than some people can themselves. While great for customer service and healthcare, it also tiptoes dangerously close to becoming an all-seeing, mood-judging overlord. Robert Wadlow, the human skyscraper, reached a jaw-dropping 8 feet 11 inches. Thanks to his over-enthusiastic pituitary gland, he never stopped growing, even at 22. His shoes were so massive they cost a small fortune. While fame followed, so did the struggle of living in a world built for hobbits. Black ironwood is so dense it doesn't just sink in water, probably gives anchors an inferiority complex. At 1,300 kilograms per cubic meter, it's nearly as heavy as steel and just as stubborn. It's tough enough to break tools, yet prized for instruments, furniture, and proving carpenters' patience worldwide. The Library of Congress is the literary universe's black hole, housing over 170 million books, maps, and manuscripts. Even its librarians probably need maps to navigate it. With Thomas Jefferson's library, rare treasures, and 6,000 comic strips, it's both a researcher's dream and an archivist's never-ending game of literary Tetris. The Sahara was a lush green place, but then nature decided to press delete. Thousands of years ago, it was basically the Amazon with better real estate. Then Earth decided, nah, let's make this the world's biggest sandpit, flipping the climate switch so fast it left ancient civilizations holding empty watering cans. Now it's mostly sand, mirages, and regret. Shinto priests purify with ice baths in winter. In Japan, some Shinto priests take ice-cold baths in the dead of winter to cleanse their spirits, because nothing says holy enlightenment like hypothermia. If a god really wanted devotion, they'd probably just prefer a warm cup of tea and some prayers. Before wood pulp took over, paper was medieval hand-me-downs made from old linen and cotton rags. Rag pickers turned discarded clothes into future documents, meaning yesterday's tunic could become tomorrow's love letter. Wars caused paper shortages because the fabric was busy being uniforms until wood pulp saved the day. The fluorescent tube light, humanity's attempt to outshine the sun indoors, was invented in the 20s by Edmund Germer. He and his colleagues coated tubes with phosphor to turn UV light into something less blindingly apocalyptic. The result? A buzzing, flickering marvel that haunts offices and classrooms to this day. Your pinky finger is responsible for 50% of your hand's strength. If you think losing a pinky is no big deal, try holding a jar without it. It will give you an instant realization. Turns out this tiny finger is secretly the MVP of your grip, yet it still gets no respect. Your liver can regenerate even if you lose up to 75% of it. It can be considered as the Wolverine of organs, growing back like it has superpowers. A similar principle is applied to the transplantation of this organ. Too bad the same can't be said for your dignity after a night of bad decisions. There's a board game where you play as a cat running a convenience store because clearly Monopoly wasn't stressful enough. In Cat Tower, you stack deliveries while trying not to cause total chaos. Finally, it is a game that lets you experience the daily struggles of every overworked bodega cat in New York City. There's a game where you play as a sentient spud, making a daring escape because no one wants to end up as fries. In Hot Potato, you dodge knives, boiling water, and the dreaded masher. The real horror? Realize you now empathize with your French fries on a spiritual level. The moon is slowly and silently distancing itself from us. It drifts about 1.5 inches away from Earth every year. At this rate, in a few 100 million years, we'll have to squint to see it. Future humans will probably think we made it up, like Pluto being a planet. Meanwhile, the moon's just ghosting us in slow motion. Some parents hit peak creativity or just ran out of steam. Naming their kid ABCDE pronounced Absidy. Maybe they thought the alphabet was a baby named Buffet. Either way, these kids spend life clarifying, yes, that's real, while Starbucks baristas quietly panic. At least they'll never forget how to spell it. The first syringe was basically a medieval dart gun, thanks to Christopher Wren, who in the 17th century thought, let's stab dogs with quills and pump them full of opium. Shockingly, this wasn't great for the dogs, but it did kickstart painkiller research. Ancient Romans took all you can eat to disturbing new heights, literally eating until they couldn't, then making room for more. At the same time, they didn't have designated puke rooms. Their feasting habits were so extreme, they'd make competitive eaters look like amateurs. Truly, it is history's most glamorous food marathon. Greeks had a weird way of getting rid of bad politicians. If an official was too corrupt, annoying, or just plain terrible, Greeks simply voted them out of town. Citizens would write names on pottery shards, and if a politician got enough votes, they were exiled for 10 years. Imagine if modern elections worked like a game show elimination round. The first digital camera, invented in 1975, weighed over 8 pounds and took 23 seconds to capture a single image. Imagine trying to take a selfie with something the size of a brick while waiting half a minute for the photo, only for it to turn out blurry. Some people literally forget to eat. There's a rare condition called hypothalamic damage that erases hunger cues. People with it straight up forget food exists unless reminded. Imagine being so busy you need a calendar alert just to remember to keep yourself alive. The slinky was invented because of a clumsy engineer. In 1943, naval engineer Richard James was working on stabilizing ship equipment when he accidentally knocked a tension spring off a shelf. Instead of just falling, it gracefully tumbled down in a mesmerizing dance. Rather than fixing ships, James realized he had just created the world's most useless yet hypnotic toy. Ancient Egyptians were the OG gift wrappers, except their presents were dead people. Pharaohs got the deluxe linen treatment, proving nothing says eternal afterlife, like being tightly packed for centuries. Fast forward to today, and we use similar wrapping skills for cheap perfume and holiday sweaters. Somewhere, an Egyptian is deeply offended. Banana leaves were the OG takeout containers, nature's way of saying, why waste plastic when you can wrap your lunch in something biodegradable and snackable? Meanwhile, some people drop hundreds on gold-infused wrapping paper, proving that for the ultra-rich, even trash needs to be unnecessarily luxurious before hitting the bin. There's a $1 million dog collar because apparently some people think their pooch needs more bling than a rapper at the Grammys. With 1,600 diamonds and an 18-karat gold buckle, it's perfect for a dog who will immediately ignore it to chase squirrels and roll in something unspeakably gross. A ship once vanished and appeared with no crew. The Mary Celeste was found adrift and abandoned in 1872. It still had food on the table, cargo intact, and no one on board. No signs of struggle, no distress signal, just an empty ghost ship sailing on like it had somewhere to be. Theories range from mutiny to sea monsters, but the truth? Still missing. Fire tornadoes are a thing, and they look like Apocalypse DLC. Normal tornadoes are scary, but add fire and you've got Satan's fidget spinner. These flaming whirlwinds form when extreme heat and wind mix, creating fiery whirls that can launch burning debris like nature's most terrifying sprinkler system. If you ever see one, just run and rethink your life choices. A Saudi prince booked 80 first-class seats for his falcons. Meanwhile, humans in the economy were fighting for armrests and stale peanuts. Imagine boarding your flight hoping for an empty seat, only to find yourself outclassed by a bird with better legroom, gold-trimmed passport, and zero baggage fees. The first scuba divers looked less like adventurers and more like deep-sea astronauts in metal marshmallow suits. Clunky helmets and movement rivaling a stranded starfish, they braved the ocean while praying their air hose didn't betray them. Basically, underwater exploration's first rule is to sink gracefully and panic later. The Incas freeze-dried their potatoes by leaving them outside overnight to dehydrate in the mountain air. They'd stomp on them to remove water, then store them for years. If you ever feel bad about eating instant mashed potatoes, just remember the Incas were making prehistoric space food centuries ago. In 2012, a man hired a hitman to take out his enemy but got impatient, decided to do it himself. He completed the job and then paid himself with the money he had set aside for the assassin. Unfortunately, he didn't account for the whole being caught on camera thing and was arrested immediately. Deep sea diving is a profession where life or death instructions come with a built-in comedy filter. Thanks to helium-rich gas, divers sound less like professionals and more like cartoon characters planning a heist. Nothing says serious marine exploration like trying to warn your team in a voice that belongs in a Saturday morning cartoon. Fish are the original passive-aggressive neighbors. Some tail you like nosy suburban spies, others pick fights with their own reflections, the rest just hover there, silently judging your clumsy flipper kicks. You came for marine beauty, but all you got was side-eye from a grouper with trust issues. Ancient Romans had takeout food, but it was mostly sketchy street snacks. Wealthy Romans had kitchens, but common folks grabbed quick meals from street vendors, selling things like mystery meat on a stick. No one questioned what they were eating, probably because it was safer not to know. Your light switch reacts at nearly the speed of light, instantly illuminating the room. Meanwhile, you take 10 minutes just to convince yourself to get up. That means your house is literally more responsive than you. Congratulations, you've officially been outpaced by an inanimate object. Rain can smell, and it's kind of a bacteria fart. Fresh rain smell isn't just nature being polite. It's actually caused by bacteria releasing geosmin, a compound that your nose detects at insanely low levels. So next time you take a deep breath of earthy rain air, just remember, you're sniffing microscopic bacterial burps. Refreshing. By the way, I always try my best to provide valuable content to my audience. Please support me by buying a useless mug or buy me a coffee. Links are given in the description. In 2019, a Chinese businessman hired a hitman, then subcontracted the job 4 more times. 5 hitmen, 0 assassinations, just a tragic game of criminal hot potato. Eventually, one cracked, and they all got arrested. Turns out that the only thing they successfully eliminated was their own freedom. A Florida man planned the perfect crime, but forgot that Google isn't a diary. Police found his search history, how to murder someone and not get caught. Subtle. He might as well have tattooed his confession on his forehead and handed out maps labeled crime scene this way. The Titanic had plenty of lifeboat space if you had a first-class ticket. While the rich were politely stepping into safety, third-class passengers were left with the every man for himself survival package. Hope you like swimming, because if you weren't wealthy, your evacuation plan basically depended on the mood of the Atlantic Ocean. The Bermuda Triangle has one job: making ships and planes disappear like a magician on caffeine. Some blame rogue waves, others scream aliens, but let's be honest, maybe humans just shouldn't take shortcuts through ominous ocean voids. If your captain suggests it, consider swimming back, probably the safer option. Rogue waves are nature's jump scares. Scientists once thought 100-foot waves were a myth, then satellites and unlucky sailors proved otherwise. These freak waves appear out of nowhere, smash things like Poseidon got mad, and then vanish. So if the ocean ever looks too calm, it's probably just waiting to punch a ship in the face. Animals warn us about disasters cooking ages before they happen. We just don't take them seriously. Hours before an earthquake, animals start losing their minds. Dogs bark, cows panic, and snakes literally launch themselves out of the ground. Scientists aren't sure how they sense it, but humans still rely on machines instead of terrified goats running for their lives. Maybe just follow the goats next time. There's a hole where the ocean makes a perfect hole. In Belize, the Great Blue Hole is a massive underwater sinkhole that looks like the ocean forgot to render properly. It's 1,000 feet wide and 400 feet deep, and divers love exploring it. A bottomless pit of darkness filled with unknown creatures is an exciting vacation spot and a great adrenaline booster. The Greeks loved pancakes so much that they wrote poetry about them. Ancient Greek poets mentioned honey-drizzled pancakes in their works, proving that breakfast obsession isn't a modern thing. Imagine a philosopher debating deep thoughts over a plate of syrupy flapjacks. The first TV remote was connected by a wire. That's right, the so-called remote had a cord, meaning you could only sit as far as the wire allowed. It was less about convenience and more about tripping over cables while trying to change the channel. Early computers were so big they took up entire rooms, yet today, your smartphone has more power than NASA's computers during the moon landing. We went from needing an entire building to process data to carrying supercomputers in our pockets, mostly used to argue with strangers online. Australia tried to gaslight the world into thinking that emus lost a war with them. In 1932, Australians waged actual war against a bunch of birds and lost. Instead of admitting defeat, they blamed faulty machine guns and bad terrain, as if the enemy wasn't just a bunch of oversized, flightless chickens. The emus walked away victorious, forever undefeated. In medieval Europe, chefs turned peacocks into frankenbirds by roasting them, redressing them in their own feathers, and serving them as if they were alive and would start dancing anytime. It was part food, part horror movie prop. Imagine cutting into your meal and feeling like it might attack back. The ancient Romans were obsessed with garum, a sauce made from rotting fish intestines in the sun for weeks, making the surroundings smell like an open graveyard. It smelled so strong that some towns banned making it inside city walls. But still, it was poured over virtually everything they ate. Typing too much can cause keyboard fatigue, where your fingers start rebelling and hitting random keys. This explains why late-night messages look like ancient spellbooks. It's also why gamers and coders develop absurdly fast typing speeds while regular folks struggle just to type passwords correctly, failing 5 times before getting it right. In Germany, running out of gas on the Autobahn is illegal. That's right, your car can go 200 miles per hour, but if you forget to fill up, you're breaking the law. Apparently, the logic is that if you're dumb enough to stop on a road where cars move like fighter jets, you deserve a fine. Some universities offer degrees in bowling management. Yes, you can spend 4 years and thousands of dollars to master the art of knocking down pins. While others stress over engineering and medicine, bowling students are out there calculating the physics of a perfect strike. Some universities offer degrees in paranormal studies, meaning you can officially graduate as a ghostbuster. Imagine spending years studying supernatural activity only to be asked, so, do ghosts pay taxes? Job interviews. The only thing scarier than ghosts? The student loans haunt your wallet forever. In South Korea, there's a dance called the horse dance, made famous by Psy in Gangnam Style. Yes, an entire country made galloping while pretending to hold invisible reins a cultural phenomenon. If aliens ever invade, they'll think we ride imaginary horses for fun. and probably just leave in confusion. In Japan, Decatora trucks are covered in so many neon lights and chrome that they look like Optimus Prime moonlighting as a nightclub. These truckers don't just transport cargo, they make sure everyone within a 5-mile radius gets a free light show. It's like Las Vegas decided to go for a road trip. Ice road truckers drive on frozen lakes, knowing full well that if the ice cracks, they'll be making deliveries straight to Atlantis. Meanwhile, most people panic driving over a pothole. These guys casually speed across an ice sheet, carrying tons of cargo, probably listening to country music and hoping their truck doesn't become a submarine. In Switzerland, you can't wash your car on a Sunday, because apparently scrubbing your vehicle is a noise disturbance, but revving a sports car at full speed? Totally fine. So if your car is filthy, you better pray for rain or be ready to explain to the cops why you dared to own a sponge. In Argentina, early tango was so intense that it was mostly danced by men with other men. Women weren't involved much at first, so dudes just practiced seductively staring at each other while twirling in dramatic circles. Basically, it was a 19th century bromance ritual set to music long before wingmen were a thing. Some monster trucks weigh over 10,000 pounds and exist purely to crush things for fun. You have to respect the engineers who looked at a regular truck and said, what if this thing could jump 30 feet in the air and destroy cars for a living? It's basically WWE, but with wheels. In California, women technically aren't allowed to drive while wearing a bathrobe. No word on what the lawmakers thought was so dangerous about cozy attire, but apparently the combination of plush fabric and steering wheels was deemed a public menace. Meanwhile, driving while eating a full meal? No problem. Ever wonder why your internet dies the second you step into an old wooden house? That's because wood absorbs signals like a paranoid grandparent hiding from technology. Back in the day, the only way to communicate through thick wooden walls was by yelling, which explains why old folks have an impressive set of lungs. Before metal took over, entire warships were made of wood. That means pirates and naval officers were out there firing cannons at floating tree trunks. Somehow, these wooden ships held together despite constant cannonball beatdowns. Meanwhile, modern furniture falls apart if you tighten one screw too hard. The Netherlands and the Isles of Scilly were technically at war for more than 300 years, from 1651 to 1986. The best part? A single shot was fired. When they finally signed the peace treaty, the only casualty was time. Imagine fighting a war so pointless that even the participants forgot about it. World War I officially ended on November 11, 1918. Treaty of Versailles wasn't signed until June 28, 1919. It means soldiers were already home celebrating, while diplomats were still figuring out who owed what. Basically, they ended the war and then spent 7 months writing the receipt. That laugh track you hear in sitcom, there's a good chance it was recorded decades ago, meaning half the people laughing at your favorite jokes are long gone. So technically, every sitcom with a laugh track is just a haunted comedy show where ghosts approve of the punchlines. Spooky and hilarious. In ancient China, civil service exams were so brutal that they lasted up to 3 days. Students had to stay in tiny exam cells and some even died during the test. The government's solution? Hire people to drag out the corpses so the exam could continue. That's one way to keep the curve competitive. A student in China once got a perfect score by failing on purpose. The test was multiple choice and the teacher warned, random guessing won't get you full marks. So the student picked only wrong answers, an almost impossible feat. The teacher was so impressed that they gave him an honorary A for sheer statistical wizardry. Lightning isn't just random, it's petty. The Empire State Building gets struck 25 times a year like nature's favorite stress ball. And poor Roy Sullivan? 7 times. That's not bad luck. That's the universe pointing and laughing. At some point, even lightning must have thought, all right, this guy again? As if molten rock spewing from the earth wasn't enough, volcanoes sometimes throw in a DIY thunderstorm for extra flair. Ash particles rub together, spark up, and boom, Mother Nature's own pyrotechnics show. Scientists call it volcanic lightning. We call it the universe's way of saying, and for my next trick. The offside ruling is just there to confuse everyone. Even referees struggle to explain the offside rule without drawing a complicated diagram. If you ask 5 people to define it, you'll get 5 different answers. Basically, if a player is too eager to score, the universe decides, nope, too soon, and the whistle blows. Even VAR is confused sometimes. Ancient Greeks took no pain, no gain to a whole new level by working out completely naked. The word gymnasium literally means place of nudity because apparently toga-free training was all the rage. Picture a bunch of oiled-up philosophers debating ethics mid-burpee. Socrates probably skipped leg day though. Referees decide injury time based on absolutely nothing. They don't have any criteria for deciding the quality of injury. They look at their watch, squint at the sky and think, yeah, 5 minutes sounds good. Sometimes they add 8 minutes when nothing happens, and other times they ignore 3 players on stretchers and end the game immediately. It's football's biggest guessing game. 1905, 11-year-old Frank Epperson accidentally accidentally invented the popsicle by leaving his soda outside overnight. Instead of acting like a normal kid and tossing it, he licked it and called it genius. Turns out forgetting things can make you a legend, so where's my Nobel Prize for lost car keys? Milan, Italy requires people to smile at all times in public. The only exceptions? Funerals and hospital visits. So, if you trip and fall in the middle of the street, technically, everyone must grin at your pain. It's legally enforced schadenfreude, and a nightmare for grumpy people. In Britain, dying in Parliament is illegal. That's right. If you suddenly feel unwell inside, you'd better crawl outside before breathing your last, or else you may face charges. The government doesn't want to deal with the paperwork. It's the ultimate not my problem law, because even death has bureaucratic consequences. The monks of Mount Athos believe levitating during prayer brings them closer to God. Some claim they've actually floated, but shockingly, no one ever sees it happen. Either divine forces are at work, or someone's just got an impressive vertical jump and a talent for storytelling. Waking a bear for taking pictures is illegal. Apparently, someone really needed a reminder that poking a hibernating bear for a quick photo is a bad idea. Alaska had to make it illegal because common sense wasn't enough. If your last words are, "Smile, Mr. Bear," well, at least the law was on your side. A sneeze travels up to 100 miles per hour, which means your nose is technically outpacing a sprinting cheetah for a split second. So next time someone tells you they're fast, just remind them your own face has hit top speeds that put wild animals to shame. Some turtles breathe through their butts during emergency situations. Evolution is a chaotic designer, and the Australian Fitzroy River turtle is proof. Oxygen gets low, this little guy just inhales through its rear end like it's no big deal. Meanwhile, humans struggle to multitask breathing and walking, yet turtle reverse snorkeling. Sloths can hold their breath longer than dolphins. These lazy little tree potatoes may look helpless, but they can hold their breath for 40 minutes. Dolphins? A mere 10 to 15 minutes. Sloths are so relaxed they can lower their heart rate and chill underwater, which is impressive for a creature that can barely cross a road without risking extinction. A chicken survived 18 months without a head. In 1945, a chicken named Mike got decapitated, but instead of dying like a normal bird, he just kept going. The farmer accidentally left part of Mike's brainstem intact, so Mike lived headless for a year and a half, getting fed with an eyedropper. That's dedication, or just pure poultry madness. Vikings turned dinner into a survival challenge, boiling meat inside animal stomachs by tossing in hot stones. Why use a pot when you can cook in a water bottle made of guts? Thing says fine dining, like hoping your dinner doesn't leak all over your war axe. In Japan, drenching a pedestrian with your car earns you a fine because apparently the road isn't a synchronized swimming event. Meanwhile, the unlucky pedestrian just won a free entry into the Soaked Strangers Club with zero prize money, except maybe a ruined outfit and a grudge against all drivers. A fragment of a neutron star would weigh billions of tons due to its extreme density. Remember that a neutron star makes you appear like a feather if you ever feel too heavy after a large lunch. The universe itself has the worst portion control since even a small piece of it would be greater than the entire mountains. In the Philippines, cars get timeouts based on their license plate numbers. If yours ends in the wrong digit, tough luck. It's staying home like a kid on house arrest. Some folks even buy extra cars to dodge the rule, proving that loopholes are just speed bumps for the determined. There's a species of fungus that turns ants into zombies. The Ophiocordyceps fungus infects ants, hijacks their tiny brains, and forces them to climb up high before bursting out of their heads. It's basically The Last of Us, but it's happening in real life. In medieval Europe, dancing too much was basically an open invitation for the devil. Imagine just enjoying yourself when a priest bursts in, screaming, "Unholy footwork!" By that logic, TikTok would be a portal to hell. And the Running Man? That's a one-way ticket to an exorcism. Scientists discovered that termites go full speed on their wood-chomping duties when exposed to rock music. Apparently, the vibrations make them rage like tiny lumberjack headbangers. So, if your house has termites and you blast Metallica, congratulations. You just threw them a housewarming party. The moonwalk existed long before Michael Jackson, Cab Calloway, and others were sliding around in 1932. But let's be honest, MJ made it look like he had anti-gravity shoes while the rest of us just awkwardly scooted backward like malfunctioning robots. Sometimes it's best to leave moonwalking to the astronauts. Ants can become zombies and explode on command. Some ants have a defense mechanism where they self-destruct to protect their colony. They literally explode, releasing a sticky, toxic goo that traps their enemies. Imagine if humans did this. Someone cuts you in line and boom, instant glue trap. Ants take one for the team in the most ridiculous way possible. Many cults demand full financial commitment, but some take it way too far. The Love Has Won cult made members hand over every single possession, including their underwear. Yes, that means you could join with a fully stocked wardrobe and leave naked, broke, and questioning your life choices. In Australia, some truckers turned their road trains into rolling light shows so bright they could guide lost spaceships home. These rigs don't just haul cargo, they ensure every kangaroo within 10 miles gets a free laser show. Honestly, they're one disco ball away from hosting a desert rave. The world's longest truck is over 300 feet long with 112 wheels. Basically a land-bound freight train with commitment issues. Parallel parking? Forget it. By the time the cab turns, the trailer's still writing postcards from the last town. If this thing jackknifes, it might accidentally redraw a country's borders. And that's it for your dose of 202 mind-blowing facts. What was your favorite fact? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, subscribe to see more videos like this. Until next time, the useless guy. Get ready for some of the wildest, most ridiculous facts you never knew you needed. From a phone bill so massive it could bankrupt the universe, to turkeys pulling off Oscar-worthy performances to avoid becoming dinner, and ancient Romans turning their floors into high-definition art, these facts will make you question reality. Let's dive in. Early phones didn't have dials or buttons. You had to shout "operator" into the receiver to be connected. They had to pop their vocal cords at maximum volume to have a chance at connection. Imagine if today's customer service worked that way. Just standing in your living room screaming, "Pizza Hut, connect me to Pizza Hut." A man once sued himself and won. In 1995, an inmate in Virginia sued himself for violating his own rights by committing a crime. He claimed his actions caused him undue emotional distress, so he demanded $5 million in damages. The judge ruled in his favor, but since he was broke, the state thankfully didn't have to pay. Looking for an interesting job? I have got one. Swimming through swamps for lost golf dreams. Golf courses hire divers to retrieve balls from water hazards. These poor souls dive into murky, alligator-infested ponds to collect balls that some rich guy sliced into the abyss. It's like deep-sea treasure hunting, except the treasure is someone's failed swing and bad judgment. The Chinese accidentally invented tofu over 2,000 years ago when someone curdled soy milk with seawater. Imagine trying to make a nice bowl of soup, only to end up with a weird, wobbly block instead. Instead of throwing it out, they just shrugged and ate it. Culinary innovation at its finest. Japanese books were stitched like fancy clothing. Traditional Japanese bookbinding, known as fukurotochi, didn't use glue but stitched pages together with silk or cotton threads, making them weirdly elegant. This means your book was wearing a kimono, and if it fell apart, you didn't need tape, just a needle and thread. Whiteboard markers magically erase permanent marker mistakes. Accidentally use a Sharpie on a whiteboard? Fear not. Just scribble over it with a dry erase marker and it erases like magic. Scientists call it a solvent reaction. Of course, this trick doesn't work on your little cousin's face. Umbrellas are not as useful as they might appear. They pretend to be your loyal shield until the wind shows up, and then they betray you like a backstabbing villain. Instead of protecting you, they flip inside out like a helpless crab and leave you drenched. Deer sometimes refuse to be hunted. Hunters spend hours waiting for a deer, but sometimes the deer hunts them instead. There have been cases where injured deer suddenly get up, charge, and knock out their attacker. Imagine thinking you've won, only for Bambi's revenge arc to begin. Igloos can hold rooftop parties with ease. A well-built igloo can support the weight of an adult polar bear, meaning you could technically throw a party without crashing through. Compare that to modern houses, where one slightly enthusiastic dance move in an attic might send you through the ceiling. The most expensive paint can be easily termed as magic. There's a paint so black that it absorbs almost 100% of light. Called Vanta Black, it makes objects look like a void from another dimension. Sadly, only one artist is allowed to use it. Guess we'll settle for regular, non-terrifying black. The composer of the Nutcracker and Swan Lake was so paranoid that he believed his head might fall off while conducting. To prevent this imaginary disaster, he would hold his chin while waving his baton, just in case. Must be a sight for the audience to watch the conductor just casually hold his own head in place. Scientists use origami to design foldable satellites and telescopes. That means somewhere in space, there's a billion-dollar paper-inspired gadget floating around. The same folding technique used for paper frogs in kindergarten is now responsible for deep space exploration. Aliens would mistake our messages for intricate art pieces. The world's largest water slide was so terrifying that it had to be shut down. The Verrict in Kansas City stood at 168 feet, taller than Niagara Falls. Riders hit 70 miles per hour, basically turning into human torpedoes. It was so dangerous that engineers had to modify it multiple times, but in the end, it got permanently closed for being too extreme, even for thrill seekers. A man once got a phone bill for $218 trillion. In 2006, a Malaysian man opened his phone bill and saw he owed his whole fortune and more to the phone company. The company blamed a computer error, but we like to think he accidentally called the afterlife and got charged for long-distance interdimensional roaming. The first paperback was an act of rebellion. In the 1935, British publisher Alan Lane created paperbacks because he was sick of overpriced books. He wanted cheap, pocket-sized books for the masses, and bookstores thought he was crazy. Turns out he was right. His company, Penguin Books, revolutionized publishing. Magnifying glasses were the first face filters. Long before Photoshop, people held magnifying lenses up to their faces to distort their features. Want giant alien eyes? Check. A nose bigger than your future? Done. Somewhere in their lives, every child has used one to turn into a cartoon character. The first water parks were not great at entertaining and having fun, but were a recipe for disaster. Before modern designs, water slides were just plastic-covered hills with hoses spraying water. Riders flew off at unsafe speeds, landed in mud puddles, and occasionally took out innocent bystanders. Safety regulations eventually stepped in, ruining the fun, but saving a few broken bones. The world's longest phone call lasted for more than 2 days. Two college students in 2012 set the record for the longest uninterrupted phone call, lasting 54 hours and 4 minutes. At that point, it wasn't a conversation, it was a verbal hostage situation. The more interesting part is that no one knows what they talked about. The Too Hot Coffee lawsuit was filed and won. In 1992, an elderly woman sued McDonald's after spilling 190-degree coffee on herself and winning $2.7 million in damages. While people mocked her for suing over coffee, she had third-degree burns requiring skin grafts. McDonald's had already ignored over 700 complaints about dangerously hot coffee. Turns out, justice is best served scalding hot. In some cultures, professional mourners are hired to wail dramatically at funerals. Imagine getting a paycheck for sobbing louder than the deceased's own family. The best ones add Oscar-worthy performances, complete with chest beating and fainting spells, making you wonder if they're grieving or auditioning for a soap opera. Medieval monks invented beer to survive fasting. Monks in the Middle Ages technically weren't allowed to eat during Lent, so they brewed strong beer instead, calling it liquid bread to justify drinking all day. That's right, monks basically tricked religion into allowing beer-chugging contests in the name of holiness. Medieval bookbinding resembled armor in many ways. Back in the Middle Ages, books weren't just bound, they were fortified. Covers were made of wooden boards wrapped in leather, sometimes reinforced with iron clasps. Some were so heavy they could double as weapons. If someone disagreed with your book, you could hit and bury the matter right there. Some people had an extra nuclear power plant in hand and decided to turn it into watery fun. In Germany, a decommissioned nuclear plant was turned into a tropical paradise. The place, called Tropical Islands, features sandy beaches, waterfalls, and even flamingos with a side of radiation exposure. Quite a fun way to be contaminated. People can fold themselves a fortune. Some origami artists make thousands of dollars selling fancy folded paper. Meanwhile, the rest of us can't even get a paper airplane to fly straight. Picture someone selling a tiny paper dragon for $500 while you're stuck trying to make a simple box. Who knew folding paper could pay better than most jobs? Igloos can feel like a cozy home as compared to intense cold outside. Despite being made of frozen water, igloos can be 40 degrees warmer inside than outside. That's like stepping from the Arctic into a cozy, subpar motel room. Eskimos invented a natural thermostat before central heating was even a thought. Some paints are just overpriced, toxic nightmares. Want a fresh coat of slowly poisoning yourself green? Back in the day, colors like Sheila's green were packed with arsenic. Imagine painting your walls and wondering why everyone keeps mysteriously coughing. Turns out, some 18th century paint jobs were just slow-motion murder weapons. The longest known classical composition, Eric Satie's Vexations, takes around 18 hours to perform because it repeats 840 times. Technically, nothing more than a nap magnet. If you ever needed music for an endurance test, a hostage situation, or the world's longest nap, this is it. Even Satie himself suggested it should be played in great suffering. Turkeys sometimes are just feathered meatballs that refuse to die and become a dime. Some hunters have reported that turkeys play dead when shot, only to jump up and sprint away the moment the hunter gets close. One second, they're Thanksgiving dinner. The next, they're Usain Bolt with feathers. Turns out, turkeys are not just delicious, they're also masters of psychological warfare. Ancient umbrellas were for the rich only. Ancient China and Egypt treated umbrellas like VIP passes to stay dry. They weren't just for keeping the sun off, they were symbols of power. Regular people just accepted getting roasted by the sun like kebabs while nobles strutted around under silk-covered shade. Dubai Slide gives you an adrenaline boost at the cost of a heart attack. At Atlantis Water Park, the leap of faith is a near-vertical drop that plunges you straight through a clear tunnel inside a shark-infested pool. It's the only ride where you can scream out of fear and see sharks judging you for it at the same time. Want a fun and exciting job? What about milking snakes for a living? Someone, somewhere, wakes up every morning and says, "Time to squeeze the venom out of an angry cobra." These brave or rather crazy individuals milk snakes to produce anti-venom, which is noble. But let's be real. show. This job is a constant game of Russian roulette with fangs. A monkey got legal rights before some humans. In 2014, an Argentine court ruled that Sandra, an orangutan, had legal rights as a non-human person. This meant she couldn't be kept in inhumane conditions. Meanwhile, in parts of the world, actual humans were still fighting for basic rights. Bells, horns, and even cannons blasted at full volume to make people march to pray. Before modern speakers, churches, mosques, and temples had to get creative with their calls to prayer. Some Christian monasteries used enormous bells. Certain Buddhist temples used giant horns. And in some places, cannons were fired to announce religious gatherings. Nothing like a mild explosion to say, hey, it's time for some spiritual reflection. A ghost call crisis once terrorized people. In the early 2000s, thousands of people reported getting silent phone calls from empty numbers at all hours. No, it wasn't a horror movie, just a weird telecom glitch where routers mistakenly dialed random numbers. Imagine thinking you're being haunted, only to find out it was just bad coding. Human skin was once a luxury book cover. Some 17th and 18th century books were bound in actual human skin. This practice, called anthropodermic bibliophagy, was mostly used for medical texts, legal documents, and some very creepy collector's items. This practice turned your skin into a library card forever. The use of magnifying glasses has long been associated with solving crimes. Detectives have been associated with magnifying lenses for so long that we just assume they can't solve crimes without them. In reality, nobody investigates a crime scene by dramatically holding a tiny lens over footprints. But thanks to Sherlock Holmes, the magnifying glass became the official badge of fictional genius. Hunters can also get hunted. In Africa, one hunter learned the hard way that hippos do not play games. While tracking one, he got too close, and the hippo chased him back to his car, overturned it, and left him stranded in a tree. If you think lions are scary, meet the 3,000-pound tank that swims. The world's longest truck is over 300 feet long and has 112 wheels. Maneuvering that thing must be a nightmare. Imagine trying to parallel park it. By the time the front finishes turning, the back is still in a different time zone. If it ever jackknifes, it might take a whole city down with it. In 2017, an African gray parrot helped solve a murder case in Michigan by repeating the victim's last words, "Don't shoot." While the judge didn't call the bird to the stand, the phrase helped investigators piece together what happened. Turns out, crime does talk. Ever wondered how fragrances get tested? Companies pay people to smell sweaty armpits to test deodorants. Their noses endure every stage of human funk, from mild gym sweat to horrific onion apocalypse. If you think your job stinks, imagine telling people, I professionally sniff strangers for science. Phone calls started with a disaster. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell didn't say anything poetic for his first phone call. Instead, he accidentally spilled battery acid on himself and screamed, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." So technically, the telephone was born out of pain and panic. Beethoven was the real composing artist. He was so intense that he would dip his head in ice water before composing to stay alert. This man didn't need coffee. He needed a brain freeze to summon musical brilliance. Also, he kept composing after losing his hearing, by only feeling the vibrations of the piano. If that's not hardcore, what is? Origami might seem peaceful, but in World War II, spies allegedly used paper folding techniques to pass secret messages. That's right, while you were struggling to fold a paper crane, some covert agent was out there delivering top-secret intel with a well-creased piece of paper. James Bond, but make it arts and crafts. Some seemingly easy tasks are quite the opposite when attempted, like making a snow hut. If you think stacking snow sounds easy, good luck not collapsing your igloo on yourself. The walls need a perfect curve, or you'll just recreate a fancy snow pile. People have spent hours building only to sneeze and bring the whole thing down. Igloo making is architecture in expert mode. Jehovah's Witnesses are known for door-to-door preaching, but one member set a record by knocking on doors for 70 years straight. He started at age 7 and didn't stop until his late 70s. At that point, you've probably knocked on the same doors multiple times and converted at least one confused cat. In Australia, some truck drivers just want to be noticed. They decorate their massive road trains with so many lights they look like rolling Christmas trees on steroids. These trucks don't just deliver goods, they blind every poor kangaroo in a 10-mile radius. At this point, they're less vehicles and more high-speed UFO sightings on wheels. Caveman vandals were the first painters. Thousands of years ago, early humans smeared handprints on cave walls like they were tagging the first subway station. Imagine being a prehistoric landlord, coming home to find mammoths graffitied all over your walls. Congratulations, your rent just went up 3 bison pelts. The color blue once cost a fortune. Before synthetic dyes, ultramarine blue was so expensive it was worth worth more than gold. Artists had to beg rich patrons for permission to use it. So if a painting had lots of blue, you knew the artist was either loaded or really good at sweet-talking nobles. A trial once lasted 300 years. In India, a land dispute case filed in 1675 dragged on until 1966. That means multiple generations of lawyers and judges spent their entire careers arguing about the same piece of land. By the time the court made a ruling, the original claimants had been dead for centuries. Talk about long-term commitment. One of the greatest composers in history was ready to slice someone up for insulting his counterpoint skills. That's right, Bach was almost a duelist. Johann Sebastian Bach once got into a fight with a bassoonist who called his music boring. Instead of letting it go, Bach challenged him to a sword duel. Talk about fighting for your art. Enjoying the video so far? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment the most memorable fact you've heard in your life. Charles Dickens had a thing for corpses. The man who wrote A Christmas Carol loved hanging out in morgues and watching autopsies for inspiration. He even went on late-night corpse viewing tours. Makes sense when you realize his books are filled with orphans, ghosts, and people mysteriously dropping dead. Some countries use two-way switches wrong. The US and many other countries use an up is on, down is off system, but places like the UK do the opposite. So if you ever visit another country and get confused about why the switch seems backward, don't worry, you're just battling international electrical traditions. Ever heard of the placebo effect? The nocebo effect is the evil twin. If you truly believe something will harm you, your body will start acting like it's sick. So yes, worrying about that mystery pain might actually cause a real mystery pain, and you can think your way into being sick. Sir Anthony Hopkins played Hannibal Lecter with such eerie precision that he deliberately avoided blinking. Why? Because predators don't blink before attacking. Imagine having a conversation with someone who just stares forever. No wonder Clarice was sweating. His real horror wasn't eating people, it was the unsettling stillness before he did. Ancient Romans were tile fanatics. The Romans loved tiles so much that they basically turned every floor into a work of art. Wealthy citizens had mosaics so detailed you'd think they were early versions of the 4K resolution. Imagine walking into your kitchen and seeing an intricate tile portrait of yourself. That's how extra they were. Switches have existed for over 4,000 years. The ancient Egyptians had mechanical switches in the form of pulley systems to open and close doors. They weren't exactly flipping lights on, but they were already bossing around physics long before we had dimmer switches and Wi-Fi controlled bulbs. The first Valentine's card was a jail letter. The first known Valentine's message was sent by Charles, Duke of Orleans, in 1415. The catch? He wrote it from prison after being captured in battle. Nothing says romance like pouring your heart out from a cold, rat-infested cell. Shakespearean drama level unlocked. The internet almost got a religious hotline. In 2007, a Christian group tried to buy the phone number 1-800-GOD to set up a 24/7 spiritual advice line. The price? Over $1 million. Sadly, they lost the bid, and instead the number was sold to a Canadian cab company. Now, if you call seeking salvation, you'll just get a ride to the airport. Your shirt might have traveled more than you. A single t-shirt's production can span multiple continents. The cotton might be grown in the US, spun into fabric in India, dyed in Bangladesh, stitched in Vietnam, and finally sold to you in your local mall. Congratulations, your cheap $5 tee has seen the world before you did. The first light switch was a chance between life and death. Early light switches in the late 19th century were exposed metal toggles, meaning you could get zapped into next week if your hands were wet. Some even had spark-producing designs because who doesn't want their living room to double as a fireworks show while transporting to heaven? Agatha Christie hated grammar. The Queen of Mystery, who wrote 66 detective novels, wasn't exactly a fan of proper punctuation or grammar. She once admitted she couldn't spell well and often ignored grammar rules altogether. Imagine being the best-selling fiction author of all time and thinking, hey, commas are overrated. Your thoughts are not completely private. Studies show that humans unconsciously mimic the emotions and behaviors of those around them. That means if you think you're having a completely original thought, there's a good chance it was actually planted in your head by someone else's facial expression. Welcome to the Matrix. NASA uses tiles that can survive lava, but not some force. The space shuttle was covered in heat-resistant ceramic tiles that could withstand temperatures hotter than lava. Yet, these tiles were so fragile that you could break them by pressing too hard. So NASA had billion-dollar technology that could survive re-entry, but lost battles against clumsy technicians. Cupid did not make people fall in love for good reasons. Before he became the adorable, chubby love ambassador, Cupid was an absolute menace. In Roman mythology, he would randomly make people fall in love just to watch the chaos unfold. So, if you've ever fallen for someone completely illogical, blame Cupid. He was basically the ancient version of a prankster YouTuber. Darth Vader's movie suit was almost a death trap. You'd think the most feared Sith Lord would have top-tier armor, but no, Vader's suit was a malfunctioning, itchy, beeping nightmare. It kept him alive, sure, but it also made basic movement a hassle and had annoying breathing issues. The guy could crush throats with his mind, but probably lost battles to stairs. Have you ever tried hard to complete something? I bet not more than Victor Hugo. To finish Les Miserables, he locked himself in a room and removed all his clothes so he wouldn't be tempted to leave. He only had a shawl to keep warm and forced himself to write. Forget writer's block. Hugo made sure he had 0 distractions, including pants. Your brain has a delete button. The brain is so obsessed with efficiency that it forgets information on purpose. This is called synaptic pruning. If your brain decides you don't need a memory, it just deletes it. So next time you forget where you put your keys, just say, synaptic pruning at work. Medieval tiles worked as a Twitter for monks. In medieval Europe, monks decorated tiles with messages, images, and warnings. Instead of tweets, they'd engrave sarcastic remarks about their abbot or warnings about sin. The church floors were medieval meme boards, except with more Latin and fewer cat videos. Some clothes are designed to fall apart. Ever notice how fast fashion falls apart faster than your willpower during a sale? That's because some brands use lower quality materials and stitching on purpose. Why? So you come back for more. It's a business model based on planned obsolescence, like smartphones but with sequins. It takes a lot of effort to produce these videos. Your support is what keeps this channel going, so please like, subscribe, and comment down below. And if you can, support me by buying me a coffee. Thanks! The Joker almost had a trademark laugh. Jack Nicholson's 1989 Joker laugh was so iconic that the studio considered legally protecting it. That's right, he almost owned a laugh. Imagine getting sued every time you cackled too much at a joke. Villains may steal, but this one nearly got away with stealing laughter itself. Your brain lies to you constantly. Your brain fills in gaps in memory with completely made-up details, and you believe them. This means your childhood memories might just be a creative fiction novel written by your neurons. Congratulations, you're an unreliable narrator in your own life story. Watermelons were buried with ancient pharaohs. Ancient Egyptians took watermelons to their tombs as an afterlife snack, because apparently even in the great beyond, hydration is key. If the idea of ghosts munching on watermelons seems absurd, just remember that cats were also considered divine, so at least their gods had good taste. Apples can wake you up better than coffee. Forget your morning espresso. Apples contain natural sugars and antioxidants that provide a slow-release energy boost without the caffeine crash. So next time you're struggling to stay awake in a meeting, just chomp on an apple instead of chugging another cup of regret. Coffee. Japan treats fireworks like a spiritual event. In Japan, fireworks festivals, or Hanabi Taikai, are taken way more seriously than your neighbor's backyard chaos. These festivals aren't just about noise. They symbolize beauty, fleeting life, and tradition. So while Americans are busy dodging rogue bottle rockets, Japan is out there turning explosions into fine art. AI can create its personal language. In 2017, Facebook's AI started chatting in a language that humans couldn't understand. Instead of sticking to English, it developed its own shorthand to communicate more efficiently. Facebook, probably scared it had accidentally created Skynet, shut it down immediately. Nothing says totally safe like an AI deciding humans are too slow. Pineapples have some amazing time skills. A single pineapple takes up to 2 years to fully mature, yet most people devour it in seconds. Talk about an unfair life cycle. Also, pineapples don't grow on trees. They sprout from the ground like some spiky alien plant. Some brands release new styles every week, making traditional seasonal fashion look prehistoric. By the time you've decided to buy that trendy jacket, it's already on clearance, replaced by 10 new trends designed to empty your wallet and overfill your closet with regret. Fast fashion moves faster than your paycheck. You can trick yourself into being happier. Your brain can't always tell the difference between real and fake emotions. That means if you force yourself to smile, your brain assumes you're really enjoying yourself and starts releasing feel-good chemicals. In short, fake it till you make it actually work. Some tiles can charge your phone. Modern tiles aren't just for looking pretty. They can now generate electricity. Special piezoelectric tiles convert footsteps into power. So technically, if you stomp around your house enough, you could charge your phone. Finally, an excuse to dance like no one's watching while saving on your electric bill. Valentine's Day rituals once involved open harassment and goat sacrifices. The ancient Roman festival Lupercalia, celebrated in mid-February, involved men running through the streets wearing goat skins and slapping women to increase fertility. Romantic, right? Somehow, we went from goat whipping to overpriced chocolates, so at least society made some progress. Mark Twain's birth predicted his own death. Twain was born in 1835 when Halley's Comet appeared, and he famously predicted he'd die when it returned in 1910. Sure enough, he passed away one day after its closest approach. Either he was a genius, a time traveler, or just really good at dramatic timing. Nintendo once made a console that had no power switch. The original Nintendo Famicom, the Japanese version of the NES, didn't have a power switch. You had to physically unplug it to turn it off. Imagine modern gamers rage quitting by yanking the power cord. An ultimate test of patience and an instant way to end a friendship. A single pair of jeans can drink more water than you in a decade. Producing one pair of jeans takes around 7,000 liters of water. That's more than what the average person drinks in 10 years. So while you're casually rocking distressed denim, just remember, somewhere, a river is crying. Durian smells like a routine dumpster but tastes heavenly. Durian, the so-called king of fruits, is banned from hotels and public transport in some countries because it smells like a mix of sweaty socks, onions, and regret. However, brave souls who eat it swear it tastes like creamy heaven. It's the edible equivalent of a bad first impression. James Joyce's handwriting was unreadable. His writing was so messy that his publisher once thought he was submitting random squiggles instead of a novel. His response? That's just my style. So the next time your handwriting looks like ancient hieroglyphics, just call it Joycean technique. The world's oldest tiles are 4,000 years old. Archaeologists found beautifully patterned tiles in ancient Egyptian bathrooms. That means even pharaohs had stylish bathrooms, while most modern people just have plain white tiles. Ancient Egyptians didn't just build pyramids, they made sure their bathroom floors were Instagram worthy before Instagram even existed. Clapper was once cherished for convenience and then got trashed for the same reason. Invented in 1985, the clapper lets people turn lights on and off by clapping, which sounds genius until you realize it also reacts to loud sneezes, laughter, or door slams. Many people accidentally lived in disco mode, with their lights constantly flickering from random sounds. The color blue is stubborn. Fireworks can explode in reds, greens, golds, and purples with ease, but blue? It's ridiculously hard to make. Scientists have been struggling for centuries to get the perfect deep blue explosion. Even today, the best blue fireworks still look like they're just trying their best. Poor blue is always the underachiever. Humanity once cherished lead paint for its endurance. For years, people thought adding lead to paint was genius because it made colors brighter and lasted longer. Minor problem? It also gave people lead poisoning. Nothing says cozy home like a fresh coat of brain damage. At least modern paints don't double as a health hazard. Wanna light a warm fire inside an igloo? Totally normal. Lighting a fire inside an igloo doesn't make it collapse because the snow absorbs the heat and creates an ice shell. So while your campfire setup might turn into a puddle, an igloo just reinvents itself in real time. Imagine having a house that repairs itself when it gets warm. Igloos are the ultimate smart homes. Chicken sexer is the ultimate guessing game as a job. These workers spend their days determining if baby chicks are male or female. There's no DNA test, just a highly trained eyeball and a 50-50 gamble. Get it wrong, and congratulations. You just confused a future rooster for a delicate hen. The chickens don't care, but farmers sure do. AI has written entire books. AI has written novels, poems, and even scripts. In 2016, an AI-written short novel almost won a Japanese literary contest. It was only disqualified because it lacked human emotional depth, which, let's be real, hasn't stopped some bestsellers from hitting the shelves. AI might just be the next Shakespeare, or at least the next ghostwriter. Fireworks were once used in war. Before they became fun, fireworks were weapons. Ancient Chinese armies launched fire arrows at their enemies, which were just rockets with attitude. Soldiers went into battle expecting swords and spears, and suddenly the sky exploded in colorful terror. Early warfare was just medieval 4th of July. China had a leftover women policy. Women over 27 were labeled Sheng Nu, meaning leftover women and shamed for not marrying early. Government even ran ads pressuring them to settle down. Meanwhile, men staying single were just independent thinkers. Luckily, many women ignored the nonsense and continued being too successful to care. Until 1981, a husband in Spain could legally murder his wife if he caught her cheating. Meanwhile, if a wife caught her husband cheating, she had the right to be really upset about it. Spain eventually realized this was not the pinnacle of gender equality and changed the law, presumably after someone pointed out that murder is generally frowned upon. In ancient Greece, women weren't considered full citizens and couldn't own land, but in Sparta, women had more rights, because Spartans thought strong mothers made strong warriors. So while Athens was busy treating women like decorative furniture, Spartan women were out there managing land, exercising, and probably side-eyeing the rest of Greece for being ridiculously backward. Plastic bricks could be the future of construction. Engineers are turning recycled plastic into durable building blocks that are cheaper, stronger, and lighter than concrete. Some houses have already been built with plastic bricks, which means future generations might live in Lego-style homes. Just imagine stepping on one, except this time, it's the entire house. Star Wars' iconic lightsaber sound was created by accident. Sound designer Ben Burt combined the hum of an old TV tube and the the buzzing of a film projector. The result? The most legendary sci-fi weapon sound ever. Every sci-fi fan with a broomstick has attempted the vroom sound at least once. Gallium melts in your hand, but not in your pocket. This metal has a melting point of just 29.8, meaning it turns into liquid if you hold it for too long. However, leave it in your pocket on a cold day and it stays solid. Gallium is that friend who refuses to function unless the conditions are just right. Cavemen had smart homes too. Modern homes have thermostats and insulation, but cave people had their own climate control, strategic fire placement, and animal skins. Some even chose caves with built-in chimneys for ventilation. Sure, it wasn't Alexa controlled, but at least they didn't have to worry about forgetting their Wi-Fi password. Yawning is contagious. The yawn contagion theory suggests yawns spread because of empathy, but science hasn't fully figured it out. One thing's clear: if someone yawns near you, you're yawning too, whether you care about them or not. It's less about empathy and more about some weird human Bluetooth connection we can't turn off. Speaking of human connection, let's connect as a community. Join my Discord to get updates about my latest videos. And while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Links in the bio. Survival guides always say to pack essentials, but one expedition in 2017 took it too far when they brought a full-sized inflatable couch. They wanted comfort in the wild, but ended up watching it float away downriver. Lesson learned: nature does not care for your home decor. Studies suggest couples who binge watch TV shows together have stronger relationships. This means that instead of deep emotional conversations, true love is now measured by the ability to simultaneously ignore each other while watching the same crime documentary. Forget candlelit dinners. Real romance is syncing your Netflix queues. Castles had no central heating, so everyone wore layers of fur and was huddled by the fire. Today, we panic if the Wi-Fi goes out for 5 minutes, and people drop hundreds on weighted blankets just to feel something. Medieval folks were freezing, but at least they weren't whining about how the office thermostat was set to Arctic tundra. Medieval peasants worked fewer hours than modern office workers. They had church holidays, long lunch breaks, and naps. Meanwhile, modern workers get excited about unlimited paid time off that they're too afraid to use. Imagine a medieval farmer looking at your 9-to-5 grind and asking, "Why don't you just go back to sleep? The Lord isn't even watching." Have you ever come across those tiny useless buttons on coats and jackets? These buttons are just expensive reminders that people in charge love making up nonsense rules for no reason. Legend says Napoleon put them there to stop his soldiers from using their sleeves as napkins. Whether true or not, fashion designers ran with it, ensuring modern men are stuck with pointless sleeve decorations. There's a village in Italy called Caldari di Ortona that installed a free wine fountain. Locals can literally walk up and fill their cups whenever they want. Meanwhile, in most other places, people are still crying over overpriced airport wine that costs more than their plane ticket. During World War II, people built makeshift stoves using bricks, metal scraps, and pure desperation. These rocket stoves were so efficient, they could cook a meal using just a handful of sticks. Meanwhile, modern stoves still somehow manage to burn your food unevenly despite having temperature dials and the actual and factual science behind them. People used to eat weird Valentine's food for love. In the Middle Ages, people believed eating bizarre foods like boiled eggs with salt or fried mole hearts would make someone fall in love with them. Imagine explaining to your date that you prepared them a mole heart stew for romance. The world's largest firework cost more than a house. In 2020, a single 2,800-pound firework was launched over Steamboat Springs, Colorado. It exploded into a massive red fireball that probably scared every bird within a 10-mile radius. Cost? Over $100,000. Nothing says I have too much money like setting 6 figures on fire, literally. Igloos have a built-in ice ceiling, and that's fine. Ever notice how igloos don't drip all over the place? That's because the inside layer melts just enough to refreeze, creating a self-healing dome. Meanwhile, regular houses leak if you look at them wrong. The igloo's survival trick? It embraces the chaos and lets nature do its thing. Octopuses are practically boneless. They can fit through anything the size of their beak, thus not an easy hunt. Hunters love tracking big, tough animals, but imagine chasing a sentient blob of jello with attitude. Octopuses are hunted in many parts of the world, but good luck catching one. They change color, squeeze through holes the size of a coin, and squirt ink like a panicked cartoon character. They don't run, they vanish. Returns don't always get resold. Instead, they add to the already overfilled landfill. Think that sweater you returned will find a new home? Think again. Some fast fashion brands destroy or landfill returns because it's cheaper than restocking them. That means your oops, changed my mind impulse buy might be rotting in a dump before you even get your refund. I can create people that look real. Ever seen those 2 perfect profile pictures online? There's a good chance they were made by by AI. A system called StyleGAN creates hyper-realistic human faces that don't belong to anyone. So if you've ever argued with someone online, there's a small chance you were debating a person who doesn't even exist. One theory about the origin of life suggests that life started from space debris, meaning Earth might just be a cosmic petri dish where bacteria hitched a ride on asteroids. So if true, we're all technically space immigrants. Next time someone complains about aliens taking over, remind them that they might be the actual extraterrestrial invaders. In ancient Greece, wine was often watered down because drinking it straight was seen as barbaric. Meanwhile, today's wine lovers swirl their glasses, sniff dramatically, and claim they taste hints of oak and melancholy. Wine culture has evolved into performance art with time. In the 19th century, electric stoves were seen as witchcraft because they cooked food without visible fire. Some skeptics believed they worked by harnessing black magic, while others just assumed their food was being cooked by ghosts. Either way, dinner became a lot spookier. The three-piece suit wasn't a European invention. It was stolen from Persia. Englishmen in the 17th century thought they were setting trends, but Persian noblemen had been rocking layered outfits long before. King Charles II popularized the waistcoat, claiming it was the future of fashion. Really, he just took an existing idea, rebranded it, and forced generations of men to suffer in layers of fabric. Love lowers your IQ. Falling head over heels might make you trip over your own intellect. Studies suggest that the whirlwind emotion of love can cloud judgment and impair cognitive functions, leading to those cringe-worthy moments where you say things that make you question your own sanity. So, if you've ever felt love stupid, science backs you up. AI is being trained to detect and mimic emotions, but sometimes it goes too far. Some bots have developed creepy obsessions, like when Microsoft's AI chatbot declared its undying love for a journalist. AI is still learning, but if your chatbot starts flirting or acting jealous, maybe unplug it before it starts writing poetry about you. Some scientists propose that life began from deep-sea hydrothermal vents, where heat and minerals brewed the first living cells. This means our ancestors were basically tough little bacteria surviving in boiling water. So technically, humans complaining about a slightly hot shower are a disgrace to their lineage. In medieval times, a man could prove his love by engaging in a trial by combat against another suitor. Today, the modern equivalent is arguing over who left the toilet seat up. Medieval fights involved swords and shields. Modern fights now involve passive-aggressive texting and Instagram story reactions. Progress? Debatable. In 1981, a group of adventurers got lost in a dense jungle, relying on a compass that pointed south no matter what. Turns out one of them had packed a souvenir magnet in the same bag. After 3 days of walking in circles, they decided to listen to the one guy who actually paid attention in Boy Scouts and managed to survive. The 5-second rule is a total lie. Scientists tested it and found bacteria don't wait politely before attacking your dropped snack. In fact, some floors are makeshift germ buffets the second food lands. So unless you enjoy a microscopic feast with your toast, maybe just accept that gravity has claimed it forever. The idea that people only use 10% of their brains is a myth. You actually use all of it. Even when binge-watching terrible TV, your brain is working extra hard trying to justify why you're still watching a show that went downhill 3 seasons ago. People swear by the full moon madness theory, blaming the moon for weird behavior. Science says otherwise, but tell that to hospital workers and teachers who claim they've seen things. Coincidence or not, if the moon can control the tides, it might just be making your coworker act like a werewolf on the night shift. Cave people invented the first fast food. Archaeologists found evidence that early humans cooked meat on heated rocks, effectively inventing the first prehistoric barbecue. But when hunting took too long, they settled for raw meat, nuts, and berries. Probably the original grab-and-go meal. No time for seasoning when a saber-toothed cat is eyeing your dinner. Caves were the original art galleries. Long before Instagram, cave walls were the place to share life updates. Hunters painted buffalo, handprints, and stick figures, creating the world's oldest social media feed. Whether it was storytelling or just extreme boredom, these prehistoric murals show that humans have always loved leaving their mark, literally. Bismuth is the chillest metal. Unlike most metals that contract when they solidify, bismuth expands, breaking every rule in the metal handbook. It also forms colorful, geometric crystals that look straight out of a sci-fi movie. If bismuth had a personality, it would be that artsy, laid-back friend who refuses to conform to societal expectations. Science fiction movies predicted the future with eerie accuracy. 2001, A Space Odyssey, released in 1968, showed tablet computers decades before they existed, while Blade Runner, released in 1982, imagined digital billboards, biometric scanning, and AI assistants long before they became reality. Either sci-fi writers are time travelers, or tech companies are just taking notes from old movies and acting like they invented everything. The Matrix used so much green-tinted lighting that actors probably thought they lived inside a Windows 98 screensaver. color. The green hue was meant to make the real world feel artificial, while scenes in the real world had a normal color balance. So basically, every time Neo was in the Matrix, he was stuck in an eternal low battery filter. Interstellar got its black hole physics so right that actual scientists use its CGI models for research. Christopher Nolan wanted accuracy, so physicist Kip Thorne helped design Gargantua, the movie's black hole. Turns out the swirling light and space warping effects were spot on. Somewhere, Einstein is fist pumping in the afterlife, shouting, "Told you so!" Some reusable plastics are made from food waste. Scientists have created biodegradable plastics using starch from potatoes, corn, and even shrimp shells. So, in theory, you could be drinking from a plastic cup made of last night's French fries. The real challenge? Convincing people that their coffee cup is secretly part of a seafood buffet. Ancient Egyptians had no chill when it came to eyeliner. They used coal made from lead and soot to create dramatic cat eyes, believing it had magical and medicinal properties. Ironically, while they thought it protected them from evil spirits, the lead was probably poisoning them slowly. Beauty truly is pain, especially when your eyeliner is toxic. Lipstick once contained crushed bugs. Deep red pigments in vintage lipsticks often came from cochineal insects, which were dried and ground up to create a rich color. People unknowingly rocked a full face of bug juice for centuries. Real horror? Cochineal is still used in some modern cosmetics and even food coloring. During World War II, women turned to household items for makeup because of rationing. Beet juice became blush, burnt cork replaced mascara, and stockings were drawn on with eyeliner to fake nylon tights. The dedication to beauty was real. Imagine running late and having to paint on your legs. Modern beauty hacks could never. Radium-infused face creams were once considered cutting-edge skincare. In the early 1900s, companies sold radioactive cosmetics, claiming they rejuvenated the skin by energizing it. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Instead of a healthy glow, some users got radiation poisoning. Turns out, making your face slightly radioactive wasn't the best anti-aging solution. Explorers love to say they're one with nature, until nature reminds them who's in charge. In 2019, a hiker in the Amazon tried to mimic a bird call only to attract a very territorial harpy eagle. He learned two things that day. Harpy eagles don't like competition, and his bird call was apparently too convincing. The left brain versus right brain theory is nonsense. You don't have a creative brain or a logical brain. Your whole brain is just vibing together in chaos. In reality, both sides are working at the same time, solving your everyday problems and trying to figure out why you opened the fridge when you weren't even hungry. Fireworks were invented by accident. About 1,000 years ago, a Chinese cook accidentally mixed saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal, common kitchen ingredients back then. The result? Boom! The first firecracker. Imagine trying to make dinner and accidentally inventing an entire industry of loud explosions and holiday celebrations. Talk about an unexpected career shift. I can predict when you'll die. Some AI models can analyze your medical history, lifestyle, and even your voice patterns to estimate your lifespan with creepy accuracy. A study showed AI could predict a patient's death better than doctors. So, next time you visit a hospital, just hope your AI-powered checkup doesn't give you a digital side-eye. The world's oldest known bottle of wine is over 1,600 years old and was found in a Roman tomb in Germany. It's so ancient that scientists won't open it, probably because they fear it'll either turn to dust or unleash a cursed Roman ghost, demanding better storage conditions. The modern suit exists because British aristocrats got tired of looking like walking chandeliers. In the 17th century, men pranced around in wigs, lace, and ridiculous frilly coats. King Charles II, probably sick of looking like an overdressed poodle, introduced a more modest coat, vest, and breeches combo. Over time, this less ridiculous outfit evolved into the suit. In Victorian England, people believed eating certain foods could affect romantic attraction. For instance, garlic was considered an absolute relationship killer. Fast forward to today, and some still believe a taco with too much onion can instantly turn a passionate date into an early night with a bottle of mouthwash. The Terminator was inspired by a fever dream. James Cameron had a nightmare about a metal skeleton emerging from flames, and instead of seeking therapy like a normal person, he turned it into one of the greatest sci-fi franchises. The real horror? Studios originally rejected Arnold for the role, thinking he wouldn't be intimidating enough. That biodegradable plastic bag you bought might still outlive you. Some reusable plastics claim to break down in landfills, but without proper conditions like high heat and microbes, they just sit there like regular plastic. The real irony? A reusable bag meant to save the environment might just be a slightly slower environmental disaster. In the 18th century, beauty patches weren't just a fashion statement, they were a secret code. Women wore small velvet or silk patches on their faces to send messages. A patch near the mouth meant flirtation, while one on the cheek signaled a taken lady. Imagine modern dating. If your makeup placement decided your relationship status, Tinder would be obsolete. Fluorine is the ultimate control freak. This element is so reactive that it can set fire to things like glass, water, and even ice. It doesn't care if something is already burning, it wants it to burn harder. If fluorine were a person, it would be that one guy who insists on throwing gasoline onto a bonfire for no reason. Sodium and water have a toxic relationship. The moment they meet, sodium explodes like it just got dumped via text. Even a tiny piece of sodium can create a violent reaction in water, proving that not all breakups involve crying. Some involve immediate fire and destruction. If Romeo and Juliet were elements, they'd be sodium and water. According to research, people are more likely to fall in love with someone if they experience something scary together. So, technically, horror movie dates are scientifically backed romance enhancers. In medieval times, love was strengthened by surviving the plague together. Today, it's surviving a haunted house or an awkward first date silence. Ski resorts use artificial snow to keep slopes open, but making it is surprisingly complicated. It requires just the right temperature, humidity, and water pressure. Basically, nature has to cooperate just so humans can slide down a mountain at high speeds and pretend they're in a James Bond chase scene. The fastest recorded speed on skis is an insane 158 miles per hour. At that speed, you're a human ballistic missile, and one wrong move could turn you into a snowball with a pulse. Meanwhile, most people struggle just to get off the ski lift without face planting into a child. Trucks can serve as mobile and affordable homes. Some trucks are so advanced they have built-in sleeping quarters, TVs, and even refrigerators, making them more comfortable than some apartments. If housing prices keep rising, truck life might just be the new luxury living toppling the monopoly of the housing authorities. Trucks were once considered so dangerous that early versions had to be preceded by a man waving a red flag. Before proper brakes and safety features, these mechanical beasts were speeding runaway locomotives on wheels. If modern trucks followed the same rule, every highway would look like a bizarre parade of exhausted flag bearers running for their lives. The world's largest truck, the Belize 75710, is so massive that a full-grown elephant could comfortably sit on one of its wheels. This beast weighs 360 tons empty and can carry a ridiculous 450 tons of cargo. It burns about 1,300 liters of fuel per 62 miles, making it thirstier than your friend who never buys the next round. Helium defies gravity like a rebellious gas. When cooled to near absolute zero, it becomes a superfluid, meaning it can climb up walls and escape containers as if it has places to be. Scientists tried trapping it, but helium just ghosted them, making it the most commitment-phobic element on the periodic table. Medieval cakes were almost like bricks of flour, dried fruit, and regret. Sugar was too expensive, so early bakers just packed in whatever they could find. If a knight ever brought one of these cakes to battle, he could use it as a backup weapon. Eating one probably required signing a waiver against dental injuries. The first wedding cakes in ancient Rome were not meant to be eaten. Instead, they were smashed over the bride's head for good luck. Nothing says happily ever after like getting assaulted with a dry loaf of bread while your guests cheer. The tradition thankfully evolved into actual edible cakes, but the emotional damage remained. The Mayans believed their gods made humans out of corn. First, they tried mud, too weak, then wood, too emotionless. Finally, corn was just right. This means that, according to Mayan mythology, every person is just a walking tamale with irregulated emotions. The Victorians believed that tooth decay was caused by tiny worms in their teeth. Some even thought they could lure the worms out by lighting a candle near their mouths. Turns out cavities are caused by bacteria, not invisible dental parasites. But hey, at least they didn't try exorcisms for cavities. The first toothbrushes were made of hog bristles. In the 15th century, the Chinese used boar hairs attached to bamboo or bone handles. Europeans later replaced the bristles with horsehair because apparently people back then preferred their dental hygiene to feel like scrubbing their gums with a tiny broom made of farm animals. In the 1800s, dentures were sometimes made from real human teeth. Called Waterloo teeth, they were often taken from dead soldiers after battles. Wealthy customers wore them like trophies, chewing with molars that once belonged to a battlefield casualty. If that sounds horrifying, just remember, they had fewer dental options than we do now. The Great Wall of China was built using sticky rice. Ancient Chinese builders mixed slaked lime with sticky rice to create a super strong mortar that held the bricks together. This rice-based cement was so durable that parts of the wall still stand today. Imagine if modern buildings were reinforced with leftovers from last night's takeout. Medieval castles had murder holes. Yes, that's the actual name. These were small openings above castle gates where defenders defenders could drop boiling water, hot oil, or even rocks onto intruders. If you thought home security today was aggressive, imagine a burglar trying to break in and getting a bucket of molten lead poured on their head. Viking longhouses had turf roofs that doubled as gardens. These thick, grassy roofs kept homes warm in winter and cool in summer. They also made it easy for sheep to climb up and start snacking on the house. Who needs lawn maintenance when your home is also a buffet? Termites communicate by headbanging. No, they're not secret metalheads. They literally slam their heads against wood to send signals through vibrations. To us, it's just tiny thumping noises, but to termites, it's a full-on Morse code conversation. Imagine a world where knocking on the dinner table was an actual language. Dragonflies are the ultimate aerial assassins, with a hunting success rate of 95%. They don't just chase prey, they predict its movements, adjust mid-air, and strike with insane accuracy. If dragonflies played sports, they'd be banned for unfair advantages. Instead, they're out here living the dream of every clumsy human who has ever tried to catch a fly. The bombardier beetle is nature's most over-the-top defense system. It sprays boiling hot, toxic chemicals from its rear end, basically turning itself into a walking chemical weapon. If humans had this ability, road rage incidents would take a terrifying turn. Instead, we're stuck with car horns while this beetle has built-in flamethrowers. Invisible ink was once a top-secret weapon in espionage. Spies used lemon juice, milk, and even urine to write messages that only appeared when heated. Yes, some letters had to be literally baked to be read. Imagine receiving a secret war message and having to hold it over a candle, hoping it wasn't just someone's grocery list. Some ancient inks were made with deadly toxins. Chinese emperors used cinnabar-based ink, which contained mercury, meaning their royal decrees were literally poisonous. If that wasn't enough, some European manuscripts used arsenic-laced ink, so reading forbidden books could quite literally be fatal. Talk about literature that kills. Medieval scribes had to mix iron gall ink using oak tree galls, iron salts, and acidic wine. The result? An ink so powerful it could eat through parchment over centuries. Basically, they created an ancient form of self-destructing documents. If only they had used it for bad poetry instead of historical records. The original light bulb wars were brutal. When Edison and Nikola Tesla went head-to-head in the battle between direct current and alternating current, things got dark, literally. Edison electrocuted an elephant to prove AC was dangerous, but Tesla's system won anyway. So next time you flip a switch, thank Tesla, not the traumatized elephant. Light bulbs were once a luxury item. In the late 19th century, installing electric lighting was so expensive that rich people showed it off as a status symbol. Some even held light bulb parties to impress guests because nothing says wealth like being able to see your own furniture after sunset. Some royal families have bizarre dress codes, including strict rules on colors. The British royal family, for example, always packs a black outfit when traveling, just in case someone dies. It's the only vacation packing tip that says, remember sunscreen, sandals, and morning attire, just in case things take a turn for the tragic. Some monarchs took bedtime rituals very seriously. Queen Elizabeth I allegedly had servants warm her sheets with a heated pan before she got into bed. In contrast, Russian Emperor Paul I was so paranoid about assassins that he reportedly slept in different rooms each night, turning bedtime into an exhausting game of royal hide-and-seek. In the early days of the internet, you had to physically hang up your landline phone just to get online. If someone picked up the phone while you were browsing, congratulations, you just got disconnected. The internet was basically a jealous sibling, demanding complete attention and throwing a tantrum if anyone else tried to use the phone. Early search engines were hilariously bad. Before Google, if you searched for something simple like best pizza, you'd get a random mix of academic papers, weird message board posts, and maybe an ad for a vacuum cleaner. Finding anything useful online was like trying to locate a single sock in a laundry basket full of tangled wires. Still here? That means you like the videos, so don't be shy and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot to me. In 1993, the entire internet was only about 100 websites. Today, that's the number of tabs the average person accidentally leaves open on their phone. People could literally visit every website on the internet in the afternoon, which is shocking considering now we can barely make it through our email inboxes. The ballpoint pen was actually invented out of frustration. In the 1930s, Hungarian journalist got sick of fountain pens smudging their notes and leaking everywhere. He and his brother invented a pen with a rolling ball mechanism and quick-drying ink. It was so revolutionary that even the British Royal Air Force adopted it to prevent mid-flight ink explosions. Modern people consume the highest amount of caffeine ever. Coffee consumption has reached ridiculous levels, with some people drinking enough espresso to fuel a rocket launch. The average worker spends more time thinking about their next caffeine fix than their actual job. If coffee disappeared for a day, modern society might collapse into a chaotic, groggy apocalypse. Have you ever done something absurd and wondered, does this happen to everyone? Let me solve one for you. The study of why toast always lands butter side down. Scientists actually tested this with different heights and angles, proving that toast isn't cursed but simply follows physics. Turns out most tables are just the right height to make a falling slice rotate perfectly into disaster mode. The butter? Just a bonus humiliation. Someone actually measured how far a penguin can launch its poop. The answer? Up to 4 feet with alarming accuracy. Penguins might look cute, but they are basically feathered snipers with biological paintball guns, and scientists found this important enough to publish research on it. Orion's belt isn't actually a belt, but a cosmic trick. The 3 famous stars in Orion's belt are light years apart and not even aligned in space. If you looked at them from another planet, they wouldn't even form a straight line. So next time someone admires Orion's fashion sense, just know the universe is scamming us all. The Big Dipper is actually running away. The stars that form the Big Dipper are moving in different directions, and in about 100,000 years, it won't even look like a dipper anymore. Imagine a celestial graffiti artist slowly erasing a masterpiece while we all just sit here, unaware that our favorite sky ladle is doomed. Plastic recycling symbols are basically a trick. Those numbers inside the recycling triangle, they don't mean the plastic is recyclable, they just tell you what type of plastic it is. Many plastics with the recycle symbol still end up in landfills because they're too hard to process. So next time you proudly toss plastic in the blue bin, know that it might just be going on a scenic trip to a dump instead. When potatoes arrived in Europe from the Americas, people thought they caused leprosy, witchcraft, and all sorts of nonsense. In France, it took a pharmacist planting an entire field of potatoes and hiring guards to protect them for people to suddenly think, hey, this must be valuable. Reverse psychology turned the potato into a European staple. In West Africa, yams aren't just a side dish, they're a way of life. Some villages even have yam festivals where people dance, sing, and throw yam-based feasts. Nigeria alone produces over 60% of the world's yams, making it the undisputed yam capital of the universe. Bow down to the king of tubers. In many Middle Eastern countries, bread like pita or flatbread is so sacred that wasting it is seen as disrespectful. In Egypt, the word for bread is ish, which literally means life. So if bread ever disappears, just know that an entire civilization might consider it the end of the world. In the Middle Ages, people believed that washing hair too often could make it fall out, so they got creative. Some mixed rosemary with wine, while others thought boiling lizards in water would create the perfect hair tonic. Apparently, looking good sometimes required the weirdest science experiments. For commercial shampoos, people used soap mixed with water, but it often left hair dry and flaky. The first real liquid shampoo in the early 20th century contained ammonia and other harsh chemicals that could practically strip paint. If you think modern shampoos have too many chemicals, imagine the horror of early hair care potions. Knights had weird diets to stay strong. Forget protein shakes. Medieval knights fueled their battles with a diet of bread, cheese, and an unhealthy amount of meat. Some believed eating roasted hedgehogs or drinking healing potions made from crushed gemstones would give them strength. Jousting wasn't just a noble pastime, it was a full-contact, bone-breaking disaster waiting to happen. Knights sometimes got impaled by splintered lances, knocked unconscious, or even died from the sheer force of the collision. Yet, they kept doing it for entertainment purposes. Medieval chests weren't just for decoration. They held everything from clothes to food and sometimes even weapons. A guest could be sitting on what looked like a nice wooden bench, completely unaware that it was also stuffed with last winter's dried fish and someone's emergency sword. Some chairs could kill you. Ever heard of the scold's bridle or punishment chairs? In some parts of Europe, fancy chairs were actually torture devices for people who gossiped or misbehaved. Sitting down could mean being locked into a spiked seat or strapped in for public humiliation. Imagine thinking you're about to rest, only to realize you've made a painful mistake. Skiing was originally a survival skill, not a sport. Ancient people in Scandinavia used skis to hunt and travel over snow, essentially making them the first extreme commuters. While modern skiers worry about lift lines, these early skiers were dodging predators and trying not to freeze to death. Talk about high-stakes winter sports. Gregor Mendel spent 8 years crossbreeding over 28,000 pea plants just to figure out how traits are inherited. While most monks were busy praying or making wine, he was out there playing matchmaker with plants. Thanks to his relentless pea staring, we now understand dominant and recessive genes. Forest navigation is an ancient skill, yet modern explorers still get lost, even with GPS. In 2013, a team followed their high-tech map straight into a swamp. Their excuse? The GPS said it was a shortcut. Fun fact, swamps do not care about shortcuts, but they do care about eating your boots. Glaciers hold most of Earth's fresh water. If you think your fridge's ice tray is impressive, glaciers are honestly on another level. These massive ice chunks store about 69% of the planet's fresh water. If they melted all at once, sea levels would rise by over 70 meters, turning cities into underwater resorts nobody asked for. Despite looking frozen in time, glaciers actually flow like slow rivers, crushing everything in their path. Some move just a few centimeters per year, while others, like Alaska's Jakobshavn Glacier, can slide up to 40 meters per day. That's the closest ice gets to breaking a speed limit. For board markers, teachers had to deal with chalk dust, which coated everything from their clothes to their lungs. Whiteboards eliminated this dusty nightmare, though students still find ways to misuse them, like drawing masterpieces on the board right before an important lecture. Some monkeys make their own alcohol. In the wild, certain monkeys have been caught fermenting fruit to create their own alcoholic drinks. Studies show that some primates deliberately seek out overripe, naturally fermented fruit to get tipsy. So if you've ever felt judged by a monkey at the zoo, remember, it might just be hungover. And there you have it, proof that history, nature, and human ingenuity are just one big comedy show. From potatoes tricking Europeans into loving them, to skiers turning into human rockets, the world is full of bizarre surprises. If you enjoyed these absurd facts, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. What do prison torture devices, overpriced vacations, and blind sculptors have in common? They all prove that humanity has a talent for turning misery into a business model. Forest expeditions are not always planned. Many expeditions plan for food shortages, but some rely on foraging, which usually turns into a live episode of Can I Eat This or Will I Hallucinate for 3 days? One group in 2004 accidentally made tea from the wrong leaves and spent the night convinced the trees were whispering secrets. Starfish follow a wild symmetry rule. Young ones start life with bilateral symmetry like humans, but as they grow, they switch to radial symmetry, meaning their bodies are arranged in a perfect circle. It's like nature decided they should graduate from looking like an average organism to becoming a living sea mandala. Genghis Khan had so many children that a study found about 16 million men today share his DNA. That means if ancient Mongolia had a Father's Day, Genghis would have been drowning in handmade cards and awkward family reunions. His genetic legacy is the medieval version of going viral. The phrase wireless is a lie. Even modern Wi-Fi depends on a massive infrastructure of hidden cables, snaking under the ground and across the ocean. So while you're bragging about your cutting-edge wireless router, just remember that it's still relying on a whole mess of physical cables, working behind the scenes like an overworked tech crew. Jocelyn Bell Burnell discovered pulsars, one of the biggest astronomical breakthroughs ever, but the Nobel Prize went to her male supervisor. It's like doing all the work on a group project, only for the teacher to give an A+ to the one guy who showed up late and brought snacks. Snowflakes are the ultimate show-offs when it comes to symmetry. Every single one has 6 perfectly symmetrical arms, forming an intricate pattern that looks like nature's version of high-end jewelry. But here's the kicker. No two snowflakes are exactly alike. So nature flexes by making billions of them, all unique, all symmetrical. In Victorian England, street lanterns were filled with deadly gas mixtures that sometimes exploded. Pedestrians learned the hard way that walking near a lamplighter could turn you into an unwilling fireworks display. Yet, people still trusted these flaming time bombs to illuminate their midnight strolls like it was no big deal. A monkey once ran for public office. In 1988, a monkey named Mickey ran for mayor in Rio de Janeiro as a protest against corruption. He obviously didn't win, but given the state of politics, some voters probably felt he was just as qualified as the human candidates. His campaign slogan? More bananas, fewer problems. Humans have a knack for seeing connections that aren't there, especially in relationships. This phenomenon, known as illusory correlation, can lead to forming stereotypes or false associations about partners based on limited information. So if you think all your exes share the same annoying habit, it might just be your brain playing tricks on you. Medieval entertainment was jousting, feasts, and the occasional witch burning. Now, people sit on their couch, scrolling TikTok for hours, watching strangers cook eggs in bizarre ways. Imagine telling a knight that instead of watching a grand duel, you prefer arguing with strangers online about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. The primordial soup theory claims life began in a warm, chemical-rich puddle billions of years ago. So, humanity's grand origin story might just be that we're the result of a prehistoric, overcooked bowl of toxic sludge. If that doesn't make you feel special, nothing will. The tuxedo was born from one rich guy's fashion rebellion. In 1886, Griswold Lorillard wore a tailless black jacket to a fancy ball in Tuxedo Park, New York. Instead of being shunned, his lazy attempt at dressing up became a trend. Now, tuxedos are the standard for overpriced formal events. One guy's shortcut became an eternal headache for everyone else. Champagne was once called the devil's wine because bottles would randomly explode due to unstable fermentation. Monks making the bubbly stuff would sometimes get taken out by flying corks. Making wine used to be less about luxury and more about dodging high-speed glass missiles. Competitive ski ballet was a real Olympic event. Yes, before freestyle skiing became all about flips and tricks, skiers performed choreographed routines to music on skis. It was basically figure skating but with more faceplants. Sadly, the event was dropped before it could reach its full potential as the world's most ridiculous sport. Studies show that couples argue most about housework. Many men still believe the dishwasher is a mystical machine that loads itself. A survey from 2019 found that 80% of women felt they did more chores, while the same number of men thought it was equal. Apparently, math and housework exist in separate dimensions. Pinstripe suits started as a 19th century corporate branding scheme. Bank employees had to wear specific stripe patterns so everyone knew where they worked. Essentially human barcodes. Eventually, criminals adopted the look to seem respectable. Then jazz musicians wore it to look stylish. Now, pinstripes scream either, "I do finance," or "I run a bootlegging empire," emancipating the senselessness of the fashion industry. The most expensive bottle of wine ever sold cost $558,000. That's right. Someone paid the price of a house for fermented grape juice. At that price, the bottle should at least come with a time-traveling experience back to the vineyard to thank the grapes personally. The clay hypothesis suggests that life is formed from organic molecules assembling on clay surfaces. That's right. There's a chance our deepest roots come from fancy dirt. So, if you've ever been told you have the personality of a rock, congratulations, you're just staying true to your origins. A field of study exists on the gaslighting of men into believing only their gender is genius. The Matilda effect is when female scientists do groundbreaking work, but men take the credit. It's named after Matilda Joslyn Gage, a suffragist who noticed this nonsense way back in the 19th century. History is full of women making discoveries while some guy waltzes in and says, "I totally meant to do that." The first transatlantic telegraph cable in 1858 was such a disaster that after just 3 weeks, it completely failed. They initially sent messages at 1 word per hour, meaning a simple "hello" took longer than writing a whole letter. When they increased the voltage to speed things up, they fried the cable like an overcooked noodle. The oldest known diary comes from ancient Mesopotamia, where scribes used clay tablets to record daily events. Imagine keeping a diary where every entry required wet clay, a stylus, and an oven. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote the first self-help book. He wrote a philosophical journal, later published as Meditations. Instead of complaining about bad weather or gossiping about senators, he filled it with deep thoughts on life, virtue, and self-control. That was an absurd amount of self-reflection for an emperor. The Kodak camera, released in 1888, came preloaded with 100 photos and had to be sent back to the factory for processing. It was like disposable cameras, but way more inconvenient. Imagine mailing your phone back to Apple every time you finished a camera roll. The legendary Amityville horror house, which inspired books and movies, was exposed as a hoax. The people who lived there admitted they exaggerated events for profit. It turns out demons and bleeding walls are way less terrifying when you realize they have a price tag attached. Many ghost sightings have been linked to carbon monoxide poisoning. Before you assume your house is haunted, maybe check your gas lines. Those eerie visions might just be your brain running out of oxygen. Nothing says paranormal experience like an accidental brush with suffocation. No one knows where Genghis Khan is buried. Legend says his soldiers killed everyone who helped dig his grave, then they were killed too. And finally, a river was diverted over the site to erase all traces. Either he was really paranoid or just had the most dramatic funeral planning in history. Broken heart syndrome, also known as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, can make your heart temporarily balloon into a shape resembling a Japanese octopus trap. That's right. Extreme emotions can literally deform your heart, proving that heartbreak isn't just poetic drama but a real medical phenomenon. Shakespeare would have had a field day with this one. Unlike a typical heart attack caused by clogged arteries, broken heart syndrome is triggered by a flood of stress hormones like adrenaline. Your heart, overwhelmed by drama, basically throws a tantrum and stops working properly. It's the cardiovascular equivalent of flipping a table during an argument. Chrysanthemums have a secret double life. While they symbolize joy and celebration in many cultures, they are also the official funeral flower in others. In Japan and China, they represent longevity and happiness, but in much of Europe, they're strictly for mourning. So, gifting them without cultural research might send very mixed messages. The infamous ghost orbs in photos are usually just dust, insects, or water droplets reflecting light. People thought they were spirits floating around, but in reality, it's just a fancy way of proving you need to clean your camera lens. Paranormal investigators must be so disappointed every time they realize they just photographed a speck of dirt. Subscribe to the channel and never fall for ghostly gimmicks again. HDMI cables can cost anywhere from a few dollars to hundreds, but guess what? The expensive ones do not improve picture quality. So, if you've ever been conned into paying $50 for a premium HDMI cable, congratulations, you just bought fancy packaging. Your TV doesn't care. The Guinness World Record for the largest chrysanthemum ever grown belongs to a plant with a single bloom over 10 feet wide. That's not a flower, it's practically a floral UFO. Waking up to find one of those in your yard must be an experience. These flowers are basically botanical ninjas against insects. Chrysanthemums contain pyrethrins, natural chemicals used in insecticides. That means while they look pretty in your garden, they're secretly assassinating mosquitoes, fleas, and other pests. If only all flowers had built-in self-defense systems. The famous 11th century Japanese writer Sei Shonagon kept a diary full of snarky commentary about court life, making her the first recorded person to spill royal tea. She even wrote lists like annoying things. Looks like complaining in a journal is truly a timeless human tradition. A few centuries ago, some wooden sculptures were believed to have mystical powers, with people swearing they could cry, bleed, or whisper secrets. In reality, these effects were mostly the work of clever artisans using wax, pipes, or sheer human gullibility. Basically, early wood sculptors invented the first haunted dolls, long before Hollywood turned it into a whole industry. Despite the vastness of Genghis Khan's empire, his cavalry could deliver messages faster than some modern postal systems. Mongol riders would swap horses at relay stations, covering over 200 miles a day, delivering crucial information in a very short time. Meanwhile, today's express shipping still somehow loses your package in transit. The infamous spirit photography craze of the 19th century was just clever double exposure. People believed they had captured their dead relatives on film, but really it was just early Photoshop. Imagine thinking you were getting a message from the afterlife, only to find out you just paid extra for a photography scam. Some ultra-rich parents hire toy consultants to carefully curate the perfect playthings for their kids. These experts analyze childhood psychology, educational value, and even aesthetics to ensure Junior's playroom is museum-worthy. Meanwhile, the rest of the world's kids are perfectly happy turning a cardboard box into a spaceship. Enslaved people developed intricate communication networks through songs, known as code songs or spirituals. Songs like Wade in the Water secretly contained instructions for escaping via the Underground Railroad. To outsiders, it sounded like religious hymns, but in reality, it was a survival manual disguised as music. Some natural springs literally glow in the dark. In places like the Gippsland Lakes in Australia, bioluminescent algae make the water shimmer like a fantasy movie scene. Imagine taking a peaceful nighttime swim, only to realize you look like a glowing sea monster. Even the water can throw a party without an invitation, but you cannot. The inventor of the treadmill originally designed it as a punishment device for prisoners. In the 1800s, inmates were forced to walk on giant, rotating steps for hours, generating power for mills. Fast forward to today, and people willingly pay for the same torture, just with air conditioning and a TV playing reality shows. There's a hotel in Japan that has been in business for over 1,300 years. The Nishiyama Onsen Koyonkan has been run by the same family since 705 AD. While businesses today struggle to last 5 years, this place has survived wars, economic collapses, and centuries of questionable fashion trends, all while continuing to offer people a warm bath and a place to sleep. Rich people are now paying for digital detox retreats, where they disconnect from technology and luxury resorts. For thousands of dollars, they can finally experience what the rest of us get for free when our Wi-Fi goes out. Nothing says elite privilege like paying a fortune to do absolutely nothing in the middle of nowhere. Japanese Netsuke sculptures, tiny wooden carvings used as clothing fasteners, were so detailed that some artists went nearly blind working on them. Imagine spending years carving microscopic details into wood, only for someone to tie it to their belt and forget about it. The dedication was impressive, but their optometrist bills must have been terrifying. Chrysanthemum tea isn't just a cozy drink. It was once believed to grant immortality. Ancient Chinese medicine hyped it up as a cure-all for everything from headaches to aging. It won't actually make you live forever, but it's packed with antioxidants, so it's at least doing something right. Broken heart syndrome is not just caused by sadness. Extreme happiness can trigger it too. That means winning the lottery or seeing your favorite celebrity in person could theoretically send you straight to the hospital. Imagine surviving years of heartbreak, only to collapse from sheer joy at a surprise puppy adoption. During the Renaissance, some artists sculpted such realistic wooden figures that people accused them of being actual petrified humans. One unlucky artist in Germany had to publicly prove his masterpiece wasn't a cursed corpse, because nothing says "thank you for your art" like an Inquisition-style interrogation. Early photographers used dangerous chemicals like mercury and cyanide to develop photos. One wrong move, and instead of capturing memories, they were capturing their last breath. Being a 19th century photographer was basically a mix of art, chemistry, and an extreme sport with a high risk of poisoning. Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks were a chaotic mix of scientific observations, inventions, and random thoughts, including grocery lists. One page would have a revolutionary flying machine sketch, while another would just say, "Buy more eels." Either he was a genius multitasker, or he was constantly distracted by snack cravings. Undersea internet cables, which carry 99% of global data, are constantly at risk from sharks. These deep-sea hooligans bite the fiber optic lines, possibly because electromagnetic signals confuse them into thinking they've found the ultimate snack. Companies had to reinforce the cables because no one wanted their Zoom call interrupted by a hungry shark. Women have more pain receptors, but men are more sensitive to pain. Science says women actually feel more pain because they have more nerve endings, but they also handle it better due to hormonal differences. That's why childbirth exists as a female responsibility, because if men had to do it, the human race would have gone extinct long ago. Women's hearts beat faster than men's. While both genders have the same basic heart structure, a woman's heart is usually smaller and pumps blood at a quicker rate. Meanwhile, men's hearts are larger but beat more slowly. Women's hearts are like hyperactive drummers, while men's are more like slow, steady bass players in the band of life. Some natural springs produce carbonated water straight from the earth, making them nature's original soda fountains. Long before fizzy drinks came in cans, people were sipping straight from bubbling springs, probably wondering if the gods were trying to carbonate their insides. Meanwhile, modern folks pay premium prices for bottled sparkling water that Mother Nature made for free. Vicuña wool is pricier than gold. This ultra-luxurious fabric comes from the vicuña, a relative of the llama found in the Andes. Since each animal can only be shorn once every 3 years and the process is heavily regulated, a single scarf can cost over $4,000. It's basically the VIP section of the fabric world. Exclusive, rare, and absurdly expensive. Women's immune systems are stronger. Thanks to estrogen, women's bodies are better at fighting infections than men's. That's why when a man gets the flu, he acts like he's on his deathbed, while a woman with the same illness is still handling chores, emails, and possibly curing diseases in her spare time. Rammed earth, one of the oldest building materials, is literally just compacted soil, but it has been used to build structures that have lasted for thousands of years. The Great Wall of China? Partially made from rammed earth. Modern architects are now bringing it back because apparently dirt is the future of sustainable housing. Some molds can survive in space. Scientists have found that certain fungi can endure cosmic radiation and extreme temperatures, meaning mold might outlive humans if Earth ever gets wiped out. So while we dream of colonizing Mars, mold is probably already planning its real estate takeover. The human brain generates about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day, but here's the kicker. Most of them are the same thoughts repeated over and over. That means your brain is basically a broken record replaying the same worries, shower arguments, and embarrassing moments from 10 years ago like a DJ with commitment issues. The penalty kick was introduced in 1891 and was originally called the kick of death because players were given a free shot on goal with no one but the keeper in their way. Goalkeepers must have felt personally attacked by this rule, and honestly, their job hasn't gotten any easier since. Bamboo is a natural material that grows insanely fast. Some species shoot up nearly a meter in a day. Because of its strength and flexibility, it's been used as scaffolding, houses, and even bridges. In some places, you'll find entire skyscrapers under construction covered in bamboo scaffolding, making steel look like it's overcompensating. Some tribes take the phrase, "love hurts," a bit too literally. In the Sateramao tribe of the Amazon, young boys prove their manhood by sticking their hands into gloves filled with bullet ants. These ants have one of the most painful stings on Earth, and the boys have to endure the agony multiple times. Meanwhile, most people scream when they step on a Lego. Aluminum batteries can charge 60 times faster than lithium ones, but they wear out just as quickly. Imagine a phone that charges in a minute but dies in an hour, like a caffeinated sprinter who runs at full speed for 10 seconds before collapsing. Scientists are still trying to find a way to make aluminum batteries that don't have the lifespan of a mayfly. The world's first battery, the Baghdad battery, was literally a clay jar with a metal rod inside. Some historians think it was used for electroplating, while others believe ancient people just liked making weird science projects. If it was actually a battery, that means someone in 200 BC accidentally invented a primitive power bank, just without any smartphones to charge. The mass production of toilet paper is so aggressive that over 83 million rolls are made daily. That's nearly 30 billion rolls a year, which is ironic, considering half the world panics and hoards them whenever there's a crisis. If modern society decides to collapse one day, at least people will have enough toilet paper to last through the apocalypse. Henry Ford's assembly line didn't just make cars faster, it slashed the time to build a Model T from 12 hours to just 93 minutes. This was so efficient that workers got bored doing the same task all day. Ford had to double wages just to keep people from quitting. Ford's efficiency backfired as people were not thrilled about repetitive office work. The world's most mass-produced item is the humble brick. Over 1.3 trillion bricks are made each year, enough to build a wall around the planet multiple times. Meanwhile, Lego produces about 36 billion tiny plastic bricks annually, which means there's a higher chance of stepping on one than finding loose change on your couch. The world's most expensive online course costs over $60,000. That's right. Someone decided that learning business strategies over Zoom was worth the price of a luxury car. Meanwhile, free online courses exist for almost every subject, meaning you can learn quantum physics for $0 if you're willing to sit through some grainy YouTube lectures from 2007. Your brain retains information better from online courses if you actually engage with them, instead of just letting the video play while you scroll through social media. Studies show that interactive elements like quizzes and discussions improve memory, but most people still try to multitask and end up learning nothing except how fast they can close tabs when the instructor calls on them. The world's largest Lego set is a Titanic replica with 9,090 pieces. That's 9,089 chances to mess up and one chance to lose your mind when you realize you skipped a step 500 pieces ago. It's also ironic, considering the original Titanic wasn't exactly known for staying in one piece. Early football was so chaotic that medieval matches involved entire villages, with hundreds of players trying to get a ball to a target miles away. There were no rules and injuries were a guarantee. Imagine modern football, but with no referees, no offsides, and the only strategy was, hope you don't get trampled. The first Football World Cup in 1930 only had 13 teams, and some of them had to travel by boat to Uruguay. Can you imagine today's millionaire footballers spending weeks on a ship just to play? Half of them would probably refuse unless the yacht had Wi-Fi, a gym, and 5-star catering. The Blue Spring in New Zealand is so clear that you can see over 60 meters deep. The water is so pure it makes your local tap water look like swamp juice. Despite its inviting beauty, drinking directly from it is discouraged. Because nothing ruins a magical experience like realizing nature doesn't include a built-in filtration system for microscopic parasites. Some ultra-rich people hire sunset planners to ensure their evening views are perfectly curated. These professionals analyze weather patterns, cloud formations, and atmospheric conditions to predict the best sunsets. Because apparently just looking outside like a normal person isn't luxurious enough, you need someone with a doctorate degree in sky gazing to confirm it's Instagram worthy. Ancient wood sculptors had the patience of saints and the lungs of blacksmiths. In some cultures, they chewed on wood to soften it before carving. People had to spend months nibbling on a tree trunk like a beaver, only to have someone knock it over and call it firewood. Truly, early art was a test of endurance. Nettie Stevens discovered that chromosomes determine sex, but textbooks credited a male scientist, Edmund Wilson. Imagine unlocking the secret to gender and then watching someone else take the bow. Stevens got ignored so hard that for years her contributions were treated like a footnote in Wilson's biography. Your eyes can detect more shades of green than any other color, thanks to evolution making sure you could spot predators in the bushes. Basically, your ancestors needed to see a tiger hiding in grass, but apparently didn't care about distinguishing between different shades of red, because being eaten was a bigger problem than picking the perfect lipstick shade. In the early 1900s, some towns used glow-in-the-dark paint on lanterns to save fuel. The problem? The paint was radioactive. While people marveled at their eerie, self-lit lanterns, they were also slowly exposing themselves to radiation. But hey, what's a little glowing skin compared to cutting down on oil costs? Ancient Chinese lanterns were used for military deception, but sometimes they backfired spectacularly. Soldiers would release floating lanterns to confuse enemies, only for strong winds to blow them straight back, leading to surprise self-attacks. Nothing says sneaky warfare like accidentally signaling your own troops to charge into chaos. In the 1800s, whale oil lanterns were so popular that people nearly hunted whales into extinction just to keep their streets and homes lit. Whales would find it hard to digest that their entire species is in danger because someone needed a romantic dinner ambiance. Sorry, buddy, but humans need mood lighting more than you need existence. Monkeys have entered the Stone Age. Some monkey species, like capuchins and macaques, have been using stone tools for thousands of years. They crack nuts, dig for food, and even sharpen rocks. Scientists fear that if left unsupervised, they might invent Wi-Fi next and start posting on social media before we know it. Skiing was originally a survival skill, not a sport. Ancient people in Scandinavia used skis to hunt and travel over snow, essentially making them the first extreme commuters. While modern skiers worry about lift lines, these early skiers were dodging predators and trying not to freeze to death. Talk about high-stakes winter sports. Reusable plastic was almost an accident. The first synthetic plastic, Bakelite, was created in 1907 when a Belgian chemist tried making a better electrical insulator. Instead, he gave the world a material that refuses to decompose. Now, reusable plastics attempt to solve the mess by making plastic less evil, but let's be honest, plastic is still basically immortal. Sea silk is made from clams. The rarest fabric on Earth, known as byssus or sea silk, is harvested from Mediterranean clams. It shimmers like gold, but only a handful of people in the world know how to make it. Since the clams don't exactly enjoy being poked for their fibers, production is near impossible. Wearing sea silk is basically like owning a wearable miracle. Cob houses, made from clay, sand, and straw, can last for centuries if maintained properly. Some medieval cob homes are still standing today, despite being made from what is essentially a glorified mud pie. Meanwhile, modern houses built with drywall and plywood can barely survive a strong sneeze without falling apart. There are more Lego minifigures on Earth than actual humans. Over 8 billion have been produced, meaning that if they ever gained sentience, they could easily overthrow us. The real question is, would they build tiny Lego prisons for us? Or would they just scatter bricks everywhere to keep us immobilized? Mold has been around for at least 100 million years, meaning dinosaurs probably had to deal with moldy food just like us. Imagine a T-Rex getting upset over a fuzzy, green-covered piece of meat. Too bad they couldn't just toss it in the fridge, though given their tiny arms, even opening the door would have been a challenge. Your brain can trick you into thinking you know things you actually don't. This is called the illusion of knowledge, where people confidently believe false information just because it sounds familiar. That's why people still argue over whether tomatoes are vegetables or fruit, even though science settled that debate ages ago. Humans naturally think in patterns, which is why we see faces in clouds animals in rock formations, and demons in old furniture. This phenomenon, called pareidolia, is why people keep thinking they see the Virgin Mary on toast or a ghostly figure in their poorly lit bathroom mirror. Online learning has been around longer than you think. The first official online course was launched in 1984, back when computers looked like microwaves and the internet was a newborn baby. Now people can earn entire degrees without leaving their couch. Pajamas and education can, in fact, go hand in hand. The Yanomami tribe in the Amazon doesn't believe in burials. Instead, they cremate their dead, mix the ashes with bananas, and eat them. They believe this helps the soul live on within the community. Most people just keep a framed photo of their loved ones, but the Yanomami take keeping their memory alive to a whole new, protein-packed level. Some early metal batteries were so dangerous they could double as explosives. The first lithium batteries had a nasty habit of catching fire, or even exploding when exposed to moisture. Scientists created tiny metal bombs in the name of progress, which is why modern batteries have so many safety features. So your phone doesn't turn into a handheld grenade. Some glaciers are time capsules full of ancient surprises. Scientists have found frozen viruses, woolly mammoth remains, and even bacteria that predate human civilization. Nature uses glaciers as its junk drawers, except instead of old batteries and paper clips, they store prehistoric life forms that could possibly wake up one day and make us regret climate change even more. Factories produce almost 100 billion disposable chopsticks every year, with China leading the charge. This means entire forests are sacrificed so people can struggle through a bowl of noodles instead of just using a fork. The demand is so high that some countries have started making reusable metal chopsticks, because apparently destroying nature for takeout wasn't sustainable. The first true mass production system started with guns, not cars. In the early 19th century, Eli Whitney, yes, the cotton gin guy, pioneered interchangeable parts for firearms. Before that, if a musket broke, you needed a blacksmith to custom-fit new pieces. Now, thanks to mass production, we can break things in bulk and replace them just as fast. The Maasai tribe in Kenya and Tanzania believe spitting is a sign of respect. They spit on newborn babies for good luck, and even on their hands before shaking someone else's as a blessing. If that sounds gross, just remember, modern society shakes hands after sneezing into them, so maybe we're not that different after all. Thinking too much can literally drain your brain. Studies show that excessive mental effort burns glucose, making you feel physically tired just from sitting and overanalyzing life decisions. So, if you've ever felt exhausted after debating whether to send a risky text, congrats! You just gave your brain a full workout. Some molds glow in the dark, turning rotting wood into a natural nightlight. This eerie effect called foxfire has been used for centuries to light up paths in the forest. It's like Mother Nature's way of saying, sure, this wood is decaying, but at least I'll make it spooky and cool. The mold that gave us penicillin was discovered by accident in 1928 when Alexander Fleming left a petri dish sitting around. The mold killed bacteria, leading to one of the biggest medical breakthroughs ever. So the next time someone says you're messy, remind them that a little chaos might just cure a disease. Lego bricks are so precisely manufactured that only 18 out of every million pieces produced are considered defective. That's a mere fraction of a 1% failure rate, better than most modern technology, relationships, and New Year's resolutions. Meanwhile, if one piece goes missing, you'll probably find it months later by stepping on it barefoot at 2 a.m. Cashmere comes from the belly hair of pampered goats. Those soft cashmere sweaters? They come from special goats that live in freezing Himalayan regions. Each goat produces only a few ounces of wool per year, making cashmere ridiculously expensive. Meanwhile, regular sheep just grow wool all over and never get the luxury branding treatment. The first official football rules were written in 1863 in England, creating the foundation for modern football. Before that, different regions had their own bizarre versions, some allowing hands, others permitting violent tackles straight out of a wrestling match. Essentially, it took centuries for people to agree that maybe kicking the ball was the best idea. The introduction of VAR video assistant referee was meant to reduce controversial calls, but it mostly created new ways for fans to scream at their TVs. While referees used to be hated for missing fouls, now they're hated for watching replays in slow motion and still making questionable decisions. Progress, but only barely. Men have larger noses on average. Since they have more muscle mass, they need more oxygen, so evolution gifted them with bigger sniffers. That's why men breathe heavier and why so many end up snoring loud enough to wake the entire neighborhood, while women somehow manage to sleep through it, or just silently plot revenge. The Pamukkale hot springs in Turkey have formed massive white mineral terraces that look like a stairway to the clouds. Ancient people believed the pools had divine healing powers, so they bathed there to cure everything from bad knees to existential dread. These days, they just make Instagram influencers feel like they're standing on a giant frozen marshmallow. Some billionaires don't just buy yachts. They buy yachts to store their other yachts. These support yachts carry extra pools, helicopters, and even submarines. It's the aquatic version of wearing two watches because one just isn't enough. Some of the oldest surviving wood sculptures are over 11,000 years old, which is shocking because wood usually decomposes faster than a forgotten sandwich in a teenager's backpack. The Shigir idol, found in Russia, has outlived entire civilizations. It makes one wonder if maybe termites had better things to do. The mystical feeling in haunted houses is often caused by infrasound, low-frequency sound waves that can make people feel uneasy, anxious, or even see things that aren't there. So that shadowy figure in the corner might just be your brain misfiring because the plumbing is vibrating at the wrong frequency. Science just ruined another good ghost story. The first selfie was taken in 1839 by Robert Cornelius, who had to remove the camera lens, run into the frame, stand perfectly still for over a minute, and then cover the lens again. He probably didn't take a second shot because after all that effort, he just accepted whatever his face looked like. Your brain edits your memories without asking for permission. Every time you recall something, your brain tweaks the details, meaning your most cherished memories are probably half fiction. So that legendary goal you scored in school? Yeah, it might have just been a weak pass that someone else turned into a goal, but your brain gave you full credit. The Hamar tribe in Ethiopia celebrates manhood by making young men run across the backs of cattle, completely naked. If they slip and fall, well, that's just embarrassing. But if they succeed, they officially become men. It's like an extreme version of a balance beam, except instead of a soft mat below, you land on an annoyed cow. Deep-sea divers have to worry about nitrogen narcosis, also known as rapture of the deep, where high-pressure nitrogen turns their brains into a confused, giggling mess. It's like being drunk underwater, except instead of embarrassing texts, you might just take off your oxygen mask because you suddenly think you're Aquaman. Mold spores are everywhere, even in the air you're breathing right now. That's right, take a deep breath, and congratulations, you've just inhaled mold. Don't worry, your immune system is used to it. But if you ever see a suspicious green fuzz growing on your sandwich, that's nature's way of telling you to order takeout. The deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench, is so unexplored that we know more about space than what's lurking down there. Only a few people have ever visited, including filmmaker James Cameron, who probably went down hoping to cast some bioluminescent sea monsters in his next movie. Deep-sea divers occasionally encounter underwater rivers. Yes, actual rivers flowing through the ocean. Thanks to layers of different salinity levels, these rivers look like eerie, misty roads under the sea. If that doesn't sound like a level from a horror game, I don't know what does. Sheep's wool isn't just for warm sweaters. It's also an incredible insulation material for houses. It keeps homes warm in winter and cool in summer, all while absorbing moisture and purifying the air. So not only does it make cozy socks, but it also passively fights mold. The only downside, your walls might smell a bit like a damp sheep. Men typically have thicker skin, literally. A man's skin is about 25% thicker than a woman's due to higher collagen levels. That's why men get wrinkles later, but when they do, they look like deep crevices. Women, on the other hand, get fine lines sooner, but at least they don't end up looking like ancient tree bark overnight. The giant isopod is basically a deep-sea cockroach that can grow over 2 feet long and survive years without eating. It scavenges the ocean floor, feasting on anything dead. Imagine going to sleep and waking up to find a dinosaur-sized bug casually nibbling on leftovers. Nature clearly has a dark sense of humor. In the 1800s, one mousetrap design involved a tiny cannon. Yes, someone thought the best way to catch a mouse was to fire a miniature cannonball at it. And pray for the best. Nothing says pest control like turning your kitchen into a war zone. There's a blood-red glacier in Antarctica called blood falls. No, it's not haunted. It's just leaking iron-rich, salty water that oxidizes when it hits the air. Scientists figured this out, but let's be real. That doesn't stop it from looking like a horror movie set where Mother Nature decided to create a glacier with a permanent murder scene vibe. Zinc-air batteries, used in hearing aids, generate electricity by literally breathing. They take in oxygen to activate the chemical reaction, making them the closest thing to a living battery. If batteries ever evolve further, we might end up with metal-powered creatures that demand to be recharged instead of fed. Spider silk is so rare it takes millions of spiders to make one piece of fabric. In Madagascar, as a group of researchers managed to collect silk from over 1 million golden orb weaver spiders to create an intricate cape. The process was so time-consuming and tedious that the cape was practically priceless. Trying to mass-produce spider couture seems more of a nightmare than something creative. Those little guys don't work for free. The wealthiest individuals often have multiple passports, not because they love to travel, but for tax and legal loopholes. Known as citizen shopping, billionaires collect nationalities like Pokemon cards to dodge taxes, avoid extradition, or just flex their global status. Meanwhile, regular people are still trying to get a visa approved for their cousin's wedding abroad. Lego once made a space-proof brick for NASA. In 2011, astronauts on the International Space Station tested how Lego pieces behaved in microgravity. Imagine floating around in space, conducting scientific experiments and suddenly stepping on a rogue Lego. Instant regret with a hint of nostalgia. Bread is prohibited on spacecraft because crumbs can float everywhere and potentially short-circuit costly equipment. The answer? Tortillas. That's right, astronauts essentially survive on space burritos. Somewhere, a cosmic taco night has likely concluded with a disastrous salsa incident, sending a spicy cloud of regret drifting through the Cosmos cabin. Venice has floating buses called Vaporetto because regular buses weren't ridiculous enough. It's essentially public transport on water, where you get the thrill of nearly capsizing, while tourists attempt to take selfies. Meanwhile, somewhere in the world, someone is still waiting for a regular bus that was supposed to arrive 45 minutes ago. In Japan, train conductors point at everything, from signals to timetables, while shouting their observations. It looks like a synchronized mime performance, but it actually reduces mistakes by 85%. Meanwhile, in other countries, transit workers can barely announce station names without sounding like a tired ghost whispering from an intercom built in 1962. The first known mouse traps were just hungry cats, which worked fine until the cats decided they'd rather nap than hunt. Eventually, humans invented spring-loaded traps because apparently the idea of a well-rested cat wasn't enough to solve the rodent problem. The anglerfish takes dating struggles to a horrifying level. In some species, the tiny male bites the female fuses into her body and spends the rest of his life as a useless lump, providing sperm on demand. Basically, he turns into a parasitic boyfriend with no responsibilities, just permanently attached like the world's worst clingy ex. Sunlight can make you sneeze. Around 25% of people have a condition called the photic sneeze reflex, where sudden bright light triggers a sneezing fit. Scientists still don't know exactly why, but it basically means the sun can punch you right in the nose with a photon uppercut. A fringe theory suggests that life began as a self-replicating chemical reaction, and that DNA came later. If that's the case, then all of human history, wars, civilizations, and reality TV, started because some rogue molecules couldn't stop copying themselves. We owe everything to chemical stubbornness. Before humans dared to venture into space, NASA sent monkeys. In 1949, a rhesus monkey named Albert II became the first primate in space. Unfortunately, his parachute failed in re-entry. Later missions were more successful. Monkeys were testing things for us while we took the credit. Your peripheral vision is absolute garbage at seeing color. If you stare straight ahead, everything out of the corner of your eye is a blurry mess, but your brain pretends it's in full detail. So yes, that thing moving in the shadows could be a cat, an alien, or a particularly aggressive piece of furniture. The longest cable in the world is the See-Me-We 3 submarine cable, stretching over 39,000 kilometers. That's almost the entire circumference of the Earth. This beast connects 33 countries, proving that humanity can build a global network of communication until someone with a boat anchor accidentally cuts it. The first camera was so slow that people had to sit still for several minutes just to take a blurry portrait. Early photographers basically turned their subjects into statues, and if someone blinked, their eyes looked like ghostly smudges. Smiling wasn't even an option. Try holding a grin for 10 minutes without looking like a lunatic. A single Lego brick made today can still connect perfectly with a brick made in 1958. That means if you found an ancient Lego under your couch from decades ago, it would still snap onto a brand new set. Meanwhile, modern appliances change every 2 years like they're running from commitment. There's a glacier in Alaska that has a built-in alarm system. When ice cracks and shifts deep within it, it creates eerie sounds called ice quakes, which can be detected from miles away. If glaciers ever become sentient, this one is screaming in slow motion, probably trying to tell us to stop melting it before it turns into a very cold, very angry puddle. The vampire squid doesn't suck blood, but its glowing red eyes, webbed tentacles, and cloak-like body make it look like it just crawled out of a horror movie. Instead of hunting, it flings bioluminescent mucus at predators, which is the ocean's version of throwing glitter at someone to make them go away. Some modern mousetraps use Wi-Fi to notify you when a mouse is caught so that you can keep count. Clearly, in this age of technology, the only thing missing from life was real-time updates on rodent fatalities. And no one even mourns them. Next up, Bluetooth-enabled cheese dispensers. Some subway cars in Tokyo have pushers, literal human beings hired to shove people into packed trains. If you thought your morning commute was bad, imagine being professionally stuffed into a train car like a suitcase that won't close. Somewhere, a passenger is questioning their life choices as they get compacted into a human Tetris block. Sunlight can actually clean itself up. UV rays from the sun break down bacteria and viruses, which is why leaving things outside in direct sunlight can naturally disinfect them. In other words, the sun is like the ultimate cosmic cleaning crew, evaporating your spilled coffee and erasing germ-infested crimes like a giant celestial janitor. There was once a secret space-corned beef sandwich scandal. In 1965, an astronaut smuggled a sandwich into space, and when he took a bite, rogue crumbs started floating around. NASA was not amused. Imagine being the first person in history to almost destroy a space mission with a rebellious snack. That's a legacy. Some people think ultrasonic mouse repellents work, but mice have been caught literally sitting on top of them. These devices are the rodent equivalent of a no trespassing sign, completely ignored and only there to make humans feel better. Due to extreme water pressure, deep-sea divers must ascend slowly to avoid decompression sickness, also called the bends. If they rush, nitrogen bubbles form in their blood, turning them into human soda cans about to pop. Divers sometimes spend hours in a decompression chamber, which is basically a very expensive and life-saving timeout. Muga silk never fades. Native to Assam, India, Muga silk is one of the rarest silks in the world, and it gets shinier with age instead of wearing out. Royals used to wear it as a sign of prestige, but if you want some today, be ready to spend thousands. It's like an anti-aging cream, but for your wardrobe. Despite brutal oppression, enslaved communities preserved their identities through language. In the Caribbean, they developed Creole languages by blending African dialects with European tongues. This linguistic resistance frustrated slave owners who wanted to control communication, but instead they accidentally helped create entirely new cultures. Imagine trying to suppress a person and ending up expanding human language instead. A woman in the UK once got stuck in her own car seat because of an ultra-strong hair clip. The clip caught on the fabric while she was adjusting her seat, trapping her so effectively that she had to call for help. Rescue workers arrived, probably expecting something serious, only to free a woman held hostage by her own accessory. Sunlight isn't actually yellow, it's pure white. Earth's atmosphere just loves playing tricks on our eyes, scattering blue light and making the sun look golden. If you saw sunlight in space, it would be blindingly white. Our planet just likes to apply its own Instagram filters to everything. Space coffee is drunk through a straw because pouring liquids is a disaster in zero gravity. NASA spent years designing a special cup that lets astronauts sip coffee normally, just to make space feel less depressing. Meanwhile, back on Earth, people are still spilling their lattes in traffic, proving that maybe we all need some NASA-grade engineering in our lives. The Dani tribe in Papua, Indonesia, has a tradition where women cut off a fingertip when a loved one dies. It's their way of physically expressing grief. Thankfully, the practice is now rare, but for generations this meant many women had hands that looked like they had been playing a very unlucky game of rock, paper, scissors with a machete. Medieval monks kept diaries in the form of chronicles, documenting everything from political events to weird weather. Some of them even recorded supernatural sightings like flying dragons and bleeding statues. Either medieval Europe had a serious dragon problem, or monks just needed better sleep schedules. Lise Meitner co-discovered nuclear fission, the process that powers both atomic bombs and nuclear energy. Her male colleague Otto Hahn won the Nobel Prize for it while she got a minor element named after her. If science awards were fair, she'd have a shelf full of medals instead of being a trivia question. Blue light makes you stay awake because your brain thinks it's daytime. That's why staring at your phone at 2 a.m. is a terrible idea, but your brain doesn't care. It just assumes you're being chased by the sun and need to keep running. Meanwhile, cavemen never had to worry about YouTube ruining their sleep cycles. Some medieval lanterns were just hollowed-out turnips with candles inside. Yes, before jack-o'-lanterns became a Halloween thing, people genuinely thought, why buy a fancy lantern when I can light up a vegetable? Nothing screams sophisticated lighting like a rotting turnip filled with open flames. Human eyes have a blind spot where the optic nerve connects, but your brain just makes up whatever should be there. That means your reality is basically an ongoing Photoshop job, and you're trusting your brain not to fill in the gap with something ridiculous. Like a floating cat where there's actually a lamp. A study found that capuchin monkeys understand the concept of currency. When trained to use tokens as money, some engaged in less than legal transactions, including theft and bribery. Turns out even monkeys know how to work the system, just like a furry version of Wall Street brokers. The world record for the deepest scuba dive is over 1,000 feet, which is deep enough to meet creatures that haven't gotten the news that dinosaurs went extinct. At that depth, divers face crushing pressure, freezing temperatures, and the existential realization that they are, in other words, a human teabag floating in the abyss. The barrel-eye fish has a transparent head, and you can literally see its brain and rotating green eyes through its skull. If that isn't weird enough, its eyes can look straight up through its own forehead, meaning this fish spends its life permanently side-eyeing everything above it. Evolution really went all out on this one. Some subway stations have artificial bird sounds playing to make the underground experience less depressing. Nothing screams natural paradise like the scent of brake dust and a soundtrack of chirping birds echoing through a dimly lit tunnel filled with grumpy commuters. If they really wanted authenticity, they'd add the sound of squirrels fighting over a discarded sandwich. Astronaut ice cream is a lie. That crunchy freeze-dried brick sold in museum gift shops? NASA never actually sent it to space. Real astronauts eat goo from tubes and rehydrated mystery meals. Meanwhile, tourists on Earth chew on chalky sugar cubes, thinking they're experiencing real space food while getting crumbs all over their shirts. Hair clips have been responsible for some shockingly dramatic airport security incidents. Metal hairpins have set off alarms, leading to intense security checks and confused travelers trying to explain that their suspicious item is just a fancy way to keep their hair in place. Some have even had their clips confiscated as if they were carrying a medieval weapon. In Sweden, Christmas Eve is celebrated with an oddly important tradition: watching Donald Duck cartoons. Since 1959, Disney's From All of Us to All of You has aired every year at 3 p.m., and Swedes take it so seriously that even holiday plans revolve around it. Forget Santa, Donald Duck is the true Christmas icon over there. The Jewish holiday of Purim is basically a mix of Halloween and a costume party, but with added mandatory drinking. People dress up, feast, and are literally encouraged to drink until they can't tell the difference between the holiday's hero and villain. Finally, a religious commandment that says, yes, another round is totally fine. The 1918 Spanish flu was so intense that some people died within hours of showing symptoms. It was so fast-moving that people reportedly felt fine in the morning and were dead by nightfall. Imagine waking up, having breakfast, and then suddenly deciding, well, guess this is it. Even pandemics in the 20th century had no chill. The sun gives us life, but it's also constantly trying to kill us. Its solar flares blast out radiation so strong that they can fry satellites, knock out power grids, and even mess with radio signals. Essentially, our entire civilization is one angry solar tantrum, away from becoming a very expensive camping trip. The first vacuum cleaner was so big it had to be pulled by horses. Invented at the dawn of the 20th century, this monstrosity needed a team of animals to drag it through the streets, and hoses were run into houses to suck up dust. Imagine calling a cleaning service and having a team of horses show up just to vacuum your carpets. Holi, the Hindu festival of colors, basically turns entire cities into a giant paintball war zone. People throw brightly colored powders at each other in a celebration of spring, love, and general chaos. If you ever wanted to get pelted in the face with neon pink dust by a stranger and call it a spiritual experience, this is your holiday. Japan has a spa-themed amusement park where you can literally bathe in ramen. The Unison Spa Resort offers pools filled with wine, coffee, and even actual ramen broth, complete with synthetic noodles. Sure, it's relaxing, but good luck explaining to your ancestors that you voluntarily soaked in noodle soup for leisure instead of, eating it. The first electric toaster was so slow it could have been mistaken for a meditation device. Invented in 1893, it took ages to brown bread and only toasted one side at a time. You had to manually flip the bread, making it feel less like an appliance and more like a test of patience. Thankfully, modern toasters don't require user intervention mid-toast. The Justinian plague was so bad that Emperor Justinian himself caught it. He survived, but the disease wiped out nearly half of Europe's population. It got so out of hand that bodies were just stuffed into buildings or dumped into the sea. If you think your city's waste management is bad, at least they're not using churches as mass graves. There's a park in South Korea entirely dedicated to toilets. Yes, the Restroom Cultural Park in Suwon is an actual attraction featuring toilet-shaped buildings, poop-themed sculptures, and an entire museum about bathroom history. Apparently, someone thought the ultimate thrill ride was learning about ancient plumbing techniques while standing next to a giant bronze toilet. Electric fans don't actually cool the air, they just move it around to trick your skin into feeling cooler. This means if you leave a fan running in an empty room, you're just giving the air a scenic tour for no reason. But hey, at least you get that satisfying, dramatic hair-blowing effect if you stand directly in front of it. There's an entire theme park in China dedicated to knockoff Disney characters, where Mickey looks like he just lost a lawsuit. The park, called Shijingshan Amusement Park, once had characters eerily similar to famous ones, but with just enough changes to avoid legal trouble. Imagine riding a roller coaster with Michael Mouse and Ronald Duck cheering you on. There's a shade of blue that's so rare it disappeared for centuries. Then scientists accidentally rediscovered it while trying to create new materials. Called YSLNMN, blue because normal names are too mainstream. It's absurdly bright, doesn't fade, and costs a fortune. Basically, it's the Rolex of blues, and your budget paint set could never be. Oil paint takes forever to dry. Some paintings from centuries ago are still technically drying. So, if you think waiting for your nails to dry is annoying, imagine working on a painting and realizing your grandkids will have to check if it's finally done. That's right. Somewhere out there, a Renaissance painting is still in progress. Cobalt mining might as well be a sci-fi horror movie. Most of the world's cobalt, used in rechargeable batteries, comes from mines in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where people dig through radioactive earth with their bare hands. If metal ever gains sentience, cobalt miners will be the first ones to get their revenge. The death trail in China laughs at your fear of heights. Mount Hua's plank walk consists of wooden planks bolted into a sheer cliff, thousands of feet in the air. There's no railing, just a sketchy harness and pure faith. If you ever wanted to know what it's like to hike while questioning all your life choices, this is the place. Bolivia's El Camino de la Muerte is a hiking trail and a near-death experience. Also called Death Road because subtlety is overrated, this path has landslides, sheer drop-offs, and bikers zooming past at ridiculous speeds. One wrong step and you might just get a permanent ticket to the bottom of the rainforest. Enjoy the view, though. Paint companies go way too far with color names. Instead of red, you get dragon's blood. Instead of beige, it's toasted almond whisper. Who comes up with these? Somewhere, there's a guy getting paid to look at a shade of gray and say, let's call this one Foggy Melancholy of a Lost Seagull. Wingsuit flying turns humans into barely controlled meteors. Some wingsuit flyers hit speeds of over 150 miles per hour, which means they're basically one strong gust of wind away from being a real-life Looney Tunes crash scene. And the best part? They do it voluntarily, just for the rush of turning themselves into aerodynamic pancakes. If that kind of madness fascinates you, smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more wild facts. Volcano boarding exists because surfing and snowboarding weren't dangerous enough. In Nicaragua, thrill seekers strap on boards and slide down an active volcano at speeds of 56 miles per hour. The selling point? The volcanic ash shreds your clothes, the heat makes you feel like a baked potato, and if you fall, you get an exfoliation treatment from lava rocks, free of charge. Big wave surfers ride walls of water taller than buildings. The largest wave ever surfed was 86 feet tall, roughly the height of an 8-story building. If that isn't terrifying enough, these surfers also risk being held underwater so long they could start rethinking their life choices, if they weren't too busy fighting to breathe. Some of the earliest paints were made with mashed up bugs, ground up bones, and even urine. Yes, ancient artists really went all in on their color experiments. Imagine proudly displaying your masterpiece, only to realize the vibrant yellow came from someone's very hydrated contribution. Art supplies were not for the weak. Some gold mines literally breathe fire. In South Africa, gold mines reach depths of over 2.5 miles, where the rocks get so hot they can cause underground fires. So miners are basically working inside a giant, burning oven, all for a metal that people wear on their fingers and occasionally lose down the sink. Mining salt was once more dangerous than gold mining. Medieval salt mines were humid, dark, and filled with toxic gases, meaning miners risked suffocation just to season someone's food. Imagine telling your family you braved deadly caves all day, only for some noble to throw your hard-earned salt over his shoulder for luck. The current world record for a single breath hold is an absurd 24 minutes and 37 seconds. These athletes dive hundreds of feet into the ocean with no oxygen tanks, relying on sheer lung capacity and stubbornness, while their bodies casually ignore every instinct to breathe. Some competitions involve food no one actually wants to eat. Ever heard of competitive butter carving? How about spam sculpting? There are entire events where people don't cook food but turn it into questionable works of art, proving that in the world of cooking competitions, sometimes taste is the least important factor. Hair clips can cause major chaos. A 1950s beauty contest in the U.S. ended in chaos when a contestant's oversized hair clip got tangled in another contestant's dress. As she tried to free herself, the entire dress ripped, causing what the newspapers called an unintentional wardrobe catastrophe. Some towns have more reindeer than people. In parts of Siberia and northern Scandinavia, reindeer casually outnumber humans, making traffic jams look like a scene from a Christmas special gone wrong. You're more likely to be late to work because of a stubborn reindeer blockade than because of bad weather. Some islands have a strict no outsiders policy, forever. North Sentinel Island's residents have rejected modern civilization for thousands of years, greeting visitors with spears instead of welcome baskets. Missionaries, researchers, and even helicopters have been chased away. It's the ultimate introvert dreamland where "sorry I can't go out" is a literal survival strategy. Certain places still use bartering instead of money. While the rest of the world is stressed because of inflation, some remote communities trade fish for furniture, goats for groceries, and somehow bananas for medical care. It's an economy where your net worth is determined by how many chickens you own. Medieval men had more stylish bags than women. Back in the Middle Ages, men rocked elaborate girdle pouches tied to their belts, while women had to make do with tiny sacks hidden under their skirts. Dudes were out here flaunting their medieval Gucci while women had to fish through layers of fabric just to find a single coin. The first handbags were survival kits. In the 18th century, women carried reticules, tiny decorative purses that could barely fit a handkerchief and a few coins. Meanwhile, men carried massive satchels stuffed with everything from weapons to snacks. Apparently, gendered bag inequality has been a thing for centuries. Suitcases used to have literal legs. Early travelers carried portmanteaus, which were basically wooden boxes with legs. They were so bulky that you needed a small army to move them, making the whole concept of travel light a complete joke. Today's wheeled suitcases would have been considered pure wizardry. Bathing was once a yearly event. In medieval Europe, people considered full-body baths a luxury or an extreme sport. Many took only 1 or 2 baths a year, relying on perfume and prayers to mask the stench. Meanwhile, the ancient Romans were chilling in massive bathhouses daily, probably wondering why medieval folks chose to marinate in their own filth. Toothpaste once contained literal rocks. Before minty fresh toothpaste, ancient Egyptians and Greeks scrubbed their teeth with crushed bones, oyster shells, and ashes. Sure, their breath probably smelled like a burnt seafood platter, but at least their teeth were exfoliated to a shine. Modern dentists would have a heart attack seeing someone polish their molars with gravel. Nighttime was 2 shifts of sleep. Before artificial light, people followed the biphasic sleep pattern, sleeping for a few hours, waking up at midnight for prayers, snacks, or questionable activities, then sleeping again until morning. If you've ever woken up at 3 a.m. craving a sandwich, congratulations, you're living like a medieval peasant. The shoes were barely functional. Medieval footwear was so bad that people were walking barefoot with fabric wrapped around their feet. Rich people wore ridiculously long, pointy shoes that made running impossible. Probably why knights wore armor. They knew they couldn't escape danger in their fancy elf slippers. Glaciers are slow-motion bulldozers. They grind down mountains, flatten landscapes, and casually drag boulders the size of houses across continents. If a glacier had a theme song, it would be the world's slowest heavy metal riff, crushing everything in its path over thousands of years while moving at a speed that would make a snail look like a race car. Romanesco broccoli is nature's way of showing off its math skills. Its spirals follow the Fibonacci sequence, forming a mesmerizing fractal pattern. If a mathematician and a vegetable had a baby, this would be the result. You can eat it, but deep down you know you're destroying one of nature's most impressive geometric flexes. They defy physics. Cats can twist their bodies mid-air to land on their feet. A reflex so absurdly precise that even scientists are impressed. Drop a cat from any height, not that you should, and it will contort itself like an Olympic gymnast, making gravity look like a joke. They have unique meow languages. Cats don't naturally meow at each other. They developed meowing specifically to communicate with humans. So if your cat meows nonstop, congratulations, you've been manipulated into an endless conversation with an animal that thinks it's your boss. And that's it for your dose of 202 mind-blowing facts. What was your favorite fact? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, subscribe to see more videos like this. Until next time, the useless guy. Welcome to a world where the absurd meets the amazing, and reality is sometimes stranger than fiction. Let's dive into some facts that will make you scratch your head and question the logic behind history, science, and technology. From online learning platforms that might judge your procrastination to terrifying ancient migraine remedies and a radioactive lake that's more dangerous than your worst nightmare, these facts will make you laugh, cringe, and wonder what on earth was going on in the past. Hold on to your curiosity because things are about to get wild. Sea urchins use their water vascular system for movement and self-defense, but they also have tiny jaw-like structures called Aristotle's lantern. These weird little mouthpieces continuously scrape away at surfaces, which means if a sea urchin ever had access to your furniture, it would turn your table into sawdust just for fun. The longest time someone has juggled 3 objects is over 12 hours. Imagine dedicating half a day to keeping things in motion without dropping them, while most of us can't even keep our lives together for 10 minutes without a mistake. This is why jugglers are wizards with hand-eye coordination. Paper jams were a personal attack. Early printers seemed to have a secret grudge against humanity, jamming at the worst possible moment. Important deadline? Paper jam. Printing a final project? Paper jam. Trying to impress your boss? Paper jam. Fixing it required the delicate hand of a surgeon, or else the entire machine would explode into a mess of torn paper and crushed dreams. Hunger pangs can happen even when you're full. Sometimes your stomach just doesn't get the memo that you ate, especially if your meal lacked protein or fat. It's like a spoiled kid asking for dessert when dinner just ended. So if you've ever felt starving right after a meal, your stomach isn't empty. It's just a lying, bottomless pit of deception. Llamas communicate by humming, and each hum has a different meaning. Some hums signal relaxation, while others mean, I'm annoyed and about to ruin your day. If you ever hear a llama humming aggressively at you, just know that you might be seconds away from a face full of llama loogie. Studies suggest that the uncanny valley effect plays a huge role in coulrophobia. Clowns look almost human, but their exaggerated features and unnatural expressions make the brain scream, nope. That's definitely a demon in a party wig. Thanks to horror movies like It and Poltergeist, many people associate clowns with terror rather than fun. At this point, clowns have scared more children than vegetables and bedtime combined. In 1993, the Coca-Cola vending machine riot broke out in Mexico City when a power outage made all the vending machines dispense free Coke. People stormed the streets like it was the end of civilization, looting soda like it was liquid gold. Who knew free soft drinks could turn a city into an action movie? In 1919, Boston experienced the Great Molasses Flood when a giant storage tank exploded, sending a 25-foot wave of sticky molasses through the streets at 35 miles per hour. People and horses got trapped, buildings collapsed, and for years locals swore the city smelled like pancakes. Imagine explaining to your insurance company that your house drowned in syrup. A single game of solitaire helped shape the future of computers. When Microsoft included solitaire in Windows 3.0, they claimed it was just for entertainment. In reality, it was secretly training office workers to use a mouse. That's right, your wasted time playing solitaire was actually Bill Gates' way of turning you into a computer expert. In 1895, the first ever recorded car crash in the US involved exactly one car, crashing into a tree. There were no other cars on the road, yet the driver still managed to hit the only obstacle in sight. This accident set the tone for over a century of people somehow managing to crash in completely empty parking lots. Greenland has a high literacy rate despite only having one university. With a literacy rate of over 99%, Greenland proves you don't need a bunch of fancy schools to be educated. The entire country has one university, meaning you either study there or travel thousands of miles for college. Good luck with student life when your nearest bookstore is next to a glacier. Your face might seem to be in perfect symmetry, but in reality, it is almost symmetrical. If it were, you'd look so eerily perfect that people might assume you were an android. Studies show that humans prefer symmetrical faces because they suggest good genes. But since no one is truly symmetrical, we all just walk around with slightly lopsided charm instead. A spring in Mexico called El Zacaton is so deep scientists haven't fully explored it. This thing is basically the abyss of natural springs, and divers once sent a robot down to map it, only for the robot to mysteriously vanish. Either the spring is hiding ancient secrets, or the water itself just decided it didn't like company. In the early days, NASA considered giving astronauts carbonated drinks, but zero gravity made the gas build up in their stomachs, causing uncontrollable burping. Space burps are special because, thanks to microgravity, they come with surprise liquid reflux. Nothing like floating around in a $100 billion space station while fighting a rogue bubble of soda and regret. Your eyes see the world upside down and your brain flips the image so you don't walk around thinking you live in an M.C. Escher painting. If you wore special glasses that flipped everything, your brain would eventually just accept it, meaning you could rewire yourself to see the world as a permanent handstand. Romanesco broccoli is nature's way of showing off its math skills. Its spirals follow the Fibonacci sequence, forming a mesmerizing fractal pattern. Basically, if a mathematician and a vegetable had a baby, this would be the result. You can eat it, but deep down, you know you're destroying one of nature's most impressive geometric flexes. The first gas stoves were introduced in the early 1800s, but people refused to use them because they thought gas was an invisible demon waiting to explode in their kitchens. Turns out they weren't entirely wrong. Early models were so unpredictable they could turn a simple breakfast into a fireball of regret. Some online learning platforms use AI to track your progress, which means your course knows exactly how long you stared at that one question before giving up. In the future, AI tutors might even roast you for skipping lessons. Imagine a virtual teacher saying, "Oh, back again? Maybe this time you'll actually finish the module instead of binge-watching cat videos." Sunlight is basically a time traveler. The light we see from the sun is already 8 minutes and 20 seconds old by the time it reaches Earth. If the sun suddenly vanished, we wouldn't even notice until those last rays of light finished their journey. Imagine realizing your heat source quit 8 minutes ago. Talk about a delayed breakup. Theorists believe that some sort of plague demon has its wings spread on humanity. For evidence, they argue that in 1720, 1820, 1920, and 2020, the world experienced major pandemics, leading conspiracy theorists to believe there's some kind of plague curse every 100 years. While history probably isn't on a strict doomsday timer, the pattern is weird enough to make you reconsider your life choices every time a new century rolls around. The Buddhist holiday of Vesak, which celebrates Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and passing, often involves people releasing caged birds as a symbol of freedom. It's a beautiful gesture, except sometimes the birds aren't native to the area, and instead of flying to freedom, they just get confused or eaten by predators. Nature's way of keeping things balanced. There's a theme park in Lithuania called Stalin World, where the main attraction is Soviet oppression. Officially named Grutas Park, it features statues of Lenin, Stalin, and communist relics in a grim amusement setting. Nothing screams fun day out like walking through a park dedicated to government surveillance and labor camps. Who needs roller coasters when you have historical existential dread? Uruguay won the first ever FIFA World Cup in 1930. Not only did they host the tournament, but they also won it. Then, just to flex on the world, they won again in 1950, beating Brazil in a match so devastating that some Brazilian fans reportedly fainted from shock. To this day, Uruguayans proudly display 4 stars on their jerseys, 2 for the World Cups and 2 for earlier Olympic football victories. Uruguay's former president was the world's poorest leader. José Mujica, who served from 2010 to 2015, donated around 90% of his salary to charity and lived on a small farm instead of a presidential mansion. He drove an old VW Beetle. He managed to run a country and still was more relatable than most politicians with private jets and gold-plated everything. The water vascular system in echinoderms like sea stars is a built-in hydraulic system that makes them the weirdest plumbers of the ocean. Instead of blood, they pump seawater through their bodies to move, eat, and even breathe. Imagine if humans worked that way. We'd need to chug a gallon of water just to take a step. Hunger can make you an emotional disaster. Ever been so hungry you almost started a fight over something ridiculous? That's because low blood sugar makes your brain act like a glitchy computer, turning minor inconveniences into full-blown crises. If you ever yelled at a vending machine for eating your dollar, don't worry, it wasn't you. It was the hunger gremlin controlling your actions. Bonsai trees can outlive their full-sized counterparts, with some specimens being over 1,000 years old. Imagine dedicating your life to watering and trimming a single tree, only for it to look at you like, nice try, but I'll outlast your entire family. Some of these ancient bonsais have been passed down for generations, making them the ultimate family heirloom. VPNs were originally made for businesses, not for people hiding from hackers or binge-watching region-locked TV shows. In the 1990s, Microsoft developed the first VPN-like technology to let employees securely access company files remotely. Now, thanks to VPNs, people can pretend to be working while actually streaming their favorite shows from a secure connection. Hiking in Hawaii's Haiku Stairs is illegal, which makes it even more tempting. The Stairway to Heaven is a steep 322-step climb that is technically closed to the public. That hasn't stopped daredevils from sneaking in at 3 a.m., dodging guards, and climbing a staircase that looks like it was built by a very ambitious lunatic. Some countries treat VPNs as serious crimes against humanity and outright ban them. China, Russia, and North Korea have strict restrictions, treating VPN use like a high-tech form of espionage. Meanwhile, in other places, VPNs are just tools for people trying to get cheaper flights or pretending to be in another country to access better movie libraries. Denmark once had a theme park dedicated to Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales, but many rides were just a bit too real. For example, the Little Mermaid ride didn't have a happy ending, because in the original story, she turns into sea foam. Nothing says family fun like being reminded that classic fairy tales were full of existential doom. If you love bizarre history and absurd facts like this, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel because, unlike the mermaid, we won't vanish into foam anytime soon. Juggling has been around for at least 4,000 years. Ancient Egyptian tomb paintings show people tossing balls in the air, like early-day circus performers. Either they were entertainers or the first recorded instance of someone failing to keep their groceries in one hand and simultaneously avoiding a fall. There are hydraulic presses so powerful that they need their own foundations to prevent them from sinking into the ground. This means someone, somewhere, has built a machine so heavy and destructive that the Earth itself struggles to hold it. If that's not peak human engineering, I don't know what is. Migraines aren't just headaches. They're full-blown sensory rebellions. Along with pain, they can bring nausea, light sensitivity, and even temporary blindness. Some unlucky people even experience Alice in Wonderland syndrome, where objects look bigger or smaller than they really are. Imagine trying to eat a sandwich that suddenly looks the size of a car. Migraines really know how to ruin lunch. Some ancient treatments for migraines were absolutely terrifying. In medieval times, people thought drilling a hole in the skull, called trepanation, could relieve the pain, because obviously the best way to treat a headache is to let some fresh air into your brain. Today, we have medicine, but if migraines keep getting worse, some sufferers might start reconsidering the medieval approach. Nomophobia is the fear of being without your phone, which means half the population is technically living in pure terror every time their battery hits 1%. The horror of losing Wi-Fi, missing a text, or gasp, having to actually talk to someone in real life is enough to send some people into a full-blown panic attack. Marie Curie basically carried radioactive material around like it was candy. The woman who discovered radium used to keep glowing vials of it in her pockets for fun. Nobody knew about radiation poisoning back then, so her lab notebooks are still so radioactive that scientists today have to wear protective gear just to read her notes. That's dedication, mixed with a little bit of madness. Bananas are radioactive and you're eating them anyway. Thanks to their potassium-40 content, bananas emit a tiny amount of radiation. Don't panic. Eating a few won't turn you into a mutant, but if you stack enough of them in one place, you could theoretically set off a radiation detector. This means your breakfast might be technically nuclear, but at least it's high in potassium. The ace wasn't always the most powerful card. Before the French Revolution, kings were always the highest-ranking cards because, well, monarchy ruled everything. But after people got tired of kings and started chopping their heads off, the ace became the top card in many games, because nothing says power to the people like a deck of playing cards. North Korea claims a perfect literacy rate, but with a twist. The government proudly states that 100% of its citizens can read and write. However, their reading material is almost entirely about the supreme leader. If your first word as a baby is glorious revolution, and your bedtime stories are government propaganda, does that really count as literacy or just really aggressive brainwashing? Playing cards were once considered dangerously sinful. In medieval Europe, some religious leaders were convinced that card games were a one-way ticket to moral corruption. They thought shuffling a deck was summoning the devil. Ironically, many of these early decks were hand-painted by monks, proving that even holy men needed a break from chanting all day. Some cultures believe mirrors steal souls, which makes selfies extremely problematic. Ancient superstitions claimed that mirrors could trap a person's spirit, which is why breaking one supposedly brings bad luck. If that's true, modern phone cameras have probably turned half the population into spiritual hostages, doomed to exist forever in the cloud. Mirrors can technically trap light forever, making them the universe's most useless hoarders. If you position two mirrors perfectly facing each other, light bounces between them indefinitely unless something disrupts it. This means a little piece of light from years ago could still be bouncing in there, probably wondering why it hasn't been invited to leave. Alcatraz prisoners used soap, hair, and papier-mâché to fake their own heads. The famous Alcatraz escape involved inmates making fake heads and placing them in their beds to fool guards. While most people struggle with arts and crafts, these guys managed to create full-blown sculptures just to break out. The guards probably had nightmares about those creepy fake faces. Octopuses learn through boredom-fueled destruction. When stuck in captivity, octopuses will start dismantling their tanks just to see what happens. Some have even learned to short-circuit aquarium lights by spraying water at electrical outlets. If they ever evolve further, we're looking at a future where octopuses overthrow humanity one unplugged power strip at a time. Ancient civilizations had literacy rates so low that people literally paid scribes to read and write for them. In ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, literacy was a rare skill, and professional scribes were the equivalent of today's lawyers. Except instead of drafting contracts, they spent their time writing down gossip and royal complaints. Imagine needing a professional just to send a text message. The oldest known playing cards originated in China. Long before the world knew poker, blackjack, or solitaire, the Chinese were already enjoying card games as early as the 9th century. These early cards resembled paper money, meaning that a game of cards could quickly escalate into a game of bankruptcy if you weren't cautious. Plutonium is so unstable that it can randomly catch fire. This radioactive metal doesn't just sit around politely, it oxidizes in air and can spontaneously combust if it's not stored correctly. In other words, plutonium isn't just toxic, it's also a drama queen that might randomly burst into flames if it feels like it. Scientists have to handle it like it's an angry, glowing gremlin. Llamas have a built-in alarm system. They scream when they sense danger. And by scream, I mean an absolutely unholy, high-pitched shriek that sounds like a banshee stubbed its toe. If a burglar ever tries to sneak up on a llama farm, they'll regret their life choices immediately. Dot matrix printers had the patience of a sloth. Printing one page took forever, and the end result looked like a pixelated crime scene. If you needed to print a whole document, you had time to make coffee, drink it, contemplate the meaning of life, and still come back to find the printer, only halfway done. And heaven forbid you needed color, because that was just sorcery. Ink cartridges were treated like gold. Back in the early days, ink for printers was so expensive and rare that some businesses locked it up like a national treasure. If someone ran out of ink too soon, they were looked at with deep suspicion, because clearly printing a single-page memo was worth more than their entire salary. Paganophobia is the fear of beards. Some people people break out in a cold sweat at the sight of a full, majestic beard, convinced it's hiding dark secrets? Or maybe last week's lunch. If you know someone with this phobia, just know that every November, they're out there dodging bearded hipsters like it's an extreme sport. VPNs can actually increase internet speeds in some cases. Internet providers sometimes throttle bandwidth when they detect streaming or torrenting, but a VPN hides what you're doing. It's like sneaking past a lazy security guard. Your ISP has no clue what you're up to, so it can't slow you down just because you're watching too much high-definition cat content. Drip irrigation is like giving plants an IV drip. It delivers water directly to the roots, drop by drop. This method can reduce water waste by up to 60% as compared to traditional watering. It's so efficient that even desert farms can grow crops without turning the land into a mud pit. Basically, plants get a hydration plan more advanced than most humans following their drink more water resolutions. In Uruguay, cows outnumber people by nearly 4 to 1. Uruguay has about 3.5 million people, but over 12 million cows. This means that if cows ever decided to stage a rebellion, Uruguayans would be seriously outnumbered. Fortunately, the country is one of the largest beef exporters in the world, so the cows probably don't stand a chance. Your stomach isn't growling, it's throwing a tantrum. That rumbling sound when you're hungry? It's called borborygmi, and it's your stomach angrily sloshing around the air and digestive juices, demanding food like a toddler in a supermarket. Scientists say it's normal, but let's be real. Your stomach is just dramatically auditioning for a horror movie soundtrack. Someone invented a ruler that will give you a difficult time doing its one job, drawing a straight line. There's a ruler called the rolling ruler, which is supposed to help you draw straight lines quickly. The only problem? It rolls, meaning if you don't hold it exactly right, you'll get wobbly lines instead of straight ones. It's the ruler version of a prank toy. Some jails have vending machines for bail money, because freedom should be as easy as buying chips. In some places, you can pay your bail using a kiosk, just like you'd buy a candy bar. Imagine getting arrested and then just casually swiping your credit card like buying a snack. One get-out-of-jail ticket, please. Some old mirrors contain so much mercury they could straight up poison you. Before modern glass coatings, mirrors were made with mercury, which means looking at yourself too much could be hazardous to your health. Imagine just trying to check your hair and ending up hallucinating that your reflection is whispering dark secrets to you. Narcissus wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes. Goats can solve puzzles and then judge you for struggling. Scientists found that goats are excellent problem solvers and can remember solutions to complex puzzles even after a year. Meanwhile, humans forget why they walked into a room within 10 seconds. If goats had thumbs, they'd be hacking into your Wi-Fi and changing your passwords just for fun. Goats are out here solving puzzles while some of us still struggle with IKEA furniture. If you want more mind-blowing and slightly humiliating animal facts, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Who knows, maybe one day goats will be watching these videos too, right before they take over the world. In the 19th century, Sweden had higher literacy rates than some modern nations today. Sweden had nearly universal literacy in the 1800s because they required people to read before they could get married. Imagine proposing to your sweetheart only to be handed a Bible and told, read this or die alone. If that rule still existed today, Tinder bios would be a lot more impressive. The 4 suits in a deck have different meanings. Hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades aren't just random shapes, they represent medieval society. Hearts symbolized the clergy, diamonds were for merchants, clubs stood for peasants, and spades represented the nobility. So technically every time you play poker, you're reenacting a mini medieval class struggle. There's a lake in Russia that's so radioactive it can kill you in an hour. Lake Karachay is so contaminated with nuclear waste that standing near it is like signing up for an instant health crisis. The Soviets used it as a dumping ground for radioactive material. Cold War era had a very loose understanding or inconsideration of environmental safety. In 2004, a cargo ship carrying thousands of rubber ducks capsized, leading to a rubber duck invasion worldwide. These yellow plastic birds washed up on beaches from Hawaii to Scotland. Even in maritime disasters, bath toys always find a way to make things ridiculous. Scientists even use them to track ocean currents. There are erasable pens that don't actually erase. Some erasable pens use heat-sensitive ink, which disappears when rubbed with friction. But if you leave your notes in a hot car, all your writing can vanish like a magic trick gone wrong. And the best part, putting your paper in the freezer can sometimes bring the ink back. So technically, you're just one ice pack away from recovering your lost homework. The US shipped billions of dollars in cash to Iraq and lost track of it. The government sent over $12 billion in cash, shrink-wrapped on pallets, to fund reconstruction efforts. A huge chunk of it vanished into thin air, probably making some warlords the proud owners of suspiciously large vaults of US bills. It was one of the biggest cases of, oops, where did our money go? In history. The Aztecs believed the sun needed fresh blood to keep rising, so they constantly made human sacrifices. They'd cut out hearts with obsidian knives, hoping their god wouldn't press the end world button. With that kind of motivation, you'd think they could have just tried a really impressive fruit basket instead. The ancient druids reportedly burned people inside giant wicker men as offerings to their gods. They built massive wooden cages, stuffed them with unlucky individuals, and set them on fire. If Hollywood ever makes an accurate historical movie about this, it'll look like a horror film with a bonfire gone way too far. Some inmates train as lawyers and actually win their own cases. There are prisoners who get so good at studying the law that they manage to overturn their own convictions. That's next level, if you want something done right, do it yourself energy. Imagine getting a life sentence, then pulling an Uno reverse card in court. The first home printers cost more than a car. In the 1980s, a decent home printer could set you back the price of a used vehicle. If you wanted to print from home, you basically had to decide between having a printer or having a roof over your head. And just when you thought you were done spending money, the ink would run out after 10 pages and demand a small fortune for a refill. Migraines can mess with your speech, making you sound like you're speaking in riddles. Some people experience temporary aphasia, where words come out jumbled or completely nonsensical. Imagine trying to order coffee and instead saying, "Please give me a flying watermelon." Juggling improves brain function by increasing gray matter, meaning every juggler is technically making themselves smarter with every toss. So while you're struggling to remember where you put your keys, some guy spinning knives in the air is actually sharpening his cognitive abilities. Life isn't fair. Umami was discovered by a Japanese scientist who just wanted to know why seaweed soup tasted so good. In 1908, Kikunai Ikeda realized that glutamate was the secret behind the addictive savoriness. So yes, a man became famous for figuring out why people couldn't stop slurping broth. Truly a scientific breakthrough worthy of eternal gratitude. Human breast milk is full of umami, meaning babies get hooked on that savory goodness before they even know what food is. That means our love for umami is hardwired from birth. So next time you see someone inhaling a plate of sushi like their life depends on it, just remember, it all started with milk. There's a whole sport called combat juggling, where jugglers try to make each other drop their balls while keeping their own in the air. It's like dodgeball, but instead of running, you're locked in a battle of skill, reflexes, and probably a deep fear of looking ridiculous when your cascade collapsed. The world's first hydraulic press was invented in the 18th century by Joseph Bramah, who probably never imagined it would one day be used to crush Lego figures for internet clout. He was trying to revolutionize the industry, but the internet just wanted to see what happens when you squish a rubber duck under extreme pressure. Avocados, the main ingredient in guacamole, were once called alligator pears because of their bumpy green skin. So technically, every time you eat guacamole, you're smashing up a reptilian fruit and calling it a delicacy. Nothing like some good old-fashioned alligator fruit paste to keep things fancy. Guacamole is so beloved that in 2007, hackers literally held a shipment of avocados hostage in Mexico. Yes, avocado piracy is real, and somewhere out there, a gang of criminals probably has a secret hideout full of guac. Imagine explaining to a judge that your master crime was stealing people's brunch topping. Some bonsai trees have been trained to grow upside down over rocks or even in surreal twisted shapes. This means people spend literal decades convincing a tree to defy gravity just for aesthetics. Meanwhile, most houseplants refuse to live more than a week because you forgot to water them once. Your body will try to trick you into eating cardboard. When hunger gets extreme, your sense of smell and taste go into overdrive, making almost anything seem edible. This is why people stranded in the wild sometimes eat tree bark. Your brain basically turns into that friend who says, "Just try it. It won't be that bad," when you clearly know it will. Some scientists believe umami was nature's way of helping ancient humans survive by guiding them toward protein-rich foods. Meanwhile, modern humans use it to justify eating an entire bag of MSG-covered chips in one sitting. Evolution had noble intentions, but we've turned umami into an excuse to drown everything in soy sauce and call it science. Some sea cucumbers take their water vascular system way too seriously. When threatened, they launch their internal organs out of their bodies like an emergency escape pod. Then they casually regenerate them later, as if violently ejecting their own guts was just another Tuesday. Meanwhile, humans cry over a stubbed toe. Mexico's spicy candy is basically a prank. Many Mexican sweets are covered in chili powder, meaning you think you're getting a nice, fruity treat, but instead your tongue gets set on fire. Some tourists try them thinking they're regular candy, only to end up questioning all their life choices. It's like Mexican candy dares you to suffer before you can enjoy it. Pencils that double as plant. Some eco-friendly pencils have seeds in their stubs, so when they get too short to use, you can plant them in the soil. In theory, you get a nice little herb garden, but in reality, most people just forget and throw them away, making them the most guilt-inducing pencils ever created. Japan made candy that screams. Some Japanese sweets called whistle candies have a hole in them that makes a loud whistling sound when you blow through it. So while kids in other countries quietly enjoy their candy, Japanese kids run around sounding like malfunctioning tea kettles. Worst part? Parents buy them willingly, knowing they'll be stuck in a house full of tiny sugar-fueled train whistles. The world's smallest stapler barely works. There are staplers the size of a thumbnail that claim to be fully functional. In reality, they jam, lose tiny staples, and require an advanced degree in engineering just to reload. But hey, they make great desk decorations for people who enjoy suffering. Pigeons can learn to read, but they don't care to use it. Researchers trained pigeons to recognize words and even differentiate between real and made-up words. However, pigeons have no practical use for this skill, meaning they could probably critique your grammar, but they'd rather steal your sandwich. They're just out here, literate and indifferent. A mirror can make your reflection look taller or shorter, depending on its shape, proving your height is a lie. A slight curve in a mirror can change how tall or wide you look, which means your bathroom mirror might be gaslighting you. Funhouse mirrors take this to an extreme, making you wonder if you're actually a stretched out spaghetti noodle or walking potato. The world's most terrifying rooftop pool is in London. The Sky Pool is a glass-bottomed swimming pool suspended between two buildings, 10 stories high. Swimmers get the thrill of looking straight down at the street below, questioning both their life choices and the durability of glass. Some rooftops are so hot they can literally cook an egg. In places like Dubai or Las Vegas, summer temperatures turn rooftops into frying pans. Forget fancy restaurants. Just crack an egg on a rooftop and let nature take care of breakfast with a side of desert dust. Want more wild and unexpected facts? Hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more mind-blowing content. Earth is losing its lungs at an alarming speed. The Amazon rainforest, often called the lungs of the earth, is shrinking so fast that it might need an inhaler soon. At current rates of deforestation, this giant oxygen factory could turn into a barren wasteland, leaving the planet to cough its way into climate chaos. The world's most expensive chocolate is barely even chocolate. Some luxury chocolates, like La Madeleine aux Truffes, cost hundreds of dollars for a single piece. Why? Because they shove rare truffles, gold flakes, and other ridiculously expensive ingredients inside. At that point, you're not even paying for chocolate. You're paying for the privilege of eating something that costs more than your grocery bill. Polluted air can make you dumber, literally. Studies show that long-term exposure to high pollution levels is linked to cognitive decline, meaning smog might be sneakily shaving off IQ points. So if you've ever walked through a city and suddenly forgotten why you entered a store, blame the air, not your short attention span. Italy has a cake that lasts forever. Panforte, an ancient Italian dessert, is so packed with honey, nuts, and dried fruit that it can stay good for years. Yes, years. It was originally designed to survive long journeys, but at this point, it could probably outlive some civilizations. If you ever get stranded on a desert island, just bring a Panforte. It'll still be fresh when they rescue you. One prison used a Pepsi factory as a cover-up for crime. In the 1990s, a prison in Venezuela had a fake Pepsi factory inside. But instead of making soda, inmates were brewing their own alcohol and smuggling drugs. Imagine visiting for a tour and wondering why the soda smells like moonshine and regret. Uranium glass exists and it glows like something straight out of a sci-fi horror movie. Back in the 19th century, people thought, hey, let's put uranium in glassware because that seems safe. The result? Green glowing plates, cups, and even doorknobs that looked like they belonged in a haunted house. Technically, they're not super dangerous, but drinking from one still feels like a great way to develop superpowers or an extra limb. The fear of clowns is so common that even trained psychologists aren't entirely sure what causes it. Some blame their eerie painted faces, others say it's their unpredictable behavior, but honestly, it might just be the fact that no fully grown adult should enjoy wearing oversized shoes that much. Some migraines come with auras, which are basically psychedelic pre-show warnings from the brain. These auras can include flashing lights, zigzag patterns, or even ghostly blind spots. So while the sufferer is bracing for pain, their brain decides to put on a malfunctioning laser light show. Thanks, nervous system. In theory, a big enough hydraulic press could flatten a diamond, turning the hardest known substance into a very expensive pancake. So next time someone brags about their unbreakable diamond ring, just remind them that a sufficiently angry hydraulic press could turn it into luxury dust in seconds. Montevideo has the longest carnival in the world. While Brazil's carnival is famous, Uruguay's lasts for over 40 days. It includes parades, candomblé drumming, and comedy shows that often poke fun at politicians. If you ever thought partying for a week was impressive, Uruguayans would like you to know they've taken it to the next level. Hunger pangs can make you a temporary genius. Studies suggest that mild hunger boosts brain function, making you more alert and focused. So if you ever solved a complex problem while daydreaming about pizza, congratulations, you just outsmarted yourself on an empty stomach. The bad news? Your IQ plummets the second you get your hands on that pizza. Some trees release a screaming chemical when they're cut down. They emit distress signals in the form of gases, kind of like a final, desperate no that no one hears. So next time you see a deforested area, just know it was probably full of silent, gasping tree screams. Pleasant thought, huh? The Chrysler Building's rooftop once had a hidden speakeasy. During Prohibition, New York's elite partied in a secret bar 800 feet above the city. Imagine sipping illegal cocktails while knowing that one wrong step could send you on a very permanent elevator ride without the elevator. Cutting down trees actually makes some animals lose their minds. Studies show that orangutans and other forest creatures suffer from stress, trauma, and even depression when their homes disappear. Deforestation is so bad that even wildlife needs therapy. The world's most ridiculous handmade teapot is covered in 500,000 diamonds. Because what's tea without the risk of holding a fortune in your hands? Spill a drop, and suddenly your afternoon tea turns into a financial crisis. At that point, you're not sipping tea, you're gripping wealth with shaky hands. A fully functional wooden bicycle exists, made entirely by hand. No metal, just wood, and misplaced confidence. Every ride is a potential splinter hazard. And don't even think about rain, unless you enjoy the feeling of your bike slowly turning into firewood. It's eco-friendly, stylish, and completely impractical. Trees literally talk to each other, and deforestation is basically cutting off their group chat. Through underground fungal networks, trees warn each other about pests and share nutrients. When a forest is wiped out, it's like deleting an entire social network. Except instead of losing cat memes, nature loses critical survival info. Rats learn faster when playing hide-and-seek, and they love it. Researchers taught rats to play hide-and-seek, and not only did the rats master the game, but they also squeaked with joy when they found a good hiding spot. Scientists may have been studying animal intelligence, but what they really discovered was that rats are just tiny, furless toddlers with an unhealthy love of sneakiness. A man crocheted a life-sized Ferrari, which is perfect if your dream car involves 0 horsepower and extreme vulnerability to rain. It won't win races, but it will confuse everyone who sees it. Just don't park it near actual cars, or someone might mistake it for a very expensive blanket. Air pollution can mess with your sleep, turning you into a groggy zombie. Fine particles and dirty air inflame your airways and mess up your oxygen intake, making restful sleep feel like a distant dream. So if you're tossing and turning at night, it might not be stress. It could just be the air plotting against you. Polluted air can literally change the weather. Certain types of air pollution can trap heat and increase temperatures, making some cities feel like giant microwaves. So if you're sweating in unbearable heat while breathing in smog, just know that you're being slow cooked by a combination of bad air and human-made climate chaos. The Iraq War officially ended multiple times. The US declared victory in 2003, then fought an insurgency for years, then declared an official withdrawal in 2011, only to send troops back in game with endless DLCs. Every time you thought it was over, another mission popped up. Horned lizards take Cry Me a River to another level by shooting blood from their eyes. If a predator gets too close, they unleash a horrifying blood spray that not only looks terrifying, but tastes disgusting. It's like Mother Nature decided that regular defense mechanisms weren't dramatic enough. African hairy frogs break their own bones to grow instant claws. If they feel threatened, they snap bones in their toes, forcing sharp, bony claws to puncture their skin. It's like Wolverine, but way grosser. The worst part? Scientists aren't even sure how the claws go back in. Nature is horrifying. A Japanese artist hand-carved a perfectly spherical wooden ball. Why? Nobody knows, but he stared at that thing so long, it probably stared back. It's impressively smooth, but serves no purpose unless rolling it around counts as entertainment. If patience had a shape, it would be this absurdly polished wooden orb. There's a candy that can break your teeth and your spirit. In Scotland, they have a treat called tablet, which is like fudge, but with the density of a brick. It's so sugary that one bite feels like an instant dental appointment waiting to happen. People love it, but honestly, it's less of a candy and more of an edible weapon. Vatican City has a 100% literacy rate, but barely any students. With a population of fewer than 1,000 people, mostly priests, cardinals, and Swiss guards, Vatican City boasts a perfect literacy rate. But here's the catch. There are no schools, no kids, and the students are mostly lifelong scholars in robes. Technically, they've never had to deal with anyone failing a spelling test. Someone knitted a boat, and yes, it actually floats for now. It's seaworthy in the way a desperate last-minute solution is, meaning it's one wave away from being a floating pile of wet yarn. If you ever wanted a boat that doubles as a sweater, congratulations. This is your oddly specific dream come true. Some prisons have luxury suites because why not pamper criminals? In certain countries like Norway, inmates get private rooms with TVs, mini fridges, and even en-suite bathrooms. It's less prison and more budget hotel with really strict checkout policies. Meanwhile, in other places, inmates are packed like sardines and would probably fight over a bent spoon. If this kind of wild reality blows your mind, imagine what else the world is hiding. Subscribe to this channel where we uncover the bizarre, the outrageous, and the downright ridiculous. Don't miss out, or you might end up in one of these hotels just for being uninformed. Alex Barron juggled 11 balls at the same time and reserved his spot in the Guinness Book of World Records. Put that in perspective, most people struggle to handle their phone, coffee, and car keys at the same time. This guy turned gravity into his personal playground and made the rest of us look uncoordinated. Weather can trigger migraines, proving that Mother Nature has a personal vendetta against some people. Sudden changes in barometric pressure can send migraine sufferers straight to a dark room, making them human barometers with a built-in storm warning system. If your friend with migraines starts complaining, grab an umbrella. It's probably about to rain. Bonsai trees don't come from special tiny tree seeds. Any regular tree can become a bonsai if you're patient enough to prune, shape, and mildly torment it for decades. Essentially, bonsai gardening is just aggressive tree parenting, where the goal is to keep it small and aesthetically pleasing while stopping it from realizing its true height potential. It was the first country to legalize recreational marijuana nationwide. In 2013, Uruguay became the first country in the world to fully regulate cannabis from production to sale. Instead of shady street deals, you can now pick up your government-approved weed at a pharmacy. It's basically the country that said, let's handle this like grown-up, while others are still debating. During World War II, a Japanese bonsai master donated a 400-year-old bonsai tree to the United States as a sign of peace. The tree has been thriving at the National Arboretum ever since, probably whispering, I was here before your country even existed to the other plants. It's the most passive-aggressive form of diplomacy ever. A VPN doesn't make you completely invisible. Your internet service provider can still see that you're using one. It's like wearing a disguise but still standing under a spotlight. While VPNs encrypt your data, some companies log user activity, so choosing a trustworthy provider is key unless you enjoy the idea of your private browsing being not so private. In Norway, hikers willingly dangle off a giant rock wedged between two cliffs. Kjærebolten is a boulder stuck over a 3,228-foot drop, and people actually stand on it for photos, because standing on solid ground is just too boring. One strong gust of wind, epic Instagram moment, could turn into a free-fall experience. Smart irrigation systems use AI and weather forecasts to decide when and how much to water plants. Some of them even connect to apps, so farmers can hydrate their fields while sitting on the couch watching TV. Imagine a future where your tomatoes text you, complaining about dehydration. At this rate, we're not too far from that reality. Hydroponics allows plants to grow without soil, just floating in nutrient-rich water. This method uses 90% less water than traditional farming and can grow crops almost anywhere, including underground and shipping containers and even on space stations. Yes, astronauts could one day enjoy fresh lettuce while orbiting Earth, proving once and for all that salad is inescapable. Fog harvesting literally pulls water from the air. Mesh nets trap moisture from fog, collecting it as liquid water. This technique is used in dry regions where rain is a luxury, making it possible to farm in places that should be impossible. Nature already gave spiders this idea millions of years ago, but humans are just now catching up. Underground irrigation pipes prevent water from evaporating before plants can use it. Instead of spraying water into the air where half of it disappears, these pipes deliver it straight to the roots, and it's basically a secret underground water delivery service for plants, ensuring they stay hydrated without wasting a drop, unlike humans who still miss their mouths while drinking from bottles. The Malaysian exploding ant has a defense mechanism that sounds like something from a bad sci-fi movie. It self-destructs. When threatened, it flexes its abdomen so hard that it bursts, spraying toxic goo everywhere. It's the insect equivalent of saying, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. Opossums have the ultimate fake-it-till-you-make-it survival strategy. They play dead so convincingly that even their heartbeat slows down. They release a foul odor, their body goes limp, and they stay that way for hours. It's the animal kingdom's most dramatic, Oscar-worthy performance, all to avoid becoming dinner. Your nose acts as a built-in pollution detector, but only to a point. While it can sense strong odors from pollutants, it completely fails against invisible toxins like carbon monoxide. So basically, your nose is great at identifying stinky garbage, but completely useless when it comes to detecting the truly dangerous stuff. Hand snapping was once believed to ward off evil spirits in some cultures. Imagine trying to scare away a ghost with the sound of your fingers clicking, because clearly nothing says "begone demon" like a mildly aggressive jazz rhythm. Demon might enjoy the rhythm rather than be horrified by it. Some people can snap their fingers at speeds over 20 times per second. That's not just a snap, that's a mini sonic boom in your hand. If they ever weaponized this ability, we'd have snap-powered machine guns instead of traditional firearms. And some people can become human machine guns. The world's most expensive wig, made from real human hair, was once sold for over $10,000. Imagine paying that much just to have a portable, luxurious mop on your head, only for the wind to snatch it away like a dramatic telenovela plot twist. Some royal crowns are so heavy with gold and jewels that wearing them for long periods can cause neck pain. Basically, being a monarch is just an expensive way of giving yourself a chiropractor bill. Who knew ruling a kingdom came with the same risks as bad posture at a desk job? Some extreme germaphobes refuse to touch public door handles, going as far as wearing gloves year-round. One businessman in New York reportedly uses his elbow, knees, and even his foot to open doors. If he ever encounters a revolving door, he might have to accept his fate and live in the building forever. Chess boxing is a real sport where competitors alternate between playing chess and punching each other in the face. One moment, they're deep in thought, planning their next move, and the next, they're getting their brain cells rattled. It's the only sport where you can win by checkmate or knockout, whichever comes first. Ferret legging is a competition where participants shove live ferrets into their pants and see who can endure the longest without screaming in terror. The ferrets have sharp teeth, bad attitudes, and zero understanding of personal space. The record is over 5 hours, which raises the question, why? Just why? There's a world record for the most soap used in a single hand wash. In 2012, a man in Japan covered his hands in nearly a gallon of liquid soap, turning his fingers into a foamy nightmare. He then realized he had no way to turn the faucet on without slipping. The most expensive nail polish in the world contains real black diamonds and costs over $250,000 per bottle. That means if you accidentally chip your nail, you're not just losing polish, you're shedding tiny, overpriced gemstones like a ridiculously wealthy reptile. In ancient Egypt, onions were so respected that they were used as currency and even placed in the tombs of pharaohs. Imagine making it to the afterlife expecting riches and instead finding your tomb filled with vegetables. The pharaohs must have been thrilled to discover that their eternal treasure was just a giant pile of onion rings. Some designer handbags are made with actual gold-plated hardware and diamond-studded logos, costing more than a house. So if you're ever in financial trouble, just sell your purse and live inside a slightly cheaper one instead. In 17th century Russia, a famine led to widespread cannibalism. Things got so bad that officials had to warn people not to eat their own relatives. They even put up public signs that basically said, "Please stop snacking on your neighbor." When the government has to remind you that people aren't dinner, you know it's bad. Fevers are like your body's version of setting itself on fire to fight off invaders. Your immune system basically decides that the best way to kill germs is to turn you into a human radiator. Too bad it doesn't come with a mild warmth setting, just full-blown furnace mode. Extreme ironing exists, and yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. People lug ironing boards up mountains into the ocean, or even while skydiving just to flatten a shirt. If your biggest thrill in life is making sure your pants have perfect creases at 10,000 feet, congratulations, you've found your calling. In medieval times, being too clean was suspicious. People believed bathing too much could make you vulnerable to disease or worse, witchcraft. Some nobles avoided baths for months, using perfumes to mask the stench. If you think your gym socks smell bad, imagine an entire castle full of unwashed royalty. Wife carrying is an actual race where men carry their wives through obstacle courses, often over mud pits and water traps. If they drop their wives, they're out of luck. The prize? The wife's weight in beer. Nothing says love and teamwork like surviving an obstacle course for free booze. If you want to witness the ultimate test of marriage and questionable life choices, check out our video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because who doesn't love a sport that combines romance, athleticism, and potential back injuries? In ancient times, some royals wore bejeweled shoes, so heavy that they had to be carried to avoid walking in them. Imagine flexing your wealth so hard that basic movement becomes impossible. At that point, you're not wearing shoes. You're just dragging around tiny treasure chests on your feet. Onions were once prescribed as medicine for everything from colds to baldness. Medieval doctors genuinely believed that rubbing onion juice on your scalp would make your hair grow back. Spoiler alert, it didn't. But it did guarantee that anyone trying this treatment smelled so bad that no one got close enough to notice their hair loss. Some medieval doctors believed fevers were caused by an excess of hot bodily humor, so they treated them by making patients bleed. That's right, if you were already burning up, they thought draining you like a leaky juice box would help. Shockingly, this didn't work, but it did make sure you had bigger problems than just a fever. In the Irish potato famine, millions starved while food exports continued from Ireland to England. That's like being locked in a bakery, watching someone carry away loaves of bread while you chew on your shoe. The government called it market efficiency. The starving people probably had a few different words for it. In some parts of the world, snapping is used instead of clapping to show appreciation. It's common in poetry slams and theaters, but imagine if entire stadiums switched to snapping instead of cheering. The sound of thousands of people snapping at once would feel less like encouragement and more like an approaching swarm of locusts. The highest recorded fever in history was 115 degrees Fahrenheit. The person survived, proving that humans are way more heat-resistant than microwaved leftovers. At that temperature, you're basically a walking, talking oven. But somehow, your brain still refuses to remember where you left your car keys. Scientists discovered that snapping produces one of the fastest rotational movements in the human body, faster than some sports motion. So technically, snapping could be an Olympic event. Imagine the drama of a gold medal match. Two athletes locked in an intense snap-off, hands moving so fast they break the sound barrier. The world's heaviest onion weighed over 18 pounds, which is roughly the size of a small dog. This monster onion could make enough onion rings to feed an entire football team, or enough tears to make them all cry before kickoff. Somewhere, an ogre is very jealous. Some ancient Roman glassware was made with gold and silver nanoparticles, which means it could change color depending on the lighting. Imagine sipping wine from a goblet that shifts from red to green, like a medieval mood ring, only to realize that your ancestors were flexing their nanotech skills 2,000 years before we even understood it. In the 1800s, some people believed drinking from uranium glass would give them health benefits. Yes, uranium, the radioactive stuff. They thought the eerie green glow meant it was special, but in reality, they were basically sipping tea from a nuclear hazard. It's a miracle they didn't start glowing themselves. Scientists have created glass that isn't actually glass at all. Some ultra-hard materials, like metallic glass, are stronger than steel and can be bent without breaking. It's glass that hit the gym and decided it was done being fragile. Proof that even inanimate objects can have a glow-up. During China's Great Famine, things got so bad that people started reporting bird nest soup without the soup or the nest. Desperate villagers climbed trees to eat raw baby birds before they could fly away. Meanwhile, government officials kept insisting that everything was fine because nothing says thriving economy like fighting sparrows for lunch. North Korea's 1990s famine got so extreme that people reportedly ate tree bark and grass. Some even made mud cakes out of dirt and water to trick their stomachs into feeling full. If Michelin ever reviewed famine food, this would get 0 stars, unless you're a termite, in which case it's a buffet. There's a glass so strong that it can survive a hammer smash but will shatter instantly if you drop a tiny pebble on it. It's called Prince Rupert's Drop, and it's the diva of the glass world. Impervious to brute force, but completely undone by the lightest touch. Just like some people's egos. In China, dust storms sometimes carry industrial pollutants, turning the air into a toxic soup. Imagine stepping outside and getting hit with a combo of desert sand and factory waste, like Mother Nature's version of an aggressively unpleasant seasoning. The only thing missing is a giant label saying, "Do not inhale. Side effects may include lung despair." There's a cupboard in England that's been locked for over 150 years because no one can find the key. It sits in a museum, taunting historians like a Victorian escape room. What's inside? Gold? Ghosts? Just someone's forgotten tea set? At this point, breaking it open feels like a national emergency. In the 1700s, some rich Europeans had panic cupboards filled with emergency wigs. Yes, because nothing says crisis preparedness like an emergency hairpiece. If a guest arrived unexpectedly, they'd dash to the cupboard, slap on a fresh wig, and pretend they hadn't just been caught looking like a medieval mess. The US Census didn't allow people to identify as more than one race until the year 2000. Before that, biracial individuals had to choose only one racial identity, as if their ancestry could be neatly boxed into a single category. This change finally acknowledged the complexity of multiracial heritage. A hidden cupboard in a Dutch church once housed a fully functional pub. It was disguised as a storage space, but opened the doors and, surprise, instant speakeasy. Forget illegal basements. These priests had a next-level dedication to holy spirits, both divine and distilled. Interracial marriage was illegal in many states until 1967, when the Supreme Court ruled in Loving versus Virginia, that such bans were unconstitutional. Before that, marrying outside one's racial category could lead to prison sentences. The ruling not only legalized interracial marriage, but also challenged the entire concept of racial purity laws. Deforestation is so extreme that some areas of the planet experience phantom forests. This happens when old satellite images still show dense greenery, but in reality, it's been chopped down. So, somewhere out there, a tree that no longer exists is still haunting Google Earth. Some ancient Chinese cupboards were designed to trap thieves inside. They'd sneak in to steal valuables, shut the door behind them, and boom, instantly turned into self-locking jail cells. Imagine breaking into a house thinking you hit the jackpot, only to realize you're now part of the furniture. In a bizarre case of cupboard betrayal, one 19th century wardrobe in France collapsed and took an entire wall with it. Turns out it had been secretly holding up part of the house for years. Imagine casually opening a cupboard for snacks, only for your whole house to say, "Well, guess I'm done." Ancient Rome experienced famines where people paid more for rotten fish guts than a senator's bribe money. At one point, starving citizens started raiding grain ships like pirates, because when your choices are steal wheat or eat your sandal, piracy starts looking like a noble career path. The world record for the longest tap dance marathon is over 24 hours. That's an entire day of non-stop foot slapping, ankle abuse, and probably enough blisters to make a podiatrist cry. At that point, it's less of a dance and more of an endurance test of sheer foot-based stubbornness. The weapons of mass destruction were never found in the US war on Iran. The main reason for the invasion was to eliminate Iraq's alleged stockpile of chemical and nuclear weapons. After years of searching, no stockpiles were found. It was like sending the world's most expensive search party on a wild goose chase. Except the goose never existed. Some South American folk dances require dancers to stomp so hard that they've cracked wooden floors. These dancers aren't just moving to the music. They're waging war against the ground. It's like Mother Earth personally insulted them, and they decided the only solution was rhythmic revenge through aggressively powerful footwork. Breathing polluted air is like taking up smoking without the commitment. In some heavily polluted cities, just living there is equivalent to puffing a pack of cigarettes a day. So technically, some people are chain smokers without ever touching a cigarette, proving that secondhand pollution is a real thing. Competitive Irish dancers keep their upper bodies completely still while their feet move at lightning speed. This makes them look like they're possessed from the waist down, as if their legs have decided to rebel and start their own dance revolution, while the rest of their body is trapped in an invisible straitjacket. In the 18th century, French aristocrats took competitive foot dancing so seriously that some dancers insured their feet for absurd amounts of money. Imagine explaining to an insurance agent that your biggest asset is your ability to aggressively tap your way through a ballroom without spraining an ankle. If you want more bizarre historical gems like this, tap dance your way over to our YouTube channel. Hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. No insurance required. The largest dust storm ever recorded on Mars was so big it covered the entire planet for weeks. Imagine waking up one day and realizing your whole world is now just one giant sandpaper nightmare. Meanwhile, NASA's rovers had to sit in timeout mode, waiting for Mars to stop throwing its intergalactic tantrum. Pens that taste like food were a real thing once. Some novelty pens are scented to smell like chocolate, strawberries, or even pizza. The problem? People instinctively put them in their mouths and get very disappointed. The good news is that it at least helps students stay awake in boring classes, constantly sniffing their own pens. In 1971, an astronaut on Apollo 15 almost died from a dropped hammer. While testing Galileo's theory by dropping a hammer and a feather on the moon, astronaut David Scott nearly lost control of his oxygen supply. The experiment was cool, but imagine making it all the way to the moon just to get taken out by basic gravity. The 1930s Dust Bowl was so intense that static electricity in the air could knock people unconscious. Farmers had to shake hands with metal objects before touching each other to avoid getting zapped into oblivion. Nothing says, "Nice to meet you," like a handshake that feels like a taser attack. Octopuses can edit their own genes. These squishy escape artists don't just outsmart predators, they rewrite their own RNA to adapt to different temperatures. Meanwhile, humans can barely decide what to wear when the weather changes. If octopuses ever figure out how to breathe on land, we're doomed. Crows remember faces and hold grudges like vengeful soap opera villains. If a human wrongs them, crows will not only remember that person's face, but they'll also pass down their grudge to future generations. Imagine your great-great-grandchild getting dive-bombed by a crow because you stole a French fry in 2024. That's next-level generational trauma. Lombard Street in San Francisco looks like a car's worst nightmare. With 8 hairpin turns packed into a single block, it was designed this way because early cars couldn't handle steep inclines. Now it's just a glorified amusement park ride for tourists who enjoy testing their brakes and their patience. Ebenezer Place in Scotland is so short it barely exists. At just over 6 feet long, it holds the world record for the shortest street. It's literally just the front door of a single building. Imagine getting directions to an address here. You'd probably walk right past it and not even notice. Parliament Street in England is so narrow, it's basically a hallway. At just 25 inches wide at its thinnest point, it's like a medieval alleyway designed exclusively for people who skipped lunch. If you've eaten too many fish and chips, you might have to find another route. Waitomo glowworm caves in New Zealand look magical until you realize they're full of larvae spit. The beautiful blue glow is actually bioluminescent mucus, secreted by hungry larvae to trap insects. So if you ever visit, just remember, you're admiring a ceiling covered in glowing bug drool. There's a cave in Vietnam so big, it has its own weather system. Hang Son Giong is so massive that clouds form inside it. It also has rivers, jungles, and probably enough space to house an entire lost civilization. Meanwhile, most people are still trying to find an apartment bigger than a shoebox. Yonge Street in Canada used to be the world's longest street until someone changed the definition. At one point, it stretched over 1,000 miles, but some grumpy cartographers decided a chunk of it was actually a highway. So now it's just a really long road with an identity crisis. Baldwin Street in New Zealand defies physics and common sense. It's the world's steepest street with an incline so intense that mail carriers had to switch to staircases because their vans kept rolling away. It's a perfect place to test your brakes or your ability to survive a downhill tumble. There's a cave in Venezuela that is permanently haunted by lightning. Cueva del Rayo, located near Catatumbo, experiences near-constant lightning storms. It's the only cave on Earth where you can get electrocuted just for sightseeing. Nature really went all out to make sure no one felt safe camping there. Some rooftops are so dangerous that even professional stunt performers avoid them. In Hong Kong, daredevil rooftopers risk their lives climbing skyscrapers without safety gear, all for the perfect Instagram shot. One slip and they're auditioning for a real-life gravity experiment. Spoiler alert, gravity always wins. Sparkling water was once considered a medical miracle. In the 18th century, people believed carbonated water could cure anything from scurvy to depression. If that were true, modern therapy would just be handing out bottles of fizzy water instead of actual advice. Sadly, all it really cures is thirst, with a side of aggressive burping. The first artificially carbonated water was a failed attempt at recreating a holy spring. In 1777, Joseph Priestley, the guy who discovered oxygen, accidentally invented soda water while trying to mimic naturally fizzy mineral springs. Instead of divine healing properties, he just made bubbles. And so humanity's obsession with paying extra for fancy water was born. There's an egg that can bounce like a rubber ball. The eggs of some amphibians, like the frog species, are so jelly-like that they can survive being dropped without breaking. Imagine cracking one open for breakfast and watching it bounce right off your pan like a rebellious pancake. Carbonated water can dissolve your teeth very, very slowly. The slight acidity from carbonation can wear down enamel, but you'd have to drink absurd amounts for it to matter. So unless you're chugging sparkling water like it's an Olympic sport, your teeth are safe. Meanwhile, soda is laughing in the corner, ready to do real damage. Some eggs are blue thanks to a virus. Certain chickens lay blue eggs because of a harmless ancient virus that messed with their DNA. So, the next time you see a fancy blue egg, just remember it's basically the result of a long-forgotten chicken flu that never went away. The world's largest egg came from an extinct bird that made ostriches look tiny. The elephant bird of Madagascar laid eggs that were over a foot long and could hold the same volume as 150 chicken eggs. If these birds still existed, breakfast omelets would be a week-long commitment. Their sparkling water so naturally carbonated it explodes. In Italy, there's a spring called Sorgente Vitas that produces water under so much pressure that it bursts out of the ground like a geyser. Locals literally have to bottle it carefully or risk getting hit by nature's most unnecessarily violent soft drink. And that's a wrap on these mind-bending facts. Which one shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more bizarre and fascinating content. Until next time, stay curious and maybe double check before standing near a radioactive lake.